The problem here is me and Druid. We are the nobodies here. We are the ones that are coming out of the woodworks to try and challenge and put a stop to what you guys are doing. Because like it or not, you guys are the ones with the platforms. You guys are the ones with the reach and the influence.
And Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He tried to stage a coup. He tried to steal a free and fair election, and you supported him regardless. So you don't give a fuck about protecting this country or protecting democracy.
And if you're making the claim that we're going to see like disastrous end of civilization consequences, locking out of power, that kind of stuff. Did that happen in Georgia? I mean, we have 2 Democratic senators from Georgia. Did that happen in Utah? Do we have no rule of law in Utah? There's just no evidence to suggest that what we're proposing entails the destruction of the country or the Constitution.
You're accusing Pisco of lying when you proffered the idea. He was the one who said that we were lying. No. Mitch McConnell was trying to protect President Obama's nominee. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
The cases that you just cited, right? The affirmative action and Dobbs, those were overturning Grutter and Roe v. Wade, right? And so the law of the land was affirmative action and abortion rights. And did we not have a democracy then? So you're pointing to dissents after overturning like storied precedent in Grutter and Roe v. Wade and being like, this shows that the Democrat appointed justices are going to end democracy. Bro, what we were doing was ending a status quo of decades in which obviously we had democracy and where Republicans won elections regularly. I mean, we're talking about the Reagan era. We're talking about George W. Bush. How could you possibly say that dissents in the abortion case and in the affirmative action case would somehow bear on whether Democratic justices are going to usher in autocracy?
It's so funny. You guys are going to lock us out of power. Prove it. Okay, well, I can't. Okay.
What would happen if Republicans added the same amount?
Condemn the court packing of Republican states. Well,
what would happen?
No, that's different. Okay, actually,
Congress,
Josiah, I guess you got me. You have strong opinions about packing the court, and you're a fucking lawyer, and you're losing this debate.
Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we have yet another court packing debate. Hooray! Court packing 2, pack harder. I'm sure next week we'll have court packing 3, pack with a vengeance, but I guess we'll figure it out. We got some great guests here, and tonight we are going to be talking about 2 things: whether or not Democrats are justified in packing the court, and whether or not Ro Khanna's plan to increase the court size of the Supreme Court to 13 is also justified. We're going to get into it. We got some great guests here. I'm going to give the mic to them. Keep your intros short so we can get to the meat of the topic. But first, we're going to hand it to Josiah, and then we're just going to go to Pisco and then go around. So Josiah, start us off.
Yeah, so obviously Democratic court packing is justified. Republicans have court packed in various states. Republicans don't give a fuck. There's no different principle between a court of last resort at the state level versus one at the federal level. I've never heard a Republican or conservative be opposed to federal court packing, but have condemned what the Republicans have done at the state level. The fact of the matter is, even at the federal level, Republicans have acted in ways to change the composition of the Supreme Court for partisan political advantage. What this comes down to is that the GOP and their acolytes feel an entitlement to a permanent conservative majority. If the shoe was on the other foot and they were languishing under a liberal majority or supermajority for 50 years, they would be doing the same thing. We have evidence to believe as much. I don't think that there will be a parade of horribles that ensue from this, but even if there were, I think the Democrats would be justified in doing this. That's where I stand. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Pisco, what do you got for us?
Basic self-defense. There was court packing before done by Mitch McConnell and Merrick Garland's seat. Democrats are justified to respond in kind so long as they're not doing something that destroys the republic or undermines fundamentally the structures of our government in some, ultimately destructive way. I don't think that there's any strong case that would be the case. I think everyone here would grant that if there was a legislative court pack by Republicans, Democrats would be justified to do it in response. I'm sure all these people would be advocating that if the Democrats do this, Republicans should respond in kind. So even if they're wrong about who was the initial aggressor, we all understand the self-defense principle, basically. And I think that argument, which I provided before this debate, which is logically valid, is also sound. And haven't heard a person successfully argue against it just yet. So I'm looking forward to the debate, and yeah.
Thank you for being here. And we get Pisco on the road, so we're excited to see you and excited to see how it goes. Next up, it's been a bit since he's been on my channel, but welcome back, Druid Esquire, Desert Druid. Go ahead, give us what you got.
Esquire in training, just to be clear, not actually fully an attorney bard yet. But to be clear, the opposition's proposal is immoral, unprincipled, illogical, and unjustified, no matter how justified it might be under the Constitution. We live in a world of political reprisals, whether that be state packing or gerrymandering, and here we see the argument for political escalation. Democrats do not have a serious justification or principled argument for packing the Supreme Court. President Trump never expanded the number of seats. Republicans never packed the Supreme Court. They only won elections and used valid balances of power within current laws and limits, something I welcome any side to do when they hold those instruments of government. A president gets to nominate with Senate advice and consent. The president is not entitled to an appointment. Neither the president or any party is entitled to a court that represents their will, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Wick.
Thank you. Sorry, my mixer's going crazy. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that you're back at it, and we're going to get into it. Last but certainly not least, the Gen Z attorney, please.
Thank you, Wick. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's good to be back. I've taken a bit of a hiatus/retirement, enjoying life in the real world, and unfortunately, this issue has pulled me back into the fray, and but it really is because it's that important. Like, this isn't some simple, small thing that's being proposed here. This is a fundamental, country-altering, democracy-destroying move that's being proposed. And we're going to get into the details about why it may be justified, may not be justified. We're going to get into all of that. But I want people to just keep in mind the big picture of all of this. Even if there's a 1% chance that this leads to the destruction of the country, this is something that needs to be taken incredibly seriously. And the fact that we're even having this discussion now, whether it's with 2-seat pack, 4-seat pack, it's just, I just can't stress how serious it is. And so, like I said, we'll get into the specific details of it. We'll go through the syllogism, because I know that's something Pisco really wants to walk through. But then beyond that, we're just going to talk big picture and explain the rationales. And I think what you're going to get from our opponents here is conflation of issues, obfuscation of what their actual intent is here. And I think by the end of it, all will be laid bare. And yeah, other than that, yeah, thanks for having me, and let's get into it.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start with that. If Pisco really wants to get into his syllogism, why not present it? And
Sure.
I guess it's as good a place to start as any. Go ahead.
Wait a minute. I got a quick question for Gen Z attorney, because he said something about if there's a 1% chance that this could happen, it would destroy the country, it should be taken very seriously. I really want a clarification of terms here. Do you think there's a 1% chance that this happens? Number two, do you think it destroys the country? And number three, when you think it might destroy the country and you say it should be taken seriously, do you mean it should be opposed?
Okay, we might have to go through those one by one if you want me to answer each of them.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
Is there? Do I think it's a 1% chance of happening? Was that the first one?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Okay. Do I think there's a 1% chance? No. I think based on what you guys are doing here, I think what we're seeing here is the groundwork of trying to lay the foundation for a sea change. We've seen this with Abolish the Police. We've seen this with the critical race theories of the 90s that have translated into actual real life impacts that were so bad and so politically toxic that y'all had to run away screaming from them, and saying y'all generally about the left and Democrats. And so I think what we're seeing right now is you two in particular, but also major players in the Democratic Party are trying to build the consensus and at least test the theory, see where the appetite may be. So right now it may be a small percent, but I think Josiah, you said yourself that.
Yeah, this isn't a gotcha. I'm just asking.
Just a housekeeping thing. Just a housekeeping. Are you on the right mic, Mr. Attorney?
Maybe not. Hold up.
Okay. People are saying you might not be on the right mic. Sorry.
Right here. This is me.
I think it's just an echo, because he doesn't have a lot on the walls. It's probably what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, this isn't a gotcha. I'm just trying to figure out, do you think there's a 1% chance of the Supreme Court being packed? First question.
No, I think it's greater than 1% right now.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So at least a 1% chance. Okay, so number two, do you think it would destroy the country if it were packed?
Yes.
Okay. Number three, consequently, when you say it should be taken seriously, what do you mean by taken seriously? It should be vigorously opposed or just discussed extensively?
I think, well, why not both? I think so long as people are proposing it, I think it needs to be pushed back at every which way, which is what we're doing here now. But we'll see what direction it goes in. If the trajectory continues to grow, if the popular support continues to grow, then yes, there will have to be stronger and stronger pushback. But yeah, so
What should that pushback look like? Just to clarify here, what do you think it should be like, other than just like voicing your opposition to it, and Republican legislators presumably voting against it if and when legislation came before them to expand the court? Should Democrats not win elections as a consequence of this? Should people vote against Democrats as a consequence of this?
I think through all of this, yes, the vote is going to be the most important part of people, the American people having their say. And I think what we're seeing right now is the proposal. It's a unilateral proposal that doesn't take into account the actual will of the American people. Because I think this is what you guys are misunderstanding, and it's not an analysis.
I understand it, but there's a reason I'm asking these questions. So again, I'm just trying to test your consistency here. I appreciate that. So do you think a coup poses a threat to the country?
Okay, we can do a January 6th debate on a separate occasion if you'd like to. I think
right. So let me skip.
Consistency.
You're right. You're right because you're right. So let's skip to the punchline. I would ask you, if a coup is a threat to the country, you would be forced to concede yes. I would ask you, if there was a 1% chance or greater of Donald Trump stealing the 2020 election from President Biden, you would be forced to concede yes. And then I would say, by that light, shouldn't Donald Trump and MAGA be vigorously opposed? And you would be forced to concede yes. And then I would ask you who you voted for in 2024. Who did you vote for in 2024
Dude, your fast talking is very impressive, but it's not actually going to cut it.
Exactly. Nobody cares what you have to say. Nobody cares what you have to say. I'm testing. I appreciate you're trying to bail him out.
Josiah, please.
Well, no. The problem. Here's the problem.
Let them answer, and then you can.
Yeah. The problem here is me and Druid. We are the nobodies here. We are the ones that are coming out of the woodworks to try and challenge and put a stop to what you guys are doing. Because like it or not, you guys are the ones with the platforms. You guys are the ones with the reach and the influence.
And Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He tried to stage a coup. He tried to steal a free and fair election, and you supported him regardless. So you don't give a fuck about protecting this country or protecting democracy.
And all you're doing is obfuscating to something that's not
I'm just humiliating you using your own internal logic.
You're going to the executive when we're talking about Congress.
Democracy.
We're talking about
because
Congress
the standard is the same. The standard is the same. One can threaten democracy, and so too can the other.
Act and a law
you supported Donald Trump, even though he posed a 1% threat to democracy over the Democrats.
Can we talk about the legislature and the SCOTUS, which is what we came to do?
We can proceed. I'm just demonstrating that you guys are not principled at all. You're partisan hacks. Continue.
We've done it. I want to give it to Druid because he has some things to say, and then Pisco hopefully can get into it.
Sure.
Go ahead, Druid.
Yeah, it's literally called.
Sorry, Druid. Real quick before you get into it, we just spent 10 minutes talking about
10 minutes to demonstrate that you guys don't have a principled commitment to anything. That's what we did.
Exactly into my prediction. I said you're going to conflate and you're going to obfuscate.
You played into my prediction that you guys are not principled. I said it in my intro.
Josiah, I love you, buddy, but you gotta let him get a word in. Okay, we gotta let him get a word in. Okay.
So it is relevant what he said there about your sensitivity to like end of times democracy, because it will be relevant to P5 of the argument in terms of your tolerance for a severe consequence cascade as part of my argument. And so, presumably, if you are willing to put aside the relative percentages and end of country scenarios in the context of voting for Trump, then you're tolerant of that risk in other contexts, perhaps if the benefit is greater. So I do actually think it's relevant.
But you do see how someone voting for the executive is different than a congressional law changing another branch?
Tuesday is very different from Wednesday. Yeah, it's a distinction without a fucking difference.
What do you mean?
You're right.
We're literally talking about SCOTUS and the legislature, so I'm not even going to...
both of them are branches of government that can threaten democracy.
So I can respond to that.
Under certain circumstances.
So the reason why it doesn't really matter that one is in the context of purely of the executive and the other is it's actually both branches of Congress, because in order to get the court pack, you're going to need to get
There's
the
only one branch, Congress. Bicameralism, but it's just one branch.
No, there's also presentment to the president. Have you seen I'm Just a Bill?
Yeah.
You got to show that to the president. So that's the executive branch right there.
Good. We are actually no, but we're on the same page where it's not just Congress. It is actually them submitting it.
The reason I think that distinction is kind of doesn't really matter is because we're trying to see your tolerance for risk and systemic risk specifically, and in that context, does it matter if the end of the country comes as a result of the executive branch overreaching, or whether it's I don't know, I guess the court overreaching and then people not listening to it? It really does seem that in terms of consequences and systemic risk, you should be sensitive to both.
But in what way?
It just seems like you're bringing up red meat for your base, so
Yeah, and
Carry
I
on.
don't know in what way, whether we're being internally consistent or whether or not we voted for Trump or support or have any thoughts on January 6th. None of that's relevant to.
It is relevant because the
we're
point is
we're pulling the Pisco.
the
That's not relevant to
the
prompt.
reason
We
it's
got the
relevant
prompt
is
here. Why are we
because
not doing the
you all
prompt?
believe that this is just a partisan power grab by the Democrats,
But
but
who's
you
got
don't
the
have the moral
affirmative
high
here?
ground either. All you care about is preserving right-wing authority, be it in the executive or the judiciary. You don't give a fuck about threats to democracy. Otherwise, you would have condemned the guy who attempted a coup and voted for the Democrats in 2024, but you didn't. Fuck
So you
guys.
also
Let's
condemn all the
continue.
coups that happened across the states during BLM?
The coups
It's
that
just a
occurred in
different
BLM.
conversation.
No,
The
no,
coups.
no, Drew, don't fall
Yeah.
for it. They're
Yeah,
trying-
let's go to the
no,
argument.
It's just an
Drew,
obfuscation.
enlighten
So
me.
let's just go to the
Enlighten me.
actual argument.
What coups?
Josiah, let's just go to the actual argument, Josiah.
Yeah, we can go to the argument, but like, come on, BLM coups, that's pretty crazy. All right, so
Every single time a leftist rioted in the Capitol at the state was a treasonous act by your guys' definition.
no, that's not true.
That's derailing. That's derailing.
But,
cut him off right there.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
okay,
So
okay, yes.
I'll
the
blame it Josiah though.
Hold on, hold on.
It's whatever.
Let's go back. The first thing we're talking about, and I want to remind everyone here, is, and this is a prompt, the Democrats are justified in expanding
Yeah.
the Supreme Court, yes or no? Give us the
I don't give
argument
a fuck about the prompt. I'm not here to talk
I'm
about
here
the
to
prompt.
expose you. No. So
I'm here to
premise.
expose your tyranny. I'm here to
You're
expose your
exposing
tyranny.
nobodies. Good job. Good job. You're exposing nobody's.
Horrible Star Wars takes. You got it.
So
We can,
premise.
we can talk
Fair
about
enough,
that at
but
the end. I promise you.
Let's
I'll leave
stick
room
to
for
the,
that.
Let's stick to the, are the Democrats justified in
Yeah.
expanding the Supreme Court?
So the first premise of the argument, I think, is something that's pretty easily agreed to. Okay, it's the following: it's a conditional statement. If there was injurious partisan Supreme Court packing, and there's no effective way to reverse it without court packing, so we're dealing for the situations in which you can actually reverse it, not where you can't, right? And the proposed reciprocal court packing doesn't overshoot beyond mild deterrence, and so it's a situation when we're just talking about one that's at least in some respect proportional. We can talk about how much that is. That'll get into the row con versus regular distinction, and there's no reason to expect a severe consequence cascade. Then the injured party is justified in reciprocal expansion of the Supreme Court. So that conditional is basically tracking, I think, most people's normative intuitions that if there's a wrongful injury, barring extenuating circumstances, we should heal it, right? We should like reverse the injury that was done. And so that, like, now you can deny whether or not there will be a relevant consequence cascade. You can deny whether there was an initial court pack in the first instance. But if you buy onto the notion that there was an initial unjustified injury to one side, I think that we would agree that as long as there's no like insane consequences and the response isn't insane, we would want to like repair that injury, right?
Real quick piece of housekeeping. Do I sound better?
Yeah, way better.
Yes. Wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait.
Okay,
Wait.
great.
Say a longer sentence.
I got it figured out. So
Yeah,
I
you
can
sound
stop
better.
okay now.
Okay,
Okay.
good. I'm glad
Sorry,
it was.
I'm trying to Pisco. I'm trying to pull up your actual.
It's on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through right now. I can't find it. I just want to be able to actually.
Yeah.
refer to it.
Well,
I mean, we can start on the first point, the injury.
So no, but I want to make sure that you would agree, like, and you don't necessarily even have to look at it. We can tune it if we need to tune it additionally. But it's the kind of notion which is like, imagine that it were the case that, for example, Democrats did a legislative court pack in one instance, and let's say that starts like that's the initial aggression. Don't you think it would be justified for Republicans to do it in response, as long as there aren't these like severe consequences to the system?
Well, I think. I'll
Yes
just
or
tell you
no?
my position. I'm fine with a tit for tat. I will go. I say
Yeah.
turnabout is fair play. So what McConnell did, called the McConnell rule. If you give him the same position, do it right back.
Oh, okay,
What
so-
he's proposing is not that though.
Well, so we can talk about the distinctions and whether or not it's quote unquote, the same thing. But I think you've agreed to premise one, which is this tit for tat. As long as there aren't some, okay, you don't agree with that. It's like, so if the Democrats did a
What
legislative,
is the injury?
no, this is if it's conditional, right? If it were the case that there was a qualifying injury, right, and it was done, let's say, for example, by the Democrats to the Republicans, so long as there aren't some insane consequences that go along, we should rectify that injury, right? And so, for example, if the Democrats did a legislative court pack, you would be in favor of the Republicans responding in kind, wouldn't you?
I'm okay with the tit for tat.
Yeah.
Turnabout is fair play. But
Wait,
premise one
Desert, is that your intuition as well? I mean, I think this tracks most of our normative intuitions. If someone does something wrong to you and we can reverse it without destroying everything, we should do
Well,
that.
here's the thing: is that like
Before Desert
Sure, if
answers,
there's
your
an-
chat is saying, Pisco, that your gain is. Can you reduce it a little
I
bit?
can reduce it. Sorry.
I don't know if everybody else is hearing that, but I'm just getting pinged saying he needs to lower his gain. Lower his gain.
my undergrad was in bioengineering. So if there's an injury, there needs to be the appropriate remedy for that injury, right? And you want it like tools in bioengineering, like that's what the tools we use to heal people, is that you would use a splint to heal a broken bone. You wouldn't leech someone to heal a broken bone, right?
No, I would agree with that. Like, as long as we're in the same like domain of thing, right? And then so we can fight about whether or not we're in the same domain of thing when it comes to the Mitch McConnell did. But like, assume that we are in like the same domain of thing. You would be in, as long as like what we're doing to rectify that injury isn't like fundamentally destroying a bunch of other shit and wrecking a bunch of other stuff. You'd be in favor of responding in kind and like rectifying that injury, wouldn't you? So like, for example, I want to give you the example again. If Democrats did a legislative court pack, would Republicans be justified in responding in kind?
I would need you to, again, explain the injury so that we can be clear on what the prescription to heal that injury would be. And then if it's court packing per se, there's a whole bunch of tools to do that. And if it's, see, the thing is that you're using court packing such as a bad definition that I think we should get to the Cardozo law review article that you're kind of pulling this out of your butt.
Well, let's just assume that we win. Let's just assume that we win in 2028. We have a trifecta and we expand the court to 14 or to 13. Excuse me. Would you support Republicans the next time they have a trifecta, expanding the court in turn to rebalance the court towards a conservative majority? Let's just give like a concrete hypothetical.
Yes.
Yeah. So that I think means.
What about Desert or the other guy? Yeah. What do you think?
If it was actually packing where you're changing the number, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
now on a state level, Democrats would be justified in doing that.
Okay. So I think that you guys should agree, therefore, with premise one, because all premise one is saying is, so long as you're not doing like it's not destroying the system, so long as you're not doing something insane in response, and so long as it's tailored to the injury, you should rectify it. And I think both of you agree with that. Now, I think a big contention is going to be in P2, the fact that there actually was injurious packing by Republicans to Democrats. And the argument, you can say it's like a minority view on what court packing is, or it's a quote unquote bad definition, but the argument isn't about what's like a good or bad definition. You can just like reject the premise if you think it's false, but what the court packing definition that I use is a change in the composition of the court, which is irregular, by which we mean is a norm violation, and which is actively driven. All right, it's not the result of random chance. Okay, now you're shaking your head, and I have the sneaking suspicion that you're going to say that's a bad definition.
That's not even a concise definition.
Well, whether or not a definition is concise,
the definition need to be concise.
Well, what would your alternate definition be?
Changing the number of the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So the reason. So I don't want to get into a battle of like definitions, right? Like the argument isn't tailored to whether like which definition is better. If you wanted to change the word from court packing to court schmacking, I'm totally fine to say that. All which this is trying to say is if you have you could replace the term court packing, it's not needed for the argument. I could just substitute that with court schmacking.
So you're saying that every single time that the Senate denies for partisan reason, that's a
because
court schmack?
No, because the court schmack is indexed to irregularity and actively driven, right? So you're changing the composition of the court in an irregular fashion in a way that's actively driven. And here, what I think, whatever you want to call what Mitch McConnell did, I propose, and my belief is, whatever court packing is through legislative means, what Mitch McConnell did is worse. And that's why our intuitions, I think, should be the same.
So the problem with the definition is it's not that it's not concise, it's that it's overly broad. If we're talking about irregular practices and actively driven, I think is going to be whatever it is, as far as, okay, most of these things are going to be actively driven, but whether or not it's irregular, because if we're using such a broad definition, we can point to dozens of examples throughout the history, especially in the modern history, which I would submit, well, not dozens recently, but since Robert Bork, most of the politics playing with the Supreme Court has been driven by the Democrats. Whether it was the creation of the term borking, which I'd love to get into because you seem to deny that was actually a norm violation.
Yeah, I do deny it, yeah. But
versus what happened with Clarence Thomas, I think complete norm violation there. Brett Kavanaugh, complete norm violation. And the one that you guys are focused on is Gorsuch and Barrett as being the two seats that were robbed. And so,
well, let's just slow down a little bit there because we're not trying to just play off norms against each other, right? Norm violations, right? Even if we were to concede, and I don't concede, and I strongly, if you want to get into it, we get into the Bork stuff, there absolutely was zero norm violation there on my view, and I think that I would be justified in that view. We're not just comparing norm violations, right? We're comparing norm violations that are actively driven and that actually result in partisan injury that occurs, right? So like it's not just that we're comparing norm violations in some general sense. We're comparing injuries done to the composition of the court that inflict a partisan injury, and that's the notion of norm violation that we care about. In this context, in the self-defense context, if you're not actually causing the injury, we care much less about it.
Well, now I get to actually invoke January 6th because this isn't the main argument. Not that it was unsuccessful, but the fact it was attempted.
You know, that obviously plays into different notions of systemic risk, whether or not people should be punished, whether or not you should be judged for voting for the guy. Like, those are different questions, and we can get in. And I'm sure you guys would accept all the negative stuff that we have to say about Mitch McConnell, the thing that happened in the past. But the Jan 6 example proves the point. If there were a way to undo the injury of January 6, right, to heal everyone, right, to everyone who was hurt gets unhurt. Everyone whose property was damaged, the property gets returned to them, right? If there is a way to heal that injury, then we should do that, right? So regardless of whether or not things that are attempts should be treated negatively in some other sense, yeah, for sure. I mean, we should treat it negatively in some other sense. But to the extent that we can repair an injury that's actually done, we should do that. And that was under P1, which I think you already agreed to.
But you're saying, but no. But if we focus in specifically, Bork, Thomas, and Kavanaugh,
sure.
3 hyper partisan blood sports, completely violative of almost every norm you can think of when it comes to Supreme Court nominations. And the problem was not that, but they were confirmed anyway, so all is well, all is made well, there is no injury. The injury there is the attempt. The injury is the circus that was made, and the constant attempts to undermine and delegitimize this court. We have people still claiming Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know, look, I'll be careful about what I say, but you know what they're saying about Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, but there could be other ways to rectify. So what I mean to say here is maybe there are other ways to rectify wrongful injuries done to Brett Kavanaugh's reputation. Maybe there are other ways to, vote down people who treated Clarence Thomas wrongly or whatever, but that's not going to be addressed by reciprocal court packing. Whatever injury occurred as a result of Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas hearings going the way that you didn't think that they should, that's not going to be rectified by court expansion. You understand that?
Yeah, it has no relationship because they were the fact that they were confirmed matters, and even in the case of Bork, President Reagan.
But those are separate injuries that maybe we can address.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It does matter. It means that the attempted coup in January 6th is not as bad as a successful coup in January 6th. That's the only difference. You are free to criticize the Democrats' behavior in Bork, Thomas, and Kavanaugh. But again, this has no relationship with court packing. What McConnell did in his norm violation was unilaterally prevent Democrats from having a hearing for not just Merrick Garland, but for anyone. President Obama's nominee. It was a blanket refutation. He said, Mr. President, you will not fill this vacancy. They changed the rule to prevent President Obama from even having a hearing. Now, to be clear, both Pisco and I would agree that Senate Republicans had every right to vote against Merrick Garland.
That wouldn't have been a norm violation.
There's a reason. There's a reason that they didn't even let him have a hearing.
I think that's just a lie and a lie from what happened in 2016.
What's the lie?
What's the lie?
The fact that they didn't have any nomination hearing, that they were going to deny all of them?
Yes. That's what happened. And that's what they said.
Yeah, let Drew make his argument.
Sure.
I'm curious.
Yeah, the way I see it is that in 2016, March, we didn't know who the next president was going to be. It was just as likely to be a Republican as it was to be a Hillary continuation after Obama. So what he was doing wasn't actually a norm violation in favor of his party. What he was doing was a quote-unquote norm violation because Obama didn't have the votes. He didn't want to, part of the argument could be that he didn't want to embarrass Obama because Merrick Garland wasn't going to get the votes.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Neither.
Is this a serious? Hold on, Drid. Is this?
So I was 16 when that happened, right? So
yeah, but is it your serious?
Did you not read up on it before this conversation?
That McConnell was trying to spare Obama embarrassment.
No,
Mitch McConnell, not Rich McConnell, Mitch McConnell, not a different McConnell, the senator from Kentucky, the Senate Majority Leader.
I just want to know if this is a real argument. That's all I'm.
My argument is that it is just as likely to have been because they thought they were going to get a Clinton nomination that was going to be more favorable than Obama nomination. that they could have.
So you're not plugged into the
Maryland
discourse that occurred there, right? So like, no, that wasn't what was going on there. That wasn't the motivation of Mitch McConnell. And in fact, they had a backup plan. If Clinton had won, they were going to try to have some lame duck activity, and they were going to try to push Mary. And Jeff Flake and other Republicans had already sort of primed the pump to be like, okay,
And
if
so
Clinton
were they
wins,
changing any laws? Is the question?
wait, no, we're not saying that they changed laws.
Could you say that? Wait, could
Were
he
they
ask?
changing any laws? Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say
well, number one, no, but number two, why does that matter? We
why
have
does
the
that
power
matter?
to change laws. Who gives a
Yeah.
fuck? That's a distinction without a difference.
Because it
Laws
is
can be
another
changed.
step. It is another step, like doing bloodletting when you just need to do a splint.
Wait, no. So it inures to our benefit in our argument, and let me explain why, right? Because you spent some of your intro saying, well, let me explain why. Maybe you'll agree with it. You might agree with it.
Let me lie more.
I'm not. Wait. So if you identify,
You're
a lie,
accusing Pisco of lying when
hold on,
you
what is the
proffered the
lie?
idea. Wait a minute.
Yeah, what
He
is the lie?
proffered. He was the one who said that we were lying. No,
No.
Mitch
So
Mitch
let me be
Mitch
clear on
McConnell
how
was
he
trying to
lies
protect
with this.
President
Your
Obama's
argument
nominee.
benefits me. Your argument benefits me.
You
It's the same thing as
accused
asking a yes or
Pisco
no
of
question.
lying by saying that Mitch
Wait.
Because he's
McConnell
saying that-
wanted to protect Obama. You don't know
I'm
what the
saying that
fuck you're
him-
talking about. I hope
Cool.
you can get
I'm
your
saying that-
refund from whatever dog
saying
training
that
school you're
him-
getting your law degree.
Yada 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 yada. I'm saying that him saying that my argument benefits him is a lie that he repeats over and over as a rhetorical
No.
argument. Just like
You
him
didn't even
asking
let
yes
him
or
No,
no
I-
explain
question.
it.
I believe
if
it.
If you let him explain it, he would probably explain why it's not a lie. Kind of like when you said
I'm
that
not
we were
gonna
lying
allow
about Mitch
rhetorical
McConnell. Nobody,
instances to
you're
be
not in
put
a
in.
position to allow anything. You are the beta bitch in this conversation. Go take what we tell you. That's the way this goes.
Take it from a 10
Very
to
nice.
like
Good,
a
good,
6.
good.
Okay.
No,
I know
but
it's very
good
nice.
propaganda,
Let's-
buddy.
let's
I know
let's
it's
get
very nice, buddy.
a
You're
little
getting
bit of
blown the
order
fuck
in this.
out.
We're all
Let me
packed
try to
I hope
in.
your future clients aren't watching this here. You
Let's-
are
so-
the loneliest goddamn lawyer in the world.
Okay,
You're so adorable.
So-
I know
I know.
I know exactly where we got derailed. I was bringing up Thomas, Bork, and Kavanaugh as norm violations.
So I wanna address
because
that.
of the pure politics that were being played, and it was undermining the legitimacy of the court. And there are people who still have these same beliefs about these justices because of the insanity that happened through their confirmations. And of course, Bork didn't make it, but Thomas and Kavanaugh, this has followed them. I mean, do you guys deny that?
No, I don't think it's. But I think first of all, we're accepting the frame of reference in which Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas are totally vindicated on the allegations. Let's not get into that. Let's assume that they are, right? So I'm happy to address that. I want to address what Desert said and about the relative merits of passing a law versus a rule, and then I'll address what you said. So on the difference between a law and a rule here, or like a norm violation, I actually did say that. The distinction that you're pointing out inures to our benefit, and I'm not lying. I actually do believe it, right? So you spent some of your opening saying, well, what Mitch McConnell did was within the rules, and therefore it's not as bad. And if by within the rules you mean like he has the authority to do it, then you're absolutely correct about that. But Congress absolutely has the authority to pass laws. I mean, those are within the rules too.
There's a difference
And
between passing a law
I know,
and working within current.
I know there's a difference, and now let me explain why, in the context of court expansion or court packing, as I understand the norm violation, why the law passing is more virtuous than what Mitch McConnell did. The reason for that is as follows: the decision by Mitch McConnell has not the virtue of bicameralism and presentment, which has some democratic legitimacy, right? You had to go through two branches of Congress, present it to the president, the law is then subject to judicial review. What Mitch McConnell did was the discretionary act of one person, doesn't have the virtue of bicameralism, doesn't have the virtue of presentment to the president, and doesn't have the virtue of judicial review. And so in that sense, it's a worse norm violation. Why? Because
Hang on, talk
it
slowly.
doesn't,
You're explaining Civics 101 to him.
it doesn't have
Yeah,
the
but half of
democratic...
that isn't actually in the process.
Wait, it doesn't have
no.
it doesn't have the democratic legitimacy of the process of lawmaking. That's why, by the way, guys, that's why we have the process of lawmaking to vindicate, the
Like, you do
states and the
realize that
Senate.
the Senate could have overturned that, right?
Yeah,
Like if the Senate wanted to,
when
they
you
could
say
have gotten
could have-
together and said, Mitch McConnell.
When you say could have,
Yeah.
you mean
Ow.
they technically had
They
the
have the
authority to do
votes.
so? Even if you're right about
Wait,
that.
what do you mean? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like, I'm curious. Walk me through that. How
Yeah.
could they have done that?
So if there is enough votes in the Senate to say, no, we do actually want to hear this, and they can go above and beyond what the Senate pro temp, I think it's called, right?
Majority
The Senate
leader.
Majority leader, where they will actually proceed with it if they actually want to.
It's tech.
You don't have
What
the
you're,
vote.
what you're saying is like it's technically possible, and yeah, we would grant that it's technically possible. But even if in this case it were the case that like the Senate, we can take what happened with Mitch McConnell as the implicit consent of the overall body of the Senate. Again, that's just one body versus the other branch of Congress, the House of Representatives.
But that
And
one body
wait, let me just
the
finish.
advice and consent of the Senate to appoint Scotus.
Well, no, you're just repeating the claim which we agree to, which is they have power, right? But in our context, the power is 1-to-1. because we have the power to create a law. So you can't just be like, well, Mitch McConnell had the power. He had the power. He had the power. We agree he had the power. Congress, along with the president signing on to the law, also has the power. So on power, it's equal. What I'm trying to tell you is the virtues of bicameralism is present in lawmaking. The virtue of presentment to the president is present in the lawmaking. And the virtue of judicial review is present in lawmaking. It's not present in what Mitch McConnell did. So in what sense is the norm violation worse in the case of legislative court backing versus non-legislative, whatever court schmacking, whatever you want to call it?
But the problem here, you're painting Mitch McConnell as a rogue actor who just acted unilaterally. That's why we're putting all the focus on him. But look, take it back to the Constitution. The president nominates. The Senate has the power to give advice and consent. You know what's the inverse of that? They also have the power to withhold their advice and consent. Who is the leader of the Senate? Mitch McConnell. Was he speaking as a rogue actor, or was he speaking as the leader of the body that has the power?
Yeah, grant that he did. Grant that the what happened to Merrick Garland has the full consent of the body of the Senate. I just granted it to you, right? So let's not bring that up anymore. The rogue actor thing off the table. I'll give it to you that it had the whole consent of the implied consent of the Senate. You don't have the House of Representatives. You don't have the president. You don't have judicial review. Those are virtues not present in the norm violation of what Mitch McConnell did that are present in legislative court expansion. So I'm going to ask again, in what sense is it worse to do legislative court expansion, given that it has the virtues that what Mitch McConnell did lacks?
I can tell exactly why, because there's a million things that could be done through bicameralism and presentment that could be egregious violations of rights of Americans, but it was done legislatively. It was done through the process. It wasn't done through just one house of the Congress. It was done through the correct legislative process. And this actually, it goes back to our debate we had in the American moral proposition, where your view of that was basically, well, so long as it's consistent with the Constitution and the laws, then that's consistent with the American moral proposition. I hardcore disagree with that and say there is a higher calling, a higher foundation that the country was built on, the moral proposition of the Declaration, which actually creates a higher standard than simply what the government says and doesn't.
Yeah, but how is the Declaration of Independence relevant?
Real quick, I'll finish this out. Because this is a central argument of what you're saying of why it's more moral to do this legislatively than what McConnell did. But you're leaving out that complete other part of the analysis here, that just because something is done through the legislative process doesn't mean it's a
But I'm not saying that, though. Obviously, I don't believe that just because it goes through legislative process, it's good. What we're trying to compare...
He's just saying it's more democratic.
Yeah.
He's just saying it's more democratic to the extent that democracy is a virtue.
No.
And I would also... just real quick, I'm sorry, and I will send this in all seriousness. I will send this to you guys because when Desert said that basically the Senate could have worked around Mitch McConnell, you are conflating that with the House of Representatives discharge petition, which is relatively easier compared to the theoretical one that can be done with the United States Senate. The attempt by the Senate to sidestep the Senate Majority Leader and bring a nomination to the floor without the Senate Majority Leader's consent is
very tough.
Infinitely more complicated. And Fox News had a really good write-up at the time that all of this was going on about how there was virtually no shot of sidestepping McConnell because it had to go through 2 rounds of a filibuster-proof majority. Okay, it's just
McConnell has agenda control. It's really tough to do it.
It is virtually impossible. So just want to put that out there. I'm sorry. Now go ahead.
Well, let's focus that in right there, because you lead us all to believe that it is better to do bicameralism, to do presentment. That is a better process than just Mitch McConnell, or even speaking on behalf of the Senate. You lead us to believe that that's a better thing to do, and which is why it justifies what you're saying.
No.
And it makes it. But is the variable now that it just makes it more democratic? But you fully concede that just it's more democratic doesn't mean
you're totally confused. Okay, so we're not saying that everything that goes through a particular process is good or bad, right? We're just saying to the extent that we're going to compare relative norm violations, presumably we would think less of norm violations that are unilateral actions. The more unilateral, the worse, right? If you have a norm violation that's consented to by multiple the People's House, the Senate, and also the president, and also the courts get to weigh in on, that we're going to think of that norm violation, all else equal, in better terms.
I think your argument just fell apart, because you're saying it's worse when it's unilateral. But now you're saying, well, if we get everyone on board with the norm violation, then that makes it better.
Obviously, right?
that
Ten
makes it
doctors
worse.
say we should bloodlet.
Wait,
Not
no,
as good
no,
as
no,
one
no,
doctor saying we should splint with a
No,
broken bone.
no, stop, guys, stop. So we're noticing, but like you would agree, norm violation for Mitch McConnell to categorically reject any nomination of the president, even though he has the power to do it, right? Norm violation?
Say that one more time?
Even Republicans agree it's a norm violation. I mean, you're going to look like a fool if you don't accept that.
Because Mitch McConnell said it himself that the Democrats would regret them doing that for the lower federal judiciary. Then the Democrats are now regretting it.
No,
because
you're
they did it for the
conflating. You're
federal judiciary.
conflating two different. No, you're
I
conflating
came
two
prepared.
different things. But I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, it gives me the perfect segue for this. So what you're talking about is McConnell said that when Harry Reid invoked the nuclear option for lower judicial and executive appointees, that he would rue the day because he would do the same thing eventually. Now, what's interesting is that's not the logic he used to withhold Merrick Garland's hearing. That was the two were unrelated. Okay.
I got the quote.
Well, wait a minute. Well, hang on. The two are unrelated. He didn't cite Harry Reid as the reason why he refused to grant President Obama's nominee, not just Merrick Garland, but any of them a hearing. But the second point, I'm glad you brought this up because you told me earlier that, and I want to make sure I understand this correctly, and we can go back and we can listen to the VOD if need be. But can you all remind me what you said about Mitch McConnell's use of his authority as the Senate Majority Leader and why it's not as bad as Democrats changing a law? Can you summarize that again for me?
I think Desert said it.
Because changing the law this way is like bloodletting to try and fix a broken bone. You have other tools before you get to the judicial court packing that you can use before.
No,
So what you're doing is making a proposal that will be constitutional even, but it will unravel the current constitutional framework that we have set up post-Civil War.
Because we're changing a law.
Because you're adding court seats.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, you drew a meaningful distinction between it's worse when Democrats go to change a law to affect their ends, as opposed to what Mitch McConnell did, which is just exert his authority as the Senate Majority Leader. Right? Isn't that what you said?
This is stupid because what if we can just say, oh, what if we changed the law? What if we passed an amendment that just, I don't know, got rid of the Fourth Amendment?
Dude, you're not tracking.
So again, I'm sorry. So let me just skip to it. The point is that in order for Mitch McConnell to take these seats, it was a process. First, he had to deny President Obama a hearing 11 months before an election. But the other thing is he had to change things. It wasn't just the norm violation. He had to actively change Senate rules and invoke the nuclear option for the filibuster in order to get Gorsuch into the vacancy left by Scalia. So here's my other issue. I need you all to explain to me why it is virtuous or acceptable for not only McConnell to deny Obama a hearing, but to then change the rules to affect his end. Because the reality is, if he didn't change the rules and invoke the filibuster nuclear option to allow a simple majority to get his justice confirmed, Neil Gorsuch would never have sat on the Supreme Court. But you all don't give a fuck about that. So reconcile that for me.
Well, now we're back into this is the rogue Mitch McConnell who's just deciding when.
No, that's not what Josiah just said. Please stop. We're not. So please, Gen Z.
So
Josiah,
is it unilateral or is it not?
So no. So
it's not unilateral. Just being clear about that, right?
Okay. So unilateral could be indexed. So unilateral could be indexed to two things. We just explained to you. I don't know what your response was. That in fact, Mitch McConnell did exercise unilateral control here, and if he had changed his mind, the party would have changed his mind too. And in fact, that it's difficult. There were two on the record Republicans who said that they would have. They supported hearings. This is Susan Collins and one other senator. But other Republican senators were meeting with Merrick Garland. They had just approved of him years before on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and he probably would have gotten through if they actually had hearings for it. But even putting that aside, right, like unilateral could mean with respect to Mitch McConnell, and that would be a totally fine argument to make. And I think that Josiah explained perfectly why that would follow. But it could also be unilateral in the branch sense, unilateral action by the Senate versus bicameralism, and then another branch of government signing on to it. So it's not just.
But it's more than that. It's more than that. You are trying to present what McConnell did as just an exercise in discretion when the reality is he had to change rules. It's not a law that he had to change, but if the filibuster were in effect, Neil Gorsuch would not have been seated.
That's correct.
So again, if Merrick Garland can just deny a hearing for any of President Obama's nominees.
McConnell.
And he can
McConnell, yeah.
change. What did I say?
Garland,
sorry.
yeah.
Garland.
Oh, sorry. Yes. If McConnell can deny a hearing for any of Obama's nominees, and then he has to change the rules in order to get Trump's nominees through, why is it so far beyond the pale for us to change a law that's been changed before? I want you to explain to me why the line of acceptability stops right past McConnell and ends with what we're proposing to do.
Because it goes back to my original point, which is I'm happy to concede that turnabout is fair play, but you guys are not proposing turnabout. You are proposing, and we'll get to it later. I hope we do, but you're proposing a 4-seat pack to the court to take. What would that take? Yes, to take a majority.
Can you please respond?
Okay, well, what would be the turnabout? What would be the turnabout from McConnell invoking the nuclear option for Supreme Court justices?
That Democrats, when they have the power, they can also have the nuclear option, which they did do.
The
by
nuclear
the way.
option's already in effect. It's done. It's over with. They
And
don't
can
need to
keep it
do
in
that.
effect. They have no obligation to undo that, to restore the norm. No, this is the new rule.
I
This is
see.
what we're playing now.
So I want to make sure I understand this correctly, and I love how beautifully
Yeah, it
you
was
have tried to
crazy.
gerrymander, pun intended, this. So McConnell prevented President Obama from having any hearing for Merrick Garland or anybody. You graciously say that Democrats can do that. But in order for McConnell to do what he's done and give you the court you like, McConnell actually had to go another step and change Senate rules. And graciously, what you'll grant me is, okay, well, you don't have to change rules anymore. You can basically act in the parameters that McConnell created.
Yeah,
but the rule change has
proportionality.
already been done, Gen Z. So how about this? Hey, wait a minute. So here's my counter proposal. Merrick Garland was denied a hearing, so we can deny Donald Trump any heering in the future. And because
Hold up, stop.
McConnell changed things.
You're already failing that because
Wait a minute. Because Mitch McConnell changed the rules, we can change the law. How about that? How about that being turnabout?
No, this is my exact opening. You are conflating and obfuscating. You're saying, well, if there's a rule change here, then why don't we just do a law change to get to here? But we're not saying a rule change to a rule change. You guys are saying a rule change to a law change, which is going to then.
But
be
Gen
followed
Z,
by
did you hear my
another
response to
law
that?
change.
So my response to that, and you haven't effectively, I think, countered it, is the notion that at a bare minimum, a law change that it represents a norm violation has this virtue of going through 2 houses of Congress, being signed by the president, and being subject to review by the courts. And so I would understand if what we were proposing were like somehow more serious in nature of the norm violation. But what I'm telling you is the exact opposite, right? The greater includes the lesser. That the violation for Mitch McConnell is worse, all else equal. And this is not, by the way, I don't want to hear, are you saying that everything that passes through Congress is good? That's not what we're saying. All else equal, that at a bare minimum, a norm violation that is a function of bicameralism and presentment is more virtuous than one that's just done through this kind of, you're shaking your head, but why? Why do you think otherwise? If, in terms of power, it's 1-to-1. I want to repeat that. Mitch McConnell absolutely had the power to do what he wanted to do, and Congress has the power to do what we're proposing. So it can't be a powers question. So I'm asking, on what metric is legislative court packing worse than non-legislative what Mitch McConnell did? Go.
Because
So when go ahead, Gen Z.
All right. Because I can take it to the most fundamental. We can go back to the Federalist Papers. We can go back to the Constitution. It's all about its separation of powers, checks and balances. These things are set up the way they are for a reason. And you're saying, well, what's the harm here, or what's so bad about the legislature completely overriding the judiciary? Which, by the way, I want to hear. I think I know what your position is, but you do think that Congress should have more oversight of the court, right?
This is a vague question, but yeah, the answer is we think that, so the checks and balances as set up allow for what we're proposing, right? So it can't, what you're suggesting, sorry, just focus, right, Gen Z?
Right.
Focus, right? So we all agree that what's being,
asking why I think the legislative court packing is so bad. I'm giving you a fundamental separation of powers
relative to what Mitch McConnell did.
He's saying, why are the means? How is the means worse? Mitch McConnell had his means, which we painfully articulated. We are proposing the same result by a different set of means.
Why is it more radical to do the court pack? Yes, by legislation as opposed to by rule fuckery. That's what we want you to respond to. Relative to each other, you seem to think that the legislation is an escalation. I don't think it is. And I'm asking, why is it worse to do the legislation versus the rules fuckery?
Okay. I know you don't want to hear the answer, but what you're trying to draw this equivalence between the rule change and passing a law, and trying to make it sound like passing the law gives it this imprimatur of public confidence, right? Or no?
No. We're literally not trying to make an equivalence. We're trying to say that one is worse, and namely the one that's worse is the rules fuckery. So you're wrong. We're not trying to make an equivalence. I'm telling you right now, and I want you to respond to it, that the one that's worse is the rules fuckery, because at a bare minimum, right, the other process has more democratic legitimacy. I'm asking, in what sense is the legislation? In what sense is the legislation worse than the rules fuckery? All else equal.
Because the legislation violates this concept of an independent judiciary, and maybe guys, you don't believe in an independent judiciary. But
how does the legislation violate the notion of an independent judiciary?
Let him give a shot at it.
Hold on. Josiah is asking, how does this legislation violate an independent judiciary? Was that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. No. It's equal on that score, right? It's equal.
Okay,
No. Stop.
No. Let me answer.
All else equal. All else equal. All else equal. All else equal. All else equal.
Because you don't seem to believe that Mitch McConnell's Senate fuckery violated judicial indudependence. So I'm asking, how does legislative court packing violate judicial independence?
Don't go to the numbers yet. Wait,
what Mitch McConnell
don't go to the numbers yet. Wait. Stop. I just want to stop you. Don't go to the numbers yet. We're not there yet. We're not at that proposition yet. We need to start from base premises. So we're asking, in terms of the norm violation, why is it worse to do legislation versus rules fuckery?
Because it's a difference in kind. Because this is the thing that I've yet to hear on any of the panels talking about this topic, about what McConnell did. Because there's a whole other half of this equation of what was happening there. Yes, McConnell said we're not going to hold a hearing on this. Guess what Obama did, though? He still put up his nominee, and he did not withdraw his nominee, and Garland did not withdraw his own nomination either. They played a game of chicken because they both thought they were going to win, and guess what? Pisco, you know this as a lawyer. You take it to trial, there's going to be a big winner, there's going to be a big loser. You could have drawn a settlement earlier.
That's not responsive. It's not responsive at all, right? So so the question isn't the question. So we don't need to. We don't need an account for what occurred. Okay, so the number one thing is we don't need a chronology. All right, so anything of your response that like resembles a chronology or explaining what happened or who lost or whether someone played chicken is just non-responsive. We're asking you a normative question. We're asking you a question about what you think is justified, what you think is better, and what you think is worse. And you're giving the what you're saying is that legislation would be an escalation, right? You're like, Democrats can match, they can't go above. And I'm telling you, right, that a norm violation procured through legislation is more virtuous than a norm violation achieved, assuming the same kind of injury, which I think here it is, right? The injury is the composition of the court for partisan ends, right? So on that score, all else equal, why is the rules fuckery better than the legislation?
Just for my edification there, Pisco, are you saying that court packing in the way that you guys are proposing would be injurious then, since you seem to admit that what McConnell did was injurious.
Yeah.
And the solution is to be like, well, they got to injure it, we get to injure it too.
So our notion is self-defense. Self-defense. So it's no more injurious than you punch me and I hit you back in self-defense. You're the one who committed the injury. We are correcting the injury.
Yeah.
Sure, by doing an injury.
Really think that's what you're proposing.
So if you
now you hit me back. Is that the proposal? You guys really honestly believe that's what you're saying?
Well, wait, one second. You granted that, Gen Z. Do you remember when you said, yes, I grant that? That was P1. Stop. Gen Z, you said that if
I grant tit for tat. I don't grant packing the court with 4 justices. No,
we're not there yet. Wait, Gen Z, can we just get you to agree? We're not at the 4 yet, right?
Sure, fine.
Okay, so let's not talk about the 4 yet. So let's just focus on the nature of what's happening here. You're saying, well, I wouldn't countenance doing something beyond what was done to you, right? Now, we can question that, really. I really do question that. But, even let's just assume it. I'm telling you, right, that what was done with rules fuckery is worse than legislative fuckery. And so I'm asking you, why is it...
How many times does the Senate often change their rules?
Yes, Senate, how often does legislation get passed? What a stupid question. Yes, the Senate sometimes changes their rules, and sometimes that,
Congress
often
changes their rules,
and
right?
Congress often passes legislation. Congress passes legislation a lot.
And the internal Senate rules have only bearing on Senate, right?
Yeah, the internal deliberations of the Senate, yeah.
Wait a minute. Depends. It depends, right?
Well, the ultimate effect of it
has massive implications.
No,
it has massive implications because it impacted the court.
Yes, the rules by its terms only affects
the rest of the country isn't under those rules.
Hold on. But Desert, real quick, what they're saying is the rule changes made to the Senate because of the nature of what the Senate does, has ripple effects,
Correct.
second order consequences for the country as a whole.
I wouldn't even say second order. That was the direct intent of what was going on here. Yeah, but
Yes,
no,
but the way that the
ripples out.
Constitution is set up is that each house bicamerally has vast discretion.
and Congress
in how
has
they
the power,
operate.
and Congress has discretion to pass legislation, and the president has discretion to sign it. You understand that, right? You can't distinguish on a powers question. It's 1-to-1 powers. So anytime you're thinking, well, the Senate has the discretion, Mitch McConnell had the power.
Is
that's
a
true of
parliamentary
legislation.
power the same as a congressional voting power?
It doesn't matter if it is or not, right? Whether it's
How is it?
Because those are
meaningfully
parliamentary
different?
rules. That's the thing. It is meaningful because
Guys,
those are the
guys.
rules that the Congress runs by. They might have knock-on effects, but those are completely different than the rules that the country is governed by.
Do you want to go? I have a response. I mean, it's just stupid.
So it is, because what it comes down to at the end of the day is that McConnell exercised authority within his purview to enact change on the United States Supreme Court. You all support it to one extent or another. The inevitable
And any other
conclusion-
senator can do the same.
Inevitable, and a Democratic trifecta can change the fucking
They can
court.
do it, right?
This
They
is
can
the
do
point.
it.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You may not want us to do it, and you are free to make those arguments, but we can
So
do
the-
it.
the question
And
is
there's
about-
nothing you say that says we can't.
So we just need
You
to
must concede that we can.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
God you're not delusional that you could get
Just
this through
pause.
without a trifecta. Thank God.
So no, but that's, you see, there's the virtue that
Yeah,
you're
very
identifying.
non-responsive.
No,
You're-
it's beautiful what you just did, right? Like you would have to get a trifecta to respond in kind. That shows you, right, that what you would need in order to effectuate the aims that we're doing, you need more buy-in. It's not just one person or
You're
one
talking about
body.
expanding the courts, not just saying yes or no to a nomination to the court.
Yeah. So I understand that they're different actions, right? Yes, they're different actions, but we're
There's
assessing.
different actions in that
stop.
one destroys the
Please.
Constitution and rewrites it to pre-Civil War.
Wait a minute. Is your argument?
We
Wait a
were
minute.
constantly.
Wait a minute.
You are trying to put. Let me make
you
my point.
trying
Actually.
to
Let me make my
finish,
point. Let me make my point. You guys are trying to bring the court. You guys are trying to bring the court back to the level of disrepute it had before the Civil War, where it was constantly added and subtracted because it was only a political pawn for the rest of the country. You guys are not asking to actually have tailored tools to actually do the justice that you seek.
We can impute motivations all goddamn day. We established at the beginning, you have no principled commitment to democracy or this
Doesn't
court.
matter.
You just want a conservative majority and you feel
trying to get
entitled to it.
pocket
It's a
Number
republic, my friend, not a democracy.
Number two, the
Republic.
fact of the matter is that the Supreme Court has changed size multiple times. Are you telling me, because you
Pre-Civil
just
War.
said that
No,
was
after
democracy
too.
destroyed? Was democracy destroyed
It was
between
saved.
President Adams and President Jefferson? Was it destroyed all the times the court changed size, either by shrinking or expanding? Because what you said is expanding the court destroys
Was
democracy.
the court destroyed when it was
No,
just
no,
a
I want-
nomination
you
that
made a
changed the
claim.
positions?
You made
we're
a
not-
claim.
we're not
that
saying the court was
democracy
destroyed.
and the court were destroyed
because it
You
was a
made
civil
claim
war.
that democracy and the court were destroyed or would be destroyed by expanding the court. So I'm going to ask you again, are you telling me that President John Adams destroyed the court and democracy in
The norms
1801?
hadn't been ruined by then.
What
so.
about Andrew Jackson? What about the Republicans after the Civil War? What about Ulysses S. Grant? Right, like there's just no evidence to suggest that what we're proposing entails the destruction of the country or the Constitution.
Unless there is there's one way to thread this needle, and that goes back to your motivation. This destroys the court and democracy if by the court and democracy you mean a permanent conservative majority.
It's not
That's
permanent.
it.
The winds can and
You
the dice will
don't
roll in the
get-
future.
Democracy
win
and the
elections.
court were not destroyed.
Yeah.
Barack Obama won an election.
Oh, great! So we're agreeing that they weren't destroyed, and
Well,
that
no,
they're
we're not saying.
legitimate?
Wait, sorry. So we're not saying that the
Our
court is
stipulation
destroyed.
is not the court or democracy are destroyed.
Josiah, does the phrase "the path to sustained democratic power" mean anything to you?
What are you getting at? I don't
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like a phrase
Explain it
I've
to me,
used.
please.
Yes,
It sounds like a phrase
I.
I've used.
It's something you said about 10 times on the last court packing debate. So you want to impute motive to us and talk about we are just trying to entrench our permanent conservative power structure when you're the one. This is your catchphrase right now of this permanent democratic. Sorry, let me get it again. I wrote it down. The path to sustained democratic power. So when we're talking about,
Of course, you want
and by the way,
sustained
I wanna-
democratic power. We're Democrats.
Okay, and
I don't know what the fuck. Gen Z, I don't know what the fuck that was for, because here's the difference. I'm not pretending that this doesn't have a partisan advantage for me and my side. You all are the ones pretending.
Just a partisan advantage. You're pretending that it's not locking out other people.
Let's establish this fact real quick, because I also heard it brought up repeatedly that this entire argument, this entire analysis that you're going through is independent of justices, independent of court decisions you don't like, that this is a purely neutral, objective
so let me, can I address that? So that's...
I don't know what Pisco said. I've not said that.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I presented is but one argument in favor of court expansion. We've at no place in this argument does it say, and this is the only justification that one could ever provide. Nowhere does it claim to be, the sole and exclusive means of justification. It's just one that is in fact a neutral justification, and one that I think is it's uncontroversial with respect to at least the first premise that there should be some amount of tit for tat if it's not going to destroy the country. Now you say, and I think this is all hysterical, that the country is going to end, the Constitution is going to be destroyed, but like there's no evidence of that, right? There's no evidence that that's going to happen. So here's a question, right? Would you stop listening to the Supreme Court if it got packed by, let's say, two justices? Would you stop listening to it?
Would I stop listening to it?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be. I'll tell you, if it goes to 4, absolutely yes. 2 is a maybe, but I'm not saying yes or
Okay, so
no.
just to be clear, I want to get clarification on this. So if they pack it under Ro Khanna's proposed plan, and they change it from 9 Supreme Court justices to 13 Supreme Court justices, when the new Supreme Court, the packed Supreme Court, however you want to refer to it, right, issues a ruling from the bench, you will ignore that ruling.
It's a self-report. The reason why it's a self-report...
Let him answer the question. I want to hear. Stop. Will you ignore that ruling under those conditions?
There's a practicality to it, because what does it mean to follow or ignore a ruling? Okay, the president has criminal immunity.
Come on.
What does it mean for me to follow? What does it mean for me to follow that?
I'm just asking. So say there's a court case saying that you can't. I don't fucking know, right? Like something that will affect your life that you can
care about,
to either follow or not follow. Would you disobey the Supreme Court if it was packed to 13?
If I am, to use a classic phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, I would still follow it. But what I'm saying, the problem with what's happening here is not that we're going to follow it if it goes to 13. The problem is it's going to get reciprocally packed back, and then it'll get packed again, and then it'll get packed again. And you're saying,
well, let me ask Pisco. Pisco, if the Republicans regain power after the Ro Khanna plan, they pack it to 13, and they're like, fuck you, we're going to pack it to 20 or 19 or some shit. And then they issue a ruling that...
Yeah, I'm following it, right? So that's what we're doing. Ruling. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. All of us are following the Constitution. All of us are following the orders of the Supreme Court. It's a self-report, Wick, and let me tell you why, right? Okay, so what the implicit premise that's unstated in what they're saying when they're talking about the rule of law and the destruction of the country is they're willing to disobey the court when it's not in their favor, when it's stacked in a way that they view as unfair. And so the cascade of consequences that they're identifying in terms of like, presidents going rogue and not following orders is because they acknowledge that's what their side would do. Meanwhile, we're following the orders. Joe Biden followed orders.
Then why hasn't my Supreme Court and why hasn't my side split up Texas to get 6 permanent senators?
That's not responsive to anything I just said. That's not responsive.
That is responsive. That would literally be doing the exact same thing.
This is some shit you heard from like Ryan Malali. We got blown the fuck out.
What does splitting up Texas have to do with court?
Because it is an illegal move. It is a constitutional, legal, justified. Let me finish. It is a legal justification that is then immoral.
And hold the Supreme Court.
And they're not proposing any of these ridiculous things that would break our country.
Why would they do any?
Because they have the trifecta right now, which is exactly what they're presenting that they will do when they have the trifecta.
Oh my God, it's not an apples to apples comparison. Here's the reason why. A couple of things. Number one, the Republicans are already advantaged in Senate representation. Democrats have to electorally overperform. Just what? No. There are more reliable red states. There are more reliable red states than blue states. Number one. Number two.
So win more elections.
Well, can you be part of this debate, please? And he's making a point.
All he has are red herrings.
You're bringing up that you don't have all of the Senate. What are you talking about?
You just brought up breaking up Texas in order to get more
Desert. He's
responsible. You guys are arguing right now.
Desert.
I asked you what the relationship is between these things, and you're like, that's basically what you guys want to do.
Desert. He's addressing you.
And then you said. Yes, I'm addressing you. So number one, the Senate already favors the Republicans. There are more
Do you think that's
reliable red
destroying the
states
country?
than blue states. Number one. Number two, Democrats have to overperform in elections by about 3 or 4 percentage points just to break even in the Senate. The last time we had a split Senate, the Democrats represented 40 million more Americans, and only by the grace of 48 Democratic senators and 2 independent senators, Angus King and Bernie Sanders, were we able just to break even. It was 2020, 2021. Number one. Number two, Republicans are advantaged in the House of Representatives as a consequence of gerrymandering, mid-decade redistricting, and the recent Calais decision. In 2028, they will likely enter by +5 to +9% House seats. So they're advantaged now in the House. They're already advantaged by way of the Electoral College and are likely to be even more so after the 2030 census. You all already have the structural advantages. So getting to Wick's question, the reason that Republicans aren't interested in packing the court now or expanding the Senate now is because they're already structurally advantaged. The reason Democrats would want to expand the court and conceivably add D.C. as a state or Puerto Rico is not just for the benefit of enfranchisement, giving those voters actual representation, but yes, theoretically, it could advantage us, but we're already at a disadvantage. That's why it's not an apples to apples comparison. You're not looking at 2 disadvantaged parties. You're looking at one party that the status quo advantages already in every federal branch and the other that is disadvantaged in every federal branch. The motivations are different. Republicans want to keep shit the way it is because they're advantaged.
Okay.
Democrats are wanting to change it because they're
Yeah,
disadvantaged.
let's give it to Gen Z to respond, please.
There's one massive flaw. That was a great argument. It sounded very well rehearsed. Thank you for that. One massive flaw. All these institutional advantages you're pointing to, what did Republicans do to rig the game to earn these advantages? Versus what have already been built in by the virtue of how the Senate is constructed.
So glad you asked. They won elections and often use the power that they won from elections to make changes like gerrymandering. It's not organic, buddy. They use the power at their disposal to change laws to advantage themselves.
That's insane. Okay, you're talking about the last
Gerrymander's been going on for 30 years in the Northeast.
Wait a minute. Go ahead, Gen Z. Go ahead.
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
I'm talking about 1787 when the Senate was created. You're saying Republicans had to gerrymander their way to give the Senate.
You can't play that card, Gen Z, because if you go back to the structure of the Constitution and how it was originally laid out, then it's going to just crush your argument on court packing. Because if you're just going by the originalist vision of what the Constitution and framers designed for, and what they immediately did after the founding, which is to try to expand the court or constrict it and then expand it, then you're just going to run into the fact that this is in the intentions of the framers. So if you're just going to go by that.
And states were added in part because of partisan motivation all throughout the 1800s. So again,
the Missouri Compromise, bleeding Kansas, like there were a lot of partisan debates on that.
That all can be true, but that's now I can say it now. That's not responsive to my point. What you're saying, Republicans have gained all these institutional advantages through ill-gotten gains, and therefore we need to do our own ill-gotten gain to reinstitute our own. No. You're not understanding Josiah's point, right? No.
You're not understanding it. So let me explain it to you, right? What he was responding to is to the motivation of Republicans, regardless of how those structural advantages obtained, right? Regardless of how they came about, that's not part of the self-defense argument. What Josiah is explaining is why it would make sense from a Republican perspective not to upset the apple cart. So he's not trying to give you an initial set of conditions under which, this set of structures advantage Republicans. Sometimes it's through ill-gotten gains, and sometimes you're right. It's because of the structure of the Constitution.
And again, easy example, Gen Z, and this is where I'm curious. Do you in Desert condemn all of the Republican court packing in other states?
In states, yes. But states are different than SCOTUS.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna take the bait again because you're trying to turn back on.
Okay. See, thank you. I appreciate Wick's audience, everyone watching. He doesn't have a principled opposition to court packing. If it advantages the right, go ahead and do it. If it advantages the left, no, that's a bridge too far. If you've got a court pack in Utah, Arizona, and Georgia, go ahead, do whatever you need to do.
You defeated your own argument on the Georgia court pack on Wick's panel because you brought it up as an example, said it switched the balance to the Republicans, and then you were asked later, well, why hasn't there been this cascade of horribles? Well, Democrats haven't got back in power, or unless did I
Yeah, no. That's a great point in our favor. Do you understand that, right? So it means that if the Democrats are able to let the ink dry on our court expansion, maybe we won't see this tit for tat.
Right.
Tit for tat.
This is beautiful. Not only does it show that there is no precedent for the tit for tat in this respect, but here's the follow-up, Gen Z. So are you saying that Democrats would be justified in expanding the Supreme Court as long as Republicans don't retaliate?
As long as they don't retaliate?
Yeah, provided they don't retaliate.
You don't seem to have. You said I defeated my own argument in Georgia. You don't have an issue with what Georgia did because you know what? There's been no tit for tat. Democrats haven't retaliated.
They haven't
so
had
are
the
you
opportunity.
suggesting?
No, hold up.
So
My
are
point
you
is they didn't have
suggesting?
the opportunity to retaliate?
So you condemn what Georgia Republicans did with the Georgia Supreme Court?
I think in principle, yes. I don't like messing with the courts at any level. No.
I love it. I'm so glad to have moved you on it. And by the way, I want to know how much of a pussy you were that I had to pull that out of you. The fact that you are so unprincipled.
Okay. 10 to 6.
Because you should have been able to say, listen, Josiah, here's how principled I am. It's not about partisan advantage. I fucking condemn those morally inferior sacks of shit in Utah, Georgia, and Arizona for expanding the Supreme Court. And you know what? Republicans should bitch about that more. And the fact that they don't, Josiah, I get why you think this is all about partisanship because it sure looks that way, but I'm different, Josiah. They were wrong to do it, and Democrats are morally superior for not responding.
Two things before we go.
Right.
If you guys are enjoying the content, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. We bring you the best content, do we not? This has been a great show so far, so please do that. And if you have questions for all of these gentlemen, please get those in. And before the end of the show, we will get to all of them. I will stake out about 20 minutes at the end to get to all of them. So ask your questions, make your comments, all those things. Question for you, Josiah and Pisco, and then we can move on to the Rokana thing. I think.
Well, we haven't resolved like basic. So the Rokana thing, and I want to let you ask your question. No. I want to let you ask your question, Wick. But the Rokana is built from a foundation of this original argument, right? There's one part of the argument that's a proportionality prong, but if we don't get you to see it for like one or two justices, then it's all moot to argue about more. But you can go ahead, Wick.
Fair. So you mentioned court packing or court expansion in the past, in the 1800s, where various presidents have expanded the court, and that's well and good. But in the current modern context, I would compare it to lighting a match. Lighting a match in normal times, all fine. You can light your candle, you can light your cigarette, everything's fine. But if you light a match next to a gas leak, you have a much different effect.
Yeah, but
even though you've taken the same, let me finish. Even though you've taken the same action, there is an explosive result that did not occur because of the context has changed.
Yeah,
so given the amount of partisanship and the way that social media works and the way that we have our system is broken in many ways, do you not concede that court packing in this context might have a more disastrous result than in the previous context?
No, because you're exactly wrong. This is a recency bias, okay? It's a recency bias. The country was more unstable when the Adams and Jefferson showdown occurred, okay? The country was more unstable when Andrew Jackson did his court pack, all right? The country was more unstable.
Do you want to bring us back there?
The country was more unstable. Stop. The country was more unstable in the aftermath of the Civil War, where it wasn't entirely clear there wasn't going to be guerrilla warfare and years of fighting for all that stuff. So people don't have a sense of really how unstable the country was in these early years and how things could have gone vastly different. So yes, we're in a high degree of partisanship now, but back then it was more dangerous. Okay, it was way more dangerous, and all the same conversations were happening when you talk about, for example, the Dred Scott decision and people listening to orders and not listening to orders. So these were at a heightened level, and we had just fought a bloody civil war. And so at a time in which the country was incredibly unstable, both at the founding and before and after the Civil War.
The decision was before the Civil War. Correct?
No, agreed with that. But I just mean like the kind of ideas.
People ignoring the Supreme Court and the messing with the Supreme Court might have led in part.
So the he was added in like the 30s. This is oh my god, now I'm not even remembering his name.
But the Supreme Court, the lead up to the Supreme Court wasn't just the 10 years before.
Tawny,
it was happening for decades. Right?
No. So the lead up to the Civil War happened for decades for sure. I'm just trying to explain the conditions of the country at the time when the relative court packs happened. It was an unstable time for the country, and people were speaking about the court in partisan terms as well, both in the original packs and then also after when they restricted the Supreme Court when Andrew Johnson was president, and then expanded it when Ulysses S. Grant was president. So this is not at a time in which the country is like maximally secure. It's exactly the opposite, right? Now we're more secure than we were back then. And so you have no historical evidence of these kinds of pacts resulting in these calamitous situations. That's why it's like an absurd argument that doesn't have any foundational evidence, either data or historical case examples.
Well,
but here's the thing. I mean, to throw you a bone, Wick, I just want to say, even if, I mean, I totally concede that there is a risk that Republicans will just try to retaliate as well the next time they get back into power. Would not rule that out, of course. But because we look at this as self-defense, I just believe that to whatever extent a risk is there, it's still worth it. In much the same way that I think defending yourself against your abuser is worth the risk, even if it results in escalation.
In all contexts. So even if, like, I understand that you assign some percentage chance to this and anything. So even if it was guaranteed to happen, so we're not talking like just a chance or just a risk, but guaranteed that it would lead to an escalatory cascade.
I wouldn't do it if it was
because of the self-defense argument.
So if it was a 1% chance of the country destroyed, I wouldn't do it. I just think that's an absurd thing to think that it would occur.
Okay, you just think that risk does not exist.
Yeah,
so, Josiah, do you think that risks exist?
I think he's talking about the tit for tat.
No.
The tit for tat.
Yeah, I am talking about the tit for tat, number one. Number two, I don't know what the country being destroyed would look like, but like I very much look at this like gerrymandering, okay, in the sense that I supported Governor Newsom responding to what Donald Trump did in Texas with the mid-decade redistricting, knowing full well that it could easily trigger a gerrymandering arms race, number one, and number two, one that we may very well lose, which it looks like we will, especially when the dust settles in 2028. But I still think that was preferable to just rolling over and taking the abuse.
Because you're
one of y'all's main points.
Yeah.
Because I've been tried to do my research.
I'm sorry.
The guy, but no, it's okay. It's the oscillation point. And the argument that both of you I've heard you make, well, oscillation is better than the status quo of what we have right now, which you've characterized as a permanent
This means
Republican
long time.
Power. Okay, how long?
Yeah, not literally.
Decades. That's all we're saying. Decades.
Until the next vacancy. Until the process can continue the way it had been going for the last.
Could you repeat that? Because you cut out. Until the what?
Until the next vacancy opens and
no, not until
what happens with the next vacancy?
Let him finish so just so I can hear what he said, please.
The process that's been going on the last 150 years. You bring up Grant, and Grant set it at 9. You don't think there's been any utility in having a Supreme Court set at 9 for the last 150 years? There's no benefit to that.
So when you say, is there no benefit?
Not enough benefit. How about that?
So are you saying in neutral terms for the composition of the court, or do you mean what do you mean by that? I mean there's some.
I'm saying, Pisco, you know as well as I do that stability and predictability is a mainstay, especially in large court decisions, and that is a factor in stare decisis. That courts try to uphold precedents and follow them as best they can. If they're going to overturn it, they got to have a pretty dang good reason for doing so.
No,
my point here
it's not on the number. Let me address. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not based on the number, that we've had a stable number. What's been important is the stability of the norm regarding court expansion. That's the norm, because really we do need more justices. It's actually, I don't think it's likely we're going to get to like 100 or anything. I just think that there's more like escalatory paths before we get to 100. I think that's absurd. The amount of time it would take to get to 100 is like decades and decades. I don't think we're going to see that. But there are efficiency gains in the initial amount of justices that you're going to add. If you were doing this completely neutrally, we need more justices. There's just like, it really is something that we need more. So the stability isn't. Wait, let me just respond fully. The stability isn't like this arbitrary 9 number. The stability has to do with the norm of not doing partisan court packing. That's what's stable. But I think we need, if all the partisan lens were off, we would need more justices.
Okay, I'm assuming if I were to quote Breyer or RBG, who have all been on record saying they oppose any sort of partisan
I don't give a
packing,
shit.
which, by the way, Right, I figured that'd be your answer, but I think for the benefit of the audience, when you look at the left-wing Supreme Court justices are on record saying this should not happen, so you guys are just on record disagreeing with them.
Yeah,
but you're on.
Yeah, you know what's hilarious? I think I'm glad you said that, because many of the Republican conservative justices in Utah, Arizona, and Georgia said the same goddamn thing, and it was done anyway. So again, I mean,
you think that's wrong, and you can say this is wrong too. You can be consistent.
No, but like you have granted already a basic self-defense principle, right? So that's what we're working with, and where we got stuck, and where we're gonna get stuck on the Ro Khanna stuff is why you think that the expansion via legislation that's all else equal, right? So don't go into the numbers yet. All in just in terms of the norm violation, why is legislation enacting that or restricting it, by the way, right? Like, imagine if we just instead of packing it, we just like got rid of the seats. We got rid of all these people's seats. That could be done with legislation too. Why is it that legislation, all else equal, is worse of a norm violation in affecting the partisan skew of the court than rule fuckery? And we still haven't gotten an answer for that. Acknowledge they're different. I acknowledge they're different. I'm asking, why is one, specifically legislation, worse?
Okay, one clear answer for you.
Yeah.
It's about the limiting principle. The limiting principle of the Senate's advice and consent power, which is explicit in the Constitution of what they're allowed to do versus not allowed to do, versus legislative court packing as you're proposing, which has no limiting principle, which will lead to the cascade of horribles that you're saying.
That's different, though.
You're very confident saying will not happen.
No,
The problem is I'm approaching this from a holistic, realistic perspective.
Well, let's do things one at a time, Gen Z.
If you do the legislative court packing, it will invite the reciprocal court packing. Unless I want to answer from both of you on this. What is the percentage, 0 to 100? Let's say y'all get your plan. You can do 2, you can do 4, whatever you get your wish. What is the percentage you're saying Republicans doing it back?
20%.
Doing it or attempting it?
Doing it back.
20%.
Doing it. Getting it
See,
done.
I would say 25%.
If we hold on to the presidency for 8 years and we let the ink dry on that, people forget, man. Just like they forgot about Merrick Garland seat, except for me.
Assuming that Republicans ever take power again, because as we've been
they could take power again. You just need to.
Can you explain how that would be the case? You keep saying that if or I've seen it suggested that if Democrats were to pack the court, that Republicans would not be able to take power again. Can you explain how that would happen?
It's a question for Gen Z, right?
So you pack. Okay.
Yeah. This is to Gen Z.
I'm going to apply Ro Khanna's plan because that's the only one being put out there. Okay. You pack it by 4. You go to 13. Okay. Now you've got the Supreme Court in your favor. And look, this is going to take us down a whole side. I'm just going to make a quick point about it. In my opinion, the left-wing justices that get appointed are more overtly partisan in their rulings.
There you go.
And less tied to the Constitution than the ones on the right. The ones on the right, they're kind of hit or miss as to whether or not you could call them an ideological conservative. The fact the court is not a MAGA court, as Josiah likes to say, but rather a 3-3-3. So, but that's a whole separate point. In my opinion, I think.
No, it's key. No, we should stop there, right? Like, part of the risk in what they're seeing.
Well, let me finish real quick. I want to answer Wick's question. Let me finish that real quick. So, okay, you stack the Supreme Court to start getting favorable rulings on massive issues. From there, it's already being proposed. Okay, nuke the filibuster for everything that the Democrats want to do in the Senate. Add 2 states, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Add 4 more Democratic senators to get to that. Abolish the Electoral College to get the advantage in the presidency. It's one after another after another after another that starts with the packing of the Supreme Court and violating that core norm.
I just don't see how that would. I see how it might make it harder for Republicans to win majorities, but I don't see how it prevents them. We've had liberal courts before, and
it's been 50 years. It's been 50 years.
It's been a while.
It's been 50 years.
I would forgive you. I would forgive you for not forgetting or for not remembering.
Yeah, but like obviously Republicans were able to gain and hold power.
It's an absurd hysteria.
Well, the conservative, by the way, just quick on that, because that's just a stupid talking point to say it's been a Republican court for 50 years. If you look at it strictly based on who nominated the justices, sure. But if you look at the actual rulings, we got Casey in those 50 years. We got affirmative action in those 50 years.
Oh my God!
Hold on, just
You're
real quick.
Right.
That makes
you're right. You got one of hundreds
stronger.
of decisions that was liberal. You're right.
Hold on, just real quick.
You know what? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Just real quick.
Yeah.
You know what? Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor voted with the 9-0-9-0 ruling on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which saved Trump's ass in the 2024 election. So I guess they're pro-Trump justices because they ruled in Trump's favor.
Yeah.
No. By your definition, come on. By your definition,
hold on.
He just destroyed your.
I appreciate that.
Stop, please. Stop. Does that just granting you that, Gen Z, does that not just make the point stronger that even if they pack the court, that it will not necessarily keep Republicans from gaining power in the House, the Senate, the presidency, etc.?
It's not going to be, it's not like they're passing a law that's a categorical, you cannot run if you're a Republican. Of course not. But it is stacking the deck so heavy in the favor of the Democrats, and blatantly so. And so I guess credit to Josiah for being open about, yes, this is about partisan advantage.
Wait, we all are. Wait, no, stop with this nonsense of the lie. No, the lie minute. No, I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to respond to it. We've premised this entire thing about being open, that yes, there are corollary benefits that we're getting that are neutral for sure, and the justification here absolutely is neutral, but we have no qualms about that there's a partisan motivation here. We're trying to repair a partisan injury to our party. Yes, there's a partisan motivation here, but just like acknowledge what was just said by Wick. What Wick just said and what is that Democratic appointed justices sometimes rule against Republicans, just like, by the way, Trump justices sometimes rule against Trump, right? What is the actual reason, unless you're going to make the claim that you in fact did make, which is you just think that Democratic justices are wrong more? What is the evidence that if we were to have a 4-person court pack, like you just said, that they're all of a sudden going to start ruling against like Republicans ever having any opportunity to win an election? There's just no basis to believe that the justices that we appoint are going to just like countenance the end of our democracy.
No, they're going to rule, and you can just look at their dissents. Yes, we've gotten 5-4s and 6-3s recently that go in the general conservative direction, but you can read the dissents in these decisions. Dissent in the affirmative action case, the dissent in the OSHA vax mandate case. These the dissent in Dobbs. Like,
pause. No, stop. This is so important, right? Because the cases that you just cited, right, the affirmative action and Dobbs, those were overturning Grutter and Roe v. Wade, right? And so the law of the land for that amount of time was affirmative action and abortion rights. And did we not have a democracy then? So you're pointing to dissents where they're, after overturning like storied precedent in Grutter and Roe v. Wade and being like, this shows that the Democrat appointed justices are going to end democracy. Bro, what we were doing was ending a status quo of decades in which obviously we had democracy and where Republicans won elections regularly. I mean, we're talking about the Reagan era. We're talking about George W. Bush. How could you possibly say that dissents in the abortion case and in the affirmative action case would somehow bear on whether Democratic justices are going to usher in autocracy?
Because this is what I'm saying. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of going down these individual cases. We can do that. Look, I'm more than happy to do that. It's just going to take us way far away, and we're already an hour and a half into this, and we have yet to touch the Ro Khanna plan, which was one of the main things that we were trying to get to tonight. But we're still, because we keep getting distracted away even from the syllogism. So I don't know if you want to go back to that.
I'm happy to go back, but yeah.
Well, yeah, so just a couple of things here. So I just got a pop-up notification, and it's relevant here. Apparently, the Supreme Court has ruled on a 6-3 basis to allow Alabama to redraw its voting maps and eliminate 2 majority-minority districts. So I was looking for the opinion on that because I'm sure you guys will find that very interesting, just that decision. It's very timely. So much for the Purcell principle, by the way, of interfering with elections so close. Number one. Number two, again, I just categorically reject this thing about, well, if you guys get your way, you all will advantage yourselves such that Republicans will never get back into power. And there's just no evidence of that. And again, I also object to being lectured to by that from members of a party or members of a movement that do everything in their power to entrench their systemized advantage. Again, are you all condemning the gerrymandering that Donald Trump did? Do you all support
the equivalent?
Do you all
of
support giving statehood to Puerto Rico and DC? What is it that you guys fear so much because you actually didn't answer Wick's question, which would lock the Republicans out of power permanently?
Yeah, what are you scared of?
Oh, all right. When I say permanent, I just mean a long time.
Okay, what are you scared of?
Well, what's your evidence? What is your evidence of that? What is it that they will do to keep Republicans from winning elections?
Or governing. Let's expand it to or governing. Just
sure.
Well, I've already given the answer, and we're only going to talk on the federal level because the states are still going to do what the states are going to do, and that is what it is. But on the federal level, just put the shoe on the other foot. Let's annex Cuba turn that into 2 separate states, add 4 senators that way. Let's expand.
No
the
one's
protections
proposing that. And do you think that I want to just like pick out random Marshall
Well,
Islands?
now we're being
I'm
equivalent.
giving you a comparable example of saying we're going to, if we did the same thing that you guys are proposing about doing,
We're
You've been-
proposing
all of a
expanding the
sudden now
court.
it's-
That's what I'm trying
And
to
we're going to
understand.
propose on expanding the union.
How does
Both have legal
expanding the
processes.
court? How does expanding the court lock you all out of power?
because this is a red line that is drawn in the sand, and once that gets crossed, all bets are off.
That's your claim. That's your claim. You need to provide justification for it.
It's still not. I'm sorry. It's still non-responsive. How does crossing the red line, which has been crossed multiple times throughout our nation's history, so I just categorically reject it. How does crossing the red line of court expansion lock you all out of power?
How?
Because you're missing how the court, in the way it's treated now, post Robert Bork, it is a hyper-partisan political process that people are going to weigh in on and have strong feelings about, as it is a mild understatement. But if you undermine legitimacy of the court in that way, yes, we're not talking about...
It started with Bork?
Yes, that's when the norm was initially violated with the modern Supreme Court and turned it into a partisan process. Why did borking become a verb? Please, I want you both to answer that. Why is borking a verb?
In the 90s, when Clarence Thomas was being proposed, and there was someone who said we need to bork Clarence Thomas. That's how it became a verb. But that just meant
That was Ginny Thomas. She borked him.
To defeat Clarence Thomas. That's what it means. But it wasn't a norm violation to do what happened to Bork. That's what you have to show. What was the norm violation?
And it didn't lock you. And it didn't lock you all at power.
Yes.
So again, I want to keep coming. You guys have this very apocalyptic view of of packing the Supreme Court would do, and you said it would lock you all out of power. So either retract the claim or prove the claim. But all I hear is it would cross a red line. What does that mean? Conservatives won power when the court was shrank, when it was expanded. They've continued to want
during Roe v. Wade, during Grutter, during affirmative action.
Yeah. How would you all be locked out of power?
I can't give you an empirical study that's going to prove this. And all the
The mechanism. What's the mechanism by which?
Gen Z, I'm not going to bust your balls on this. I don't need an empirical study. I'm asking you to explain.
Give us a story, right? Give us a plausible situation, right?
Well, I've already walked you through exactly through. It starts with the court, and then you have the filibuster, and then you've got the electoral college, and then you've got adding states to enshrine permanent institutional advantages in the federal government. That is the step there.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Okay, that's fine. Let's engage with this. So what you're saying is it's not that court expansion itself will lock the Republicans out of power. It's that what you believe will be entailed, what is inevitable as a consequence.
It will be the damn break, because it is such a grave norm violation that...
I understand. You got to the punchline at the end, which is you think that it's the first pebble in an avalanche that will lead to institutional advantages, or the first rock, the first boulder in an avalanche that will lead to Democrats having institutional advantages. Are you and your party entitled to institutional advantages? Are me and my party obligated to suffer institutional disadvantages? I already laid out, and you don't dispute the fact that the current institutional advantages favor you all. The House will favor you all. The Senate will favor you all. The Electoral College will favor you all. Because it seems to me that this really is just about partisan outcome. You think that you all are entitled to advantages for the conservatives and the Republican Party in particular. And any attempt theoretically to redress that is unacceptable and will lock you all out of power. So again, I asked, are we obligated to suffer under institutional advantages permanently? Are you entitled to permanent institutional advantages?
I think we all share an obligation to uphold the system that was built for us, before us, that now we have an obligation to be stewards of, to bring forward. If there are advantages for one or another, unless they were achieved by ill-gotten
states were added before, courts were expanded before.
Listen, I appreciate this. This gets down to brass tacks. This is insane. We didn't start out as 50 fucking states, Gen Z. That was a process along the way. We didn't start at 9 Supreme Court justices. That was a process along the way.
And what happened when we wanted to add states? But like the Missouri Compromise, where you're gonna we'll add a free state and we'll add a slave state, so that way we can keep the freaking union together.
But that was a slave. So that was the dispute on slavery, and where the problem was slavery. It wasn't that we were adding states, right? Then we had Hawaii and Alaska, and then we didn't have bleeding Alaska. Well, some shit happened in Hawaii, all right? Let's not try to. But in general, it wasn't like a civil. But you know what I'm talking about. We didn't have that kind of civilizational question for those.
You guys understand what I'm talking about. When these fundamental institutional shifts have occurred, they have occurred under, ideally, bipartisan approval, like let's add a free state, let's add a slave state. So that way we can actually keep this union together and try to be a country together. What you guys are not.
That was a failed compromise.
Okay. Just real quick.
But the thing is if it was done in this compromise, you might have the option of adding your 4 justices if you keep winning.
No. But we want to rectify the injury that was done, right? So like, if through the I'll let you know, if Democrats win for the next 20 years the presidency, and we get to like undo 4 through the normal course, but not through the measures that Mitch McConnell took, or something equivalent or less to that, then we're not getting what we quote unquote should have gotten if the norm wasn't initially violated by Mitch McConnell.
Let me ask you a question, Josiah. Though,
sure.
And this is, you may not like me.
Wick, already you're on the fence, Wick.
Let's just say this. I have heard you argue before. You can correct me if I misheard. Maybe I misinterpreted. That the reason we need to pack the court and to end the filibuster is because of these institutional disadvantages that make it harder for Democrats, even when they do win power, to govern. So can you not see that there might be a concern on the other side that when Gen Z says this will hurt us,
that's no. I appreciate that. I appreciate that question, but that's the thing. Believe it or not, I actually have sympathy for the partisan conservative. What I don't have sympathy for are people who pretend to be universally principled. Gen Z and Desert, in my opinion, are not motivated on principle. They are motivated on outcome and entitlement. The current institution favors the Republican Party, and they want to keep it that way, which is in part, and I can't even remember if Desert weighed in on this. I know Gen Z reluctantly conceded that it was wrong for the morally inferior piece of shit Republican Party to pack Utah, Georgia, and Arizona, and that the Democrats are superior for not doing likewise. But wait a minute. But my point is, if he were to just say, look, Josiah, I believe a conservative court, I believe they have a better jurisprudence, I believe it's better outcome, I believe it's better for the country, and I really don't want to fuck with that, even though you all have the legal right to do so. That's fine. That's fine. But that's the difference. Of course I'm sympathetic.
Like when you asked him the question, and I'm surprised he couldn't answer it, right? But when you asked him the question, like, how will this prevent Republicans from either winning elections or governing? You can see how this court prevents Democrats, in your opinion, from governing. And you've made these arguments that even if we get the Senate, even if we get the House, that you believe that the MAGA court currently will just shut down.
But we're not hysterical, Wick. Wait. But we're not.
I've heard Josiah argue.
No. We're not hysterical though, and say like democracy's over. We have our aim to win the election, notwithstanding all the bullshit. And so, I mean,
I know that's what you think.
No.
I agree that's what you think. I'm asking what Josiah thinks.
Do I think that democracy survives under this conservative court? I think we are a backsliding democracy, but I don't think we're like full-blown, that we have totally abandoned hypocrisy. We are a backsliding democracy under the current paradigm.
And it's mostly the presidency, again, which is more dangerous than the courts. And like right now, the presidency is the most dangerous thing that's happening.
And that's the relationship there, right? So what was my big radicalizing moment? What drove me further into court packing? The Trump immunity decision, because of what it does, the effect it has on the executive and making the president effectively above the law. It wasn't the Dobbs decision, right? As bad as the Dobbs decision was, and as much as it fucked with everybody or with women in this country, like that sucks. But to me, the real turning point was a combination of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the back-to-back decisions with that, and Trump v. United States. So again, I take your question, but that's why I'm unabashed that part of my motivation, of course, is because that this is the best way or the most linear way to correct the systemic imbalances. For example, somebody, Gen Z said earlier, he mentioned it as an aside about presidential immunity. Well, there are only two ways to overturn presidential immunity: constitutional amendment, which is virtually impossible, or getting a different Supreme Court to revisit the terms of Trump v. United States and striking it down, right? So that's a motivation for me to pack the court, of course.
Okay. So on that point then, so Josiah, so you're saying right now that your breaking point, what led you to believe in court packing was Trump immunity and what you said, the Anderson case, the insurrection case?
It further radicalized me into court packing. I can't remember if I ever supported or opposed it before, because I want to say that when Mitch McConnell did what he did, I mean, I wasn't a content creator at the time. It was 2016.
Right, fine.
I just want to be clear. I've been in favor of it since then, I've been open about that since then.
Well, yeah. So hang on, let me finish. So when Mitch McConnell did what he did in 2016, I felt that was on the table. As far as making it like a major part of my political advocacy, yes, the thing that finally flipped me over into, I'm going to talk about this every other goddamn video, is the Anderson and Trump decisions. But I felt that it was always on the table.
I can't confirm this. When Josiah and I would argue years ago, it was about the filibuster. We didn't really argue court packing. Court packing didn't come up. It wasn't really a subject that we had strong feelings on, or at least I didn't see any strong feelings from him. But the filibuster was what we would argue about all the time. So I take him at his word when he says that was his kind of radicalizing moment. But
I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to dispute that. My next question would be, if you're so passionate about these, look, I didn't come tonight to dive into those, and I don't plan on doing it. We're doing the broader picture court packing. Are you going to defend that on the record against anybody publicly?
Of what?
The immunity decision, Anderson, the insurrection decision. You're saying these are like your main motivating factors, but there's plenty of people out there that want to talk to you about it, and you seem unwilling to. So what's going on?
Hold on, be clear. Don't be coy. Say what you mean, Gen Z.
Yeah. Say what you mean, buddy.
There are plenty of people that have challenged Josiah to debate on these types of topics, and he consistently runs away from it or says,
Gen Z, I'm here right now kicking your ass in front of God and country. I feel bad for your firm if this VOD gets out. So that's not the issue. We're having this conversation, and you've been desperately seeking my attention for about 9 months. Well, you got it, big boy.
I can show. We can go through the tweet logs. I've tweeted at you about 5 times, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, you have these strong decisions. Well, the reason I even found out you existed, I was on a Wix show, and you super chatted like $50 to have a question directed solely at me as a gotcha question.
He's passionate.
You super chatted. You super chatted another question. So you've got this rule about not debating law. Well, you got this rule about not debating law with lawyers, but then. I'm
debating you right now, Gen Z, on matters that pertain to law. Now, again, this is the problem. Because you have specialized training, you're hoping to try to put me in a corner to debate the law. You wouldn't debate medical science with a fucking physician. We both know it. Why would I debate the technicalities of the law with a lawyer? Now, I'm happy to have that debate with a lawyer present.
Right.
Just like here.
You've got to have
Wait a minute. Yes. It's in fact quite stupid, you layman, to refuse to debate the lawyer on a matter of law. Gen Z, do you have opinions on medical science at all?
Not really, no.
You have no? We all know that he does, right? And we all know that he's too much of a pussy. He's too much of a... Yeah.
I don't really have a strong...
You have no strong opinions?
Position.
See, the reason that he's not answering is because he knows he just got blown the fuck out again by a layman. You would never debate medical science with a physician.
I'm not going to pontificate on the intricacies of a trans minor surgical procedure. I'm not going to debate on that. I can debate the.
So should everybody who's willing to discuss? So wait a minute. Is anybody who has an opinion on trans people in sports better be prepared to debate it with a physician? Is that your position, Gen Z?
You want to talk about the surgery itself? No, of course not. But you're talking about these.
Then shut the fuck up, buddy. I'm talking about the
analysis.
political implications for this. And we're having the conversation right now. And we have 2 lawyers on the team, and you're still getting fucked up.
You're saying the decisions are wrong, and these are what radicalized you, but you won't go on record to actually defend it without your shield. That's what the people are taking away from this.
I defend my decisions and my opinions about Trump immunity all the time. If you want, you can go back through and look at all the videos I've done discussing this. And if you disagree, feel free. But I defend my point of view all the time. And it's really weird that you think it's preposterous that I, a layman, would not have a debate on the law with a lawyer. I know you're desperate to dunk on me. It's not happening here. It's not going to happen anywhere else. Move on.
You have these strong opinions, but won't actually stick your neck out.
You have strong opinions about packing the court, and you're a fucking lawyer, and you're losing this debate.
Well, you could say that all you want. The people are gonna make up their.
Everybody in the world is going to say this. It's so funny. You guys are going to lock us out of power. Prove it. Okay. Well, I can't. Okay.
Sure. What would happen if Republicans added the same amount?
Condemn the court packing of Republican states. Well,
what would happen?
No, that's different. Okay, actually,
Congress
Josiah, I guess you got me. Every concession that's been collected in this conversation has been me collecting them from you.
Packed the court?
The Gen Z alphabet is 26 W's.
What would happen right now if the Congress packed the court?
They would pack the court. I don't know what you...
What do you mean?
Pisco.
Wait, so I'm not allowed to fucking talk on the debate?
I'm asking Josiah this direct question.
Wait, could you clarify the question again?
What would happen right now if Congress packed the Supreme Court?
The Republicans.
Yeah, the Republicans.
It would expand by 4, and Trump would get 4 more nominees.
And you don't think that liberals would be more injured?
Yeah, they would be, and they would be justified in responding, right?
Sure, it would make it less likely that there be decisions that go against Trump. But the extent of the injury is different. Right now, there's already a conservative supermajority, so I think
it's diminishing returns,
injury, but not
right? There's diminishing returns here, and I think so. What you just proposed, right? What if the Republicans did it right now? We would be justified to do it in response, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
but what I'm saying now is that you wouldn't have the opportunity because that would lock Democrats out of power.
No. How?
Hold on, Druid. Same question. Explain the mechanisms.
Yeah. How does it lock us out of power?
So, unless you're able to win in the actual votes, what it allows someone to do once they own SCOTUS, basically with complete, total. I mean,
you already control SCOTUS
in alignment. In alignment with the president, totally, without any question. So if you have Mike Lindell, Joe Rogan, etc., like a really crazy Supreme Court.
We're not proposing that. We're not proposing.
No. He's saying, hold on, stop. Druid is saying,
I can't talk.
If that happened, then it would lock Democrats out of power. And I'm curious to him to.
What he's getting at is we would put such absurd figures as Joe Rogan and Mike Lindell that the effect would be that they would just literally be a rubber stamp. But of course,
the only difference is they'd have the veneer of a law degree.
No. But we're not proposing. We're not proposing to have people who aren't honorable judges. Okay, I want honorable judges like more Kagans, more Sotomayors, people like that. People who sometimes occasionally.
Let's get Ted Cruz and Ron DeSantis and some of the same.
Yeah, and if you did that, and if you did that, do you think that Democrats would be locked out of power? Yes or no?
I do. Yeah.
So what you're admitting are people. Wait a second! Don't try to save it.
Do you know what power I'm talking about? Do you know what power I'm talking about? Do you know what power I'm talking about?
Let Pisco go.
Look at what he just admitted, right? Is that people within the MAGA general political inclination would do rulings that are so profoundly anti-democratic so as to have the effect of ending democracy for Democrats in this country. And you claim any kind of moral high ground? Go fuck yourself, dude. You just gave the whole game away.
Because you're doing I am explaining to you how this would look on our side, and the reason why we're not doing it is because we're actually principled.
But I'm not.
If we weren't principled, we would be doing this tomorrow.
You're principled. So your opposition to court packing is because you have a principled opposition to court packing.
Yes.
So again, because I didn't hear you the first time, I heard Gen Z. Maybe you said it, and if you said it, I apologize. Did you and do you condemn court packing by Republicans in Utah, Arizona, and Georgia?
Yes, and Josiah, can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Yes, sir.
What is
Go
the
ahead.
difference between SCOTUS and the Supreme Court of a state?
They have different
Well, they're
jurisdictions.
both courts of last resorts, but the jurisdiction is bigger.
In which one?
They're
Supreme Court of the
different, right?
United
Like the Supreme Court doesn't
That
have the
isn't correct,
final.
though, actually.
The Supreme Court doesn't have the.
One second. Because a Supreme Court has general jurisdiction, and the Supreme Court has specific jurisdiction. When it comes to the cases that they produce, yes, SCOTUS does inform lower courts. So that's what the distinction is.
No, but the domains are different too. The Court of Last Resort of Georgia, like the Supreme Court, doesn't get a say as to the meaning of Georgia law, right? So, like, yeah, I guess because there's a supremacy clause and they're weighing on issues of more national importance, it affects more people. And so I would say, obviously, the Supreme Court's more relevant. All the reason why what Mitch McConnell did was so horrible. But the principle of it is the same in that you're not seeing a
It doesn't connect to a state SCOTUS patent doesn't connect to the actual SCOTUS patent.
No, but if you're making the claim, right? If you're making the claim that we're going to see like disastrous end of civilization consequences, locking out of power, that kind of stuff, did that happen in Georgia? I mean, we have 2 Democratic senators from Georgia. Did that happen in Utah? Do we have no rule of law in Utah? Do we have
important cases
What
coming up to those that we can point out
him a
to?
little bit.
Well, and can you explain
Because I'm
what
not
the lack
talking
of
about
connection is?
electoral votes. I'm talking about actual power in
I get
the courts.
What he's
Right, but
saying
you-
is that the reason it didn't happen in Utah, Georgia, and the other state is because there was a higher court that might overrule them, and so that there was a foundation.
No, but
that
that's not
would
what's happening.
Exist if SCOTUS was,
But that's not what's happening
Whether or
because that's not what's occurring, right? What's happening there is they're more likely to side with Republicans for sure. They put their thumb on a scale, but in general, right? Like even the judiciary in these Republican states, no one on our side is claiming that Democrats are like just unable to win elections there. And the rule, like, we still have democracy in Georgia, in Utah, and in these different places. And we would still have it if the Supreme Court got counterpacked by Democrats. We're not going to, I don't want to propose Rachel Maddow to be a justice. Frankly, if I did, I think she'd be more honorable than like Ted Cruz. But
you guys should make me the next justice.
Well,
okay,
and
when you
here's
pack
the
court.
and here's the
take the
follow-up
California
too.
example.
Well, here's the follow-up here, because you said you do oppose court packing by Republicans in these states, but then you tried to create some sort of meaningful difference between a court of last resort at the state level versus the federal court of last resort. It doesn't create any sort of distinction that's worth supporting court packing in one and not the other. It's a violation of principle no matter what. You're either principally opposed to court packing or you are not. But the other thing is, I'm curious how far your condemnation goes, given that it was the Republican Party that packed those 3 states, given that analyses have shown that it's been Republicans who have done the majority of attempts to pack courts of last resort at the state level. Are you condemning the Republican Party and declaring your opposition to that party?
No, here's the main problem. You're painting with a broad...
Well, wait a minute. Let Desert answer. Let Desert answer. Let Desert answer, because I was asking him.
Direct question. Let Desert answer. Yeah.
It's a false
Yeah, but the question is ridiculous because in Utah there was no partisan court packing. It was just court packing. And guess what? Whether it's partisan or not.
Wait, of course it was partisan. What are you talking about?
What was the makeup of the Utah Supreme Court?
They made it more. They made
it more conservative,
yes,
because they were getting struck down in a series of rulings.
So it was an
even by this
internal party,
conservative
not
court.
partisan. It was an internal party.
No,
issue?
it's to achieve
Not
partisan ends, right? So the motivation is to achieve a particular partisan end and increase percentage of partisan end. That's what we mean by the partisan injury back and forth. Not that you're going to have perfect compliance all the time, or that you're going to dispositively.
Nobody said it shifted the balance of the court from liberal to conservative, although that is what happened in Georgia. Number one. Number two, continue, please, with what you were saying, because I want to hear the rest of it as to why you won't condemn the Republican Party or declare your opposition to the Republican Party the way that you're doing with the Democratic Party.
It's not my state. The state parties are different than the actual general Congress. Like, do you not know the difference between state party and actual?
So simply violating the principle of court packing is not enough to get you to declare your opposition to the party.
A state party violating it is not the same as the national
It's
party.
different. It's different. It's different.
It's different. Okay, so then that's fine. So then let me ask you this then, because I'm trying to test your principle here. If you lived in Utah, Georgia, or Arizona, would you oppose the Republican Party in those states for court packing?
I mean, that's a great question, actually, because I was registered as a libertarian from the start of my, emancipation in 2018 until 2022. And the
Were you a
reason why I
slave?
chose the Republican...
You were emancipated?
And he left his parents, I think he means.
You know,
You left
Oh,
your parents,
oh,
right?
my
to
bad.
become emancipated?
I'm stupid. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay,
It's okay.
I was about
We
to say he wasn't a slave. Well,
So-
anyway,
Hey,
carry on.
congratulations. Congratulations. That's the closest thing he's come to a concession this entire
My bad,
conversation.
my bad,
Pisco,
my bad,
so
my bad.
Congratulations.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's late. I understand.
Yeah.
So I came to the conclusion
hold on.
that... yeah, go ahead.
No,
let
Gen
him
Z,
answer
don't
the
just-
question.
no,
I want to hear this.
Gen
It's just a personal answer,
Okay.
is the
Well,
thing.
yeah,
is
Gen
that
Z
I'm in a
answers
super...
are relevant.
I'm in a supermajority state. I'm in a supermajority state. So the Democrat Party in my state, I don't think represents the congressional Democrat Party. I think they're
But y'all-
two different things, although there
realize
is
that-
influence there. So
Y'all realize
So,
that how
so you would
how-
oppose. So you would declare your opposition. You would not support. You would not
I
vote
might be
for
independent.
the Republican
I
Party.
might say, hey, these are people in my party who aren't part of my team because they're court packing, and we should go through the normal processes of either having the justices retire or patiently wait for them to, unfortunately, meet
I
mortal coil.
appreciate that, but I appreciate your reasons why. But again, I'm just trying to get an answer. If you were a voter in those states, you would not support the Republican Party for governor of Utah, governor of Georgia, governor of Arizona, or any sort of state race, right? Because the state parties, since apparently the federal Republican Party, the state Republican Party, there are meaningful differences. It's like two different parties, right? So within that polity, you would either vote third party, vote Democrat, or just not vote at all. You would certainly not lend any sort of material support for the Republican Party, right?
At least for the Republicans that were doing that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No,
I do-
wait. So I just want to be clear. So your only opposition to the Democratic Party here at the federal level would be to Ro Khanna. So any Democratic politician who has not endorsed packing the court, you have no beef with them.
Not on this issue, no.
Perfect. I
And that's why I
appreciate
came here, to argue against you guys trying to pack the court, not the rest of the
I
Democrat
appreciate
Party.
that.
But now Kamala Harris is saying it. So your view that it's a just obscure side issue is not really going to hold any water.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
What
Like
did Kamala Harris say?
he didn't say
What did
I
Kamala Harris
support
say?
13.
What did Kamala Harris say, Gen Z? What did he say? What did she say?
I didn't say she said she endorsed the 13. I said I just said that she's endorsing court packing generally.
Oh yeah, base. I mean,
Wait, what did she say? No, wait. No, Pisco. What did she say?
That court expansion should be considered, something like that.
So court expansion should be considered as her endorsing court expansion.
You're right. Slavery should be considered, but I'm not endorsing it. I just think it should be considered as a meaningful economic system.
I mean,
You see how
listen.
stupid that is?
No, I mean, actually, it makes quite sense coming from a Republican because you all wave the slave flags these days. Confederate flags are likely to be seen at a MAGA rally. So actually, no, it makes quite a bit of sense. But my point is you exaggerate the extent to which this idea has gripped the Democratic Party. I wish you were right. I wish that the Democratic Party was as enthusiastic as court packing as you believe it is. And I do agree with you that it is gaining traction.
And that's based.
This idea that it is the reflected consensus of the Democratic Party and its leaders
And
is just
confirm
horseshit.
it's not
Gavin
the
Newsom.
reflected consensus of the Democrats Party.
Oh yeah, of course.
Not
it's
even
the
on this
consensus.
panel. So
Well, wait
this
a
is
minute.
how-
Gavin Newsom's another example, right? So, in depending on the poll, he is the front runner for 2028, certainly in the top three. Brian Tyler Cohen asked him about this, and he was like, "No, I can't. I'm not ready to go there yet. I don't know. Maybe not, but I think that we need to try other things first."
So, how do you guys account for the Carville of it, who's saying, just don't say it, just have it be a plan, and just don't say it?
Yeah, I don't know why Ryan
How
and
do I-
Rob
how
think
do
that
I
this is
account-
that this is like a good point or whatever. Like, obviously,
That's a
Josiah.
democratic
Wait,
strategy.
can I respond? So, first of all, Carville's like an old whatever guy, and Josiah and I don't agree with Carville, right? Like, Josiah and I want more Democrats to openly support it. And so when you bring up James Carville, this is like a Rob Ryan talking point. It doesn't move the ball at all. We want Democrats to openly support court packing. That's why I just celebrated, and why Josiah celebrated when Kamala hints at it, when Brad Lander and Dan Goldman, who are fighting for the nomination in the I think 10th district in New York, that when they endorse it.
Right, Gen Z. Why would we-
Sorry,
why would we be pissed?
Josiah. Josiah has literally said and argued to the point of yelling with Hutch about using political capital to publicly campaign in favor of court expansion. And so whatever James Carville said, fuck James Carville. Who the fuck cares what he says?
Yeah, so Gen
Right.
Z, why wouldn't we be upset? Why are we celebrating prominent Democrats talking about this? Why aren't we opposed if you believe that this
Yeah.
nefarious plot, number one, reflects me and Pisco, and number two, reflects the consensus of the Democratic Party? Why didn't Kamala Harris and Ro Khanna get
Why
the
are they
James
hinting?
Carville
Yeah.
memo?
Yeah, why
What
are
is
they-
the relationship here?
Because the problem is not what's happening now. The problem is what are you going to do when you actually get the power? And if you walk back from it, if Kamala Harris walks back from it, says, actually, we're not going to do court packing, and then she gets elected, and then she proceeds with it anyway. Isn't that what Spanberger's doing in Virginia?
No, but
saying,
you-
we're not going to do this.
You didn't respond to what Josiah just said. What Josiah just said is, if all they're just trying to do is hide their power level, why are some Democrats
Aren't they
endorsing
hiding
it?
their power level,
Why aren't
and
they
why are
doing
we
it? Yeah.
celebrating them
Yeah.
not hiding their power level?
Well, the problem is when I'm bringing up examples of people who are saying these things, like Carville, you're saying, oh, well, who cares about what he's got to say? We don't care what he's got to say. That's the game that you guys like to play. And this goes back to the Charlie Kirk stuff. It's like you get these voices of people that are saying these horrendous things. You say, well, that's just one person. Who cares what they say? We can just do the same thing and say, well, that's what Nick Fuentes says. Who cares what Nick Fuentes
No,
says?
you're not understanding, right? Like, so it
would be
Josiah,
really bad if those random people were the president of the United States and the
That would
leader
be
of your
horrible.
fucking party.
That-
You
that-
lose that debate too. My God.
That'd be fucking
My
horrible.
God, it's amazing. You're like a homing missile for a losing argument. It's stunning.
So Josiah,
take court backing that. Yeah,
J-
and actually, no, please invest the political capital in a court backing campaign. I would love to see it, and I'd love to see it fall on its
we literally support that. And Josiah gave you the example of not Dave Packman, Brian Tyler Cohen pressuring Gavin Newsom, like the Democratic faithful, those who are like the most progressive, you might say, or at least the people who are the most activist. They're trying to push their Democratic or leaders and members as well. And so it's not making sense of this like grand Hyde conspiracy. The reason that you said that on this panel tonight is because Rob is like inherently conspiratorial and wants to think that there's some like colluded plan because his mind is like rotted from all these fake conspiracies that he believes in. And that's why he'll still continue to this day to talk about how Chuck Schumer said you'll find 5 ways from Sunday to whatever he says, getting back at you, the intelligence agencies. And that is like proof of this grand narrative. And Rob loves grand narratives. And that's why you said what you said, even though it makes no sense in light of Josiah and I's position and what we're pushing Democrats to do. And that Democrats are actively not hiding their power level. At least the base ones aren't.
Okay, so anytime
I'm going to put my earbuds in. I've got to use the restroom, but I'll be listening.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
I want to give Gen Z some uninterrupted time here to either respond or make his own arguments, and then I do want to get to super chats because I do know that a couple of you have a hard out at 11. I want to make sure we have time to get through as many super chats as we can.
Give Wick
Well, I
money,
think-
fund his Warhammer
Yeah.
addiction.
Yes, fund all my addictions, right? And then we will get to closings and all that. But if you can stay, there's a couple people who've expressed interest in calling.
Hell
in,
yeah.
But if you can't, I understand that too. So
thing.
go ahead.
Well, I think what I'll use this uninterrupted time, which I appreciate to do, is kind of try to pull back out a little bit and try to go big picture again. We came into this debate to debate two things, which was Pisco syllogism, which we spent maybe 15 minutes on, and the Ro Khanna plan, which we spent 0 minutes on. And we're currently 2 hours into it, and we keep getting derailed by trying to limit test our principles or test our internal consistency. And whenever we try to turn it back around, all we get is that's non-responsive, that's not relevant. I think people watching can see through and
Ask
put
your
on their common
questions.
sense.
Test my
No,
principles.
I'm just making my. I'm okay. We can get to that point.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to get to the Ro Khanna plan?
Yeah, do it.
Well, let me run through.
Ask me
let
all
run
the
through
questions.
syllogism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can hopefully finish out on the syllogism. I would ask you earlier. I said, what's the percentage chance you think that Republicans will repack the court if Democrats get power and they pack the court? What's the percentage?
I said like
of it coming back?
20%.
You said 20%. Okay. I actually find it remarkable. You think so highly of your Republican opposition that they're so restrained.
No, that's
not want to fight back.
That's not my position. I just view that it's plausible the Democrats, after this shit show of presidency, are going to be able to hold on to the White House for 8 years, and that will put to bed any attempt to do a counter pack and let the ink dry there, and people forget.
So, but then this begs the question about reprisal, because you're saying there's only 20% chance that there's going to be reprisal at the Supreme Court. What are we witnessing around the country right now with gerrymandering? With you guys cite the state Supreme Courts, and you're saying Virginia needs to pack its state Supreme Court in response to Georgia, Utah, and Arizona.
Yeah. So the response the response there is that there's more unified control of states where these kinds of procedures can like very plausibly and easily and like obviously result in tit for tat. In the context of the federal government, there's not the same level of unified control. We've had divided rule for like many of the last decades, and so it's not. I think to me, it's more plausible that you would see divided rule in the federal government than have tit for tat in different states.
That feeds to my point, though, about the risk of oscillation, because there is such there's a greater likelihood of divided rule and back and forth, the pendulum swinging at the federal level than there is at the state level. Then yes, as the power shifts back and forth, so does the opportunity to do things like court packing. Or you disagree?
No, I totally disagree. Yeah, so divided rule means no counterpack, right? So you need that's why, as we never got to, it's less virtuous to do what Mitch McConnell did, because you didn't need unified rule of the political branches to do the court pack. But if you have divided government, by definition, you're not going to be able to get a court pack through. So that's why, given that we had such a history of divided government, I think that the chance of oscillation like you're talking about are relatively low.
So this is a question for both of you then. Why is the proposal here to just guaranteed add more seats, as opposed to imposing the McConnell rule? And you can do it both ways. You can say, oh, if it's advantageous to us in an election year, we'll hold the seat open until, actually it's not.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. That's in premise. Do you want me to respond to that?
Real quick. Yeah, real quick, when we finish. And so you got the election year where you can hold it open to your advantage, or the election year where you can push it through to your advantage. Why is that not what you're saying that Democrats should do? Why is the plan here, let's actually expand the court by 2, 3, 4, who knows how many seats? Why can't we why is the tit for tat not that? Why is the tit for tat going further?
So premise 3 is a premise regarding effectiveness, right? So any kind of proposal needs to be actually able to reverse the injury, right? And to the extent that the conditions to do what Mitch McConnell did in response obtain, I would say yes, do that, and perhaps even that's preferable to do. I actually don't think it's preferable, because I think it's worse. So I actually do think it's an escalation to do those kind of tactics as compared to what is done with legislative court packing. But the answer is I would be in favor of that if it obtained. But if the conditions for that don't obtain, I don't think that we're precluded from doing the lesser thing. Remember, I think that the lesser thing is legislative court packing, and you never had a good response as to why that's not the lesser thing.
No, I gave you the response. You just didn't like it.
No. What was it again? Remind me of it.
The separation of powers, and just because and the independent judiciary, and just because you do something legislatively doesn't make it a better thing.
No. Sorry. Don't say that again, right? Like, I never said just because. So if you say this, I know you're bad faith. I never said if you pass it through Congress, it's not a bad thing. Why do you keep saying that?
Because the argument you're making an argument for doing something that is increased in its power and its relevance, which is adding 2 to 4 seats to the Supreme Court as a response to the McConnell rule, which was, we'll take a gamble on this, we'll hold the seat open, hope we win the election. Well, gosh, it might blow up in our face, we might lose a seat, which would be terrible for us. But we're going to take that gamble anyway, and we're going to do it.
No. Stop with this. So you've now identified for the first time. You've now identified for the first time one possible distinguisher, which is like chance of failure, right? Well, the situation with Mitch McConnell had a chance of failure, right? That's true on both sides too. The court packing has to get a legislative consensus and a presidency, willing to sign off on that. That's also a risky proposal. I'm sorry.
Moreover, this is absurd. Okay, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, you're talking about McConnell's decision to take the gamble and hold it open. You're saying that is the same as
it's riskless. It really is riskless. I'm just saying, to the extent that there's risk, it's on both ends. But what does Mitch McConnell lose by doing what he did?
Well, okay,
literally nothing.
No. Wait. What did he lose? Make an answer. What did he lose? Yeah. What could he have lost?
What could he have lost is a new president comes in and nominates someone even further left than Merrick Garland.
No, but they were going to do. They were going to.
Wait a minute. Repeat that one more time, please.
Sure, happy to. The risk that Mitch McConnell was facing by holding it open, he was taking a gamble on the election and having the risk that Hillary Clinton might be the one to make the next Supreme Court nominee.
Radical
I feel like I know
Hillary
what y'all
Clinton.
are going to say. So
What am I going to say? What am I going to say, Gen Z?
That there was supposed to be some lame duck fuckery going on, that they were going to push through Garland last
That
second.
was happening, yes.
Number one, that was a possibility. Number two,
Obama withdraws him or no?
No. Okay.
Is it hypothetical? You don't
So
think Obama would have withdrawn him?
you're saying the risk was that Hillary Clinton wins the election, and instead of dealing with an Obama appointee, he has to deal with a Clinton appointee. Even if I grant you the premise, which I don't, that a Clinton appointee would be more left than an
More
Obama
communist.
appointee, how
Clinton's a centrist. He
would
was
that
usually
person-
Republican.
How would that person make it through the Republican Senate?
I mean, they would have had to have a hearing on it, and yeah, it could have been
Says
shot
who?
down.
Says who?
Wait a minute. Says
Okay,
said number
here.
one. Number
Let me do
one
this.
says
Actually,
who?
I want to
Wait a minute. Hang on. I'm sorry. Number one says
two.
who.
And then I'm going to bet. Say what you say.
Number one says who, and number two, I'm going to ask you again, if a Republican Senate would cockblock whoever Hillary Clinton nominated, which, by the way, I'm glad you said that because multiple Republican senators, including the late, great John McCain, or God rest his soul, said that if Hillary Clinton wins the election, we're going to do everything in our power to keep that seat open for her term. So even if she nominated a left-wing radical, how would they make it through the Senate? And if they didn't make it through the Senate, which they wouldn't, either because there would be no hearing because McConnell would prevent it, or because they would vote it down, what did Mitch McConnell risk?
So your hypothetical here assumes that the Republicans were going to hold the seat open for 4 years to their political advantage.
Like they said
And
they
I
were
No, it
gonna do.
doesn't. No, it doesn't. That is
fundamentally
one.
reject that.
No. That was one path in the hypothetical. That the Republicans, I mean, Jesus, if they were willing to hold the seat open in 2016 off a bullshit idea and then violated that rule, by the way, in 2020, they broke their own goddamn rule. But set that aside. That's one path. The other path is they do, fine, you can have a fucking hearing,
Yeah,
but
just real
because
quick.
this nominee is far left, we're voting her down or him down. So what is it that Mitch McConnell tangibly risked?
Before you answer that, in about 3 minutes, I'm going to start reading super chats. So fair enough.
What is it that Mitch McConnell tangibly risked?
What you keep assuming in your hypothetical world here is that Republicans are the partisan actors that are just going to vote against a nominee just because of who they are, as if the Democrats don't do the exact same thing. And look, you can look
So
at the
what you're
voting record if
telling
you
me
want.
is, so I see, no, wait, no, because we only have 3 minutes, so I want to summarize here. So what you're telling me is, okay, here's the risk, Josiah. Hillary Clinton wins the election.
Why are we assuming the R's remain in the Senate, though?
She appoints the left-wing.
Yeah,
Were they
that's true. You risk
were
losing the Senate.
Republicans favored to keep or hold or to lose the Senate in 2016?
I'd
Under
have to
your
look back.
mentality, the Senate's always guaranteed to be Republican.
The map was
No,
fucked.
I didn't say number one.
The
No,
map was
number
fucked.
one. No, I didn't say that. Number two, they have an advantage. And number three, even if that were true, you're saying the Democrats would have flipped it. How do we know that Republicans would have retained control of the Senate? They did.
No,
So
no,
was
that's
the
not what we're
point,
saying.
is
That's
that-
ridiculous. We're saying there's a possibility because we don't know because it's an election and a third of the Senate was up to be for election.
Okay, all right.
It
So
could have
let's
gone either way.
I mean, let's even
So
grade
then
that.
in a
Let's-
series of if then else's where Republicans who were unlikely to lose the Senate, which is why they didn't, by the way, they kept their Senate majority in 2016. If Hillary Clinton wins the election and if Senate Republicans lose the Senate and Democrats take control, then what would have happened?
Well, before we get to that, so now you're admitting there
What
was
would have
a risk.
happened?
No. We're saying so. If there was no lame duck fuckery, which they were planning lame duck fuckery, and Obama would have wanted his pick. If they won, if Hillary won, and if Democrats won the Senate, then you would have had the communist Hillary Clinton do what exactly?
I'm asking the same question again. Was there risk?
No, not
There was literally
no, no,
wait a minute.
Oh,
In all the timelines in the multiverse. So you're telling me that what Mitch McConnell did couldn't be bad because there was literally some risk involved? I mean, we can go down this road if you want. If you want to defend the virtue of what McConnell did, because there's literally in the multiverse some sort of risk, then I guess there's nothing Democrats couldn't do because there's
The
a
worst
risk
case
that may not
scenario.
happen.
Wait. So the
wait.
The
No,
worst
I
case.
said
No,
there was
let me
no
just say it. Let me just say
You
it.
said there was no
the
risk.
the
Let's
worst.
go ask, then we're going to get the
So-
super chat.
No, wait a
So-
minute.
so the-
Wait. When did I say? When did I say?
Stop.
When did I say there was no risk? I asked you to tell me what the risk was. and you're over here about to shit your pants and sweat yourself down 5 more pounds because you know you're fucked.
Let him answer.
There was no meaningful risk.
Let him
that you can identify.
Let him respond. Just say it. Let him respond, and then we got to go to super chats because I got to make my money, baby. Okay.
So now you are saying there is no risk because we can't identify.
I didn't say it. I said, wait, did you hear what I said? I said no meaningful risk to McConnell's plan.
Risk. Okay,
yeah, that's actually substantively different from literally no risk. There's a risk of you right now, the roof collapsing on your head.
Yeah, why are you there? It's risky.
What a dumb fucking scrambling defense.
It would be honestly.
You got caught out, and then you had.
I got caught out. What risk is there, Gen Z, of McConnell's plan?
Trump doesn't get his appointments because there's a step Democrat.
There will be portions in the time in the super chats where you can make your points. Okay, please, and you can do your.
I'm a master Gen Z impressionist.
$5 from Stormwolf. Druid, why did McConnell not hold his rule for Trump in 2020?
What's the rule? Let's make sure that we're on the same page for it.
The reason that they, at least one of the reasons that they said they were going to not let Merrick Garland have a hearing is because they thought that they should allow a presidential election to take place so that the people can decide and have a more democratic voice in who got appointed. They did not do this for Amy Coney Barrett.
The rule, that's not the rule. The rule is that if you have the votes, you can get the power that you want.
Advice and consent.
I mean, this is crazy, right? So, like, they really do just see lawmaking as a category of its own of badness, and they don't even really see any norm violation of what Mitch McConnell did. They in response.
The votes.
Let me finish. So there's no norm violation if you have the votes.
And let me be specific.
Wait. Can you answer that question?
For a norm. You do realize that they have the votes for an appointment, not for a new law that changes the country, right?
Yeah. So I understand that you think that legislation is less virtuous than rule fuckery. But the response I got from Gen Z attorney when I asked him, well, why is that? He said, separation of powers, I guess. Totally unresponsive. The separation of powers confirms my point. The fact that the norm violation in the context of legislation needs to go through two branches of Congress and two houses of Congress and another branch, the executive branch, and then be approved overall by the judiciary if there's any kind of challenge. Again, there are more layers here. There needs to be more consensus to do a norm violation. And
you realize
so I'm going to ask again, what is the distinction?
You have to prove why that's good, though. You're just saying the process. You have to actually prove why this is a good
Yeah, so I'll explain to you.
You do realize that FDR's proposal to do exactly this was the only second thing darkest stand on his presidency, barring his internment of Asian American citizens.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So
the last that's a good point. The last meaningful attempt at court packing was met with such derision in all of the legal community that it's laughed at. And now here we are.
Yeah. So
unironically.
I think that's a great. I'm sorry, Pisco. I think that's a great point. Just as an aside, it's extremely important when we refer to previous reactions to certain things. Again, by that light, you should condemn Trump and the Republican Party for all sorts of things that they're doing now that previously would be condemned by previous versions of the Republican Party and the American electorate writ large. So again, I guess I can't wait for you to change your party affiliation to a Democrat and agree to vote for Democrats exclusively.
We got to get
I'm sorry, Pisco. Go ahead, buddy.
So wait. Go through your fucking super chat. Go.
Then we got to get next. $5. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say,
Go ahead.
It's not convincing at all, and I'm not bound by previous reactions and circumstances that are totally different. My argument that I presented to you was a self-defense argument that was contingent on an initial partisan injury through a norm violation in a court pack. Obviously, the case of FDR doesn't fill that category, and therefore it's not applicable. And so you doing that and you pointing to FDR is a fucking red herring, just as it is your response that,
Can you have a partisan injury from your own party?
Okay, these are $5 super chats, not $50 super chats. We can give them $5 answers, not $50 answers.
Capitalist, that's it. Like, you just have no fucking interest in the substance of the questions, all about money for you. You fucking whore.
In the super chat portion, yes. $5 from X-Wing Alliance. Wick, I won't ever forgive you for having this empty-headed dunce Pisco on your channel. Dear Christ, him and Soy Pill are in a race for biggest moron. Well, first of all, one.
That was me. I
the only
posted
people,
that.
Yeah, the only people who decide who's on my channel is me. No one else gets to make that call. And I guess your condemnation is a burden I will just have to bear.
Yeah, and I think the frustration is that the frustration is nobody here tonight has lowered the credence of any one of the premises in the argument, and the argument is logically valid. I mean, I don't know what to say. If you're frustrated that no one can undermine the credence of one of the premises or show that it's false, that's your own problem. You're mad that the argument goes through.
Okay.
$5. I can point it out right here. I can read it word for word. P5.
Yeah.
There's no reason to expect a severe consequence cascade.
That's true.
By your own admissions, there's at least a 20% chance that Republicans would pack the court back in revenge for Democrats back in the court, which in turn would lead to the escalatory spiral that you yourself is saying there's no reason to expect to happen.
So right there, a consequence assumes something negative relative to a status quo, right? So like if it's not a consequence if I think it's preferable to the current status quo. And so to the extent that you're seeing a reciprocal court pact by Republicans, I view an oscillating court, even if that were to occur, which again, I don't really think that it's very likely given how much divided government we've had. But if it were the case that occurred, then that was still preferable that it's oscillating than it's 100% in Republicans' hands.
Gotcha. $5, just real quick. $5 from Mortis Tyrannus. I would like to hear both sides. Pisco reminds me of Vegan Gains, where he can't function without staying on a dialogue tree.
That's not true. So first of all, this has been very go with the flow. And I think that the argument, what it does, it gives a lot of opportunities for people to bring in like new and novel ways to deal with the premises. And so, for example, you can bring up the Bork example to think that there's like an absurd result to either the definition or the usage here. You think something is trivial, but there are many responses to the Bork the Bork historical example. And yeah, I mean, I provided some of them, including that there was no norm violation. They haven't identified one. There was no partisan injury there, right? Democrats passed through an original justice with Clarence Thomas. They got through Anthony Kennedy. The Republicans got who they wanted after Bork. And some Republicans, by the way, voted against Bork. And so all of this is to say is you can be flexible and creative in how you approach the premises, and nothing about my approach limits you there.
$5 from Old Scotty. This corrupt Supreme Court just ruled Alabama could use their new gerrymandered map before the midterms that was previously stopped by the courts. Thank you for the $5. $2 from
Sorry,
$2
I just want to highlight that. Pisco, you just said that we should be thinking, or maybe not thinking, but Democrats were the ones that passed Clarence Thomas through the Senate. And therefore there was no norm violation. Was that your point there?
No. The point is there was a previous contention that Bork didn't get through, therefore we could never have gotten like an originalist through, which is just not true. The Clarence Thomas got through.
Ryan was fucking stupid about that.
Yeah,
By the way, the Supreme Court at the time of Robert Bork's nomination wasn't anywhere fucking close to being an originalist court. You had like one or two originalists on the bench at the time. It was not the hanging balance from a part of an originalist minority versus an originalist majority. He's objectively fucking wrong about that.
And this
really
whole
stupid.
Originalism fascination, or I don't know, fetish, is more recent in the academy. But even putting that aside, if you really wanted to have an originalist, you could have gotten one. The proof is they got Clarence Thomas in the end. Notwithstanding the fact that it was a contentious hearing. So the reason why I bring up the fact that Democrats voted for Clarence Thomas is to suggest that what happened with Anthony Kennedy, that was a nominee they wanted in response. And there isn't a robust history of like not looking at what what you're likely to rule as a norm or voting someone down. Nixon had two attempts to put someone in, and both of those people got shot down because of, among other things, partisan reasons, what they're likely to rule on, their past with civil rights. And that was before when Lyndon B. Johnson had a nominee struck down for Chief Justice for reasons related to his character. And for Bork, you have the Saturday Night Massacre. So there's no norm violation, right? Like, you're just fucking stupid if you think Bork was a norm violation.
$2 from Nick Costanza. Can Gen Z answer Josiah's questions without pivoting?
I'm sorry, that's just hilarious because the entire time y'all too, and granted, Pisco, I know you more, I like you. Josiah, not as much, no offense. No, just kidding. medium offense. How about that? But this whole time you've been
take
trying to turn this back on us in an inquisition of us and our internal consistency and our principles, when what we came here to debate was y'all's plan, which again, checking the time again, 2 hours and 20 minutes in, we still have not even talked about the Ro-Khanna plan, which is the second prompt for us.
So I've given you arguments in advance, and your job, right? So when I give an argument, right, and I've given you both an argument for the first proposition and the second one, is to do something to undermine one of the premises, assuming it's a logically valid argument. It's your job now to attack one of the premises, and I think that I've at least gotten you to agree to P1. I think that we've had a decent exchange on P2. If you want me to get into the 4 versus 2, I can do that now if you'd like to.
Well, hold
Pisco,
on.
talking to us is a severe consequence cascade, so you lose on that already.
Nice meme.
Well, no, hold up.
Okay, this was a $2 question. $5 from Old Scotty.
I have to respond to Pisco on that, and then please get to Super Chat. The 2 questions ago, and then I got cut off. I was going to say this, but I got cut off by another question. You said the oscillation was not likely, but it is preferable to the status quo. That in itself is the concession there. You're saying it's not likely, but your premise here is not that it's not likely. Your premise is there's no reason to expect it.
Yeah, no. So
do you support the premise? Do you want to revise the premise?
Yes. So do you understand a consequence, right, is relative to some sort of like set of options, right? So the injury, a consequence, right? This oscillation between, some of the time having a Democratic core, some of the time having a Republican core, that's going to be viewed relative to some sort of a menu of options that are available. And if what's available with oscillation is on every score better than having no oscillation but maintaining the current core, in what sense could it be seen as a consequence?
Yeah, remember, severe is relative, right? And so the way I described it in a separate conversation that we had with somebody was, it's like going from being kicked in the balls every day to being kicked in the balls every other day. The latter is preferable to the former, so by definition, it's not a severe consequence if it's less in terms of its severity.
Okay.
If it helps,
maybe in the future I need to do these where I read the ones that are more expensive first, because you guys are giving
they're just great questions, and you're fucking cheap.
Questions.
You're so cheap. They're great questions.
I know I am cheap. I'm cheap and I'm easy as well. $5 from Old Scotty. Question for the conservatives. Are Puerto Ricans American citizens? Why don't you want them to have equal rights?
Yeah, they got me. That's just exactly what I believe. No equal rights for Puerto Ricans. 2028, make it a platform.
Yeah, but so I don't know if you agree with this whole notion of the rock that breaks the dam. Part of this is the notion that we're going to fuck around with the Senate. But really, all I'm offering and what Democrats I've heard is statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. And you're over here invoking well, what if we break up and gerrymander states themselves and break them apart to make them all? No one is suggesting that. I don't support that. I support giving statehood to millions of people who are American citizens and who deserve a say in how the federal government operates.
Haven't they had the opportunity, but they keep voting no on it?
No, that's not true.
No, I think the last referendum it got majority support.
It got majority last time.
You have to double check on that.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not contentious in Puerto Rico, but the last time it won, and also by the way, presuming that there was a consensus in Puerto Rico, or at least a majority there, our Congress still isn't open to that, and they wouldn't do it because Republicans don't care about them having their rights or their natural law. What they care about is partisan outcomes. That's why they're not.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe our interlocutors will agree or disagree. I'm curious. So, do you all support statehood for Puerto Rico?
If there's statehood for Alberta,
why is it conditional?
Why?
It doesn't really sound like you believe in rights.
Because that.
Wait a minute. Is Albert? Maybe I'm fucking out. Listen, I was educated in
I'm
Kentucky.
getting
It's
ahead,
possible
right?
that I missed
They
this.
have a vote that's coming up for a referendum, so I'm getting ahead.
Yeah, but they're
Referendum
part
on what?
of another country.
They're part of Canada.
Yeah, that's
different.
yeah,
That's
'cause
different.
What if they secede from Canada? They could
No. But look at what they're saying. Look at what they're saying. What they're saying is we will only
Does
count.
Guam also need statehood too?
So we can talk about Guam if you want. Right now, I don't have enough information about Guam. I know about Puerto Rico, and I don't need to grant every territory, and I don't grant every territory should be a state of the United States to think that Puerto Rico should. Right? I don't have to say that every territory needs to be a state of the United States, but Puerto Rico, surely there's enough people there. There's enough people there, and I'm not going to tell you the exact. No, let me say this. Let me say it, please. So what you're suggesting is, you're going to deny Puerto Ricans their right to vote in federal government, their natural rights, let's say, until you get your own partisan benefit. That's why you chose Alberta. So it's
No, I'm saying
conditional
an
on
equal
Republicans.
benefit,
So,
right?
so yeah,
I'm not saying
so giving rights to
there's no partisan benefit because there's a
stop, please,
equal
please,
party.
please.
Wait
yeah.
a minute. Yeah. I'm sorry, Pisco. Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
So what you're suggesting is, right, you put even the rights of individuals to vote in federal government contingent for your own partisan benefit. So if that's the case, and that's how you view everything, we have no reason to trust you that this court packing resistance is anything other than your immediate natural response when it came to the Puerto Rico statehood, which is to worry about your partisan interests.
$10.
No, what?
$10.
Okay, he's literally trying to bring up the fact that it's a natural law and it's ridiculous.
$10. Okay. $10.
Representation's a natural right for conservatives, Pisco, you stupid fuck.
Representation's
Liberals,
a
on the other
natural
hand.
right for the people who pay me money right now, okay? And we're going to represent them by reading off their super chats and getting to their statements. So we're going to try to do it as much as we can because I know people have limited time. And I need to eat, gang, okay? I'm wasting away over here. $10 from Deadly Sin. Can the anti-Packers explain how the overturning of precedent, the violating of Purcell, and ignoring Section 3 aren't an attempt to lock Dems out of power or unfairly advantage Republicans?
We'd have to get into the individual case analyses, which I just don't think we have time for. Happy to set it up, happy to do it by all means. These are great, I think, great arguments to have, and I think the originalists and the conservatives are right on these arguments, but we just don't have time to get to them today.
I think ending racism is cashing in the promissory note rather than disadvantaging somebody.
Okay.
I just want to say to your super chatter, even though it was directed at the anti-Packers, remember Purcell only applies when it advantages Republicans. If it advantages the Democrats, well, then it doesn't apply, as recent Supreme Court
Yes,
rulings
they
have
applied
indicated.
Purcell to a New York situation, a state analog to the VRA, like months ago. And now they're not invoking Purcell for the
Texas.
most
Texas.
Yes.
They granted Purcell for a Texas map too. So it's too close to the election to have them vote on constitutional maps. We got to let this one slide.
$2 from Old Scotty. Gen Z, tell us again how you were okay with a coup.
Okay with a coup?
I think he was talking about January 6th from earlier.
How I'm okay with it?
How it wasn't like disqualifying, threat to democracy, greater than 1% chance of success. Your party leader was responsible. Democrats are morally superior, never attempted anything like that, and yet you support the Republican Party despite the threat to democracy. That's what he's talking about.
Right, gotcha. We'll just have to set it up for another time because
Sure.
we're just going to invite a response, we go back and forth, and then that's it.
$2 from Nick Costanza. We made up our minds. Josiah won. Gen Z got gaped. Thank you for the $2. $2 from Snookum. More debates, please, Josiah. Expose bad faith actors. Thank you for the $2. And
Himself.
I agree. Josiah should come on my show more often. That is true. $10 from Adam Defunded. I would appoint Wick and Dev as Supreme Court justices. A straightforward solution to court packing is to expand the bench to 12 to 13 justices and have the public vote on them rather than the president. Thank you for the $10. So first of all, yes, I would make an excellent Supreme Court justice. I would rule fairly, and whatever Google told me was the truth, I would believe it, and we would roll with it as we go. But yeah, thank you for the $10. Any comments on that before we move on to the last one? No? Cool. $10 from Laser0231. The real quote-unquote injury is Josiah and Mr. Potato Head got their feelings hurt by the Supreme Court's decision. Therefore, they had to reverse engineer a justification to pack the court.
Yeah, I mean it's not really an argument. You're not dealing with any of the contentions that we're laying out. Everyone on this panel agreed to the neutral self-defense principle, assuming it's in like the same kind of domain. And I don't think that anyone gave a convincing account for why legislative court packing is like all else equal worse than what Mitch McConnell did with rules fuckery. They didn't do that. They just like kind of just awkwardly stuttered and said something about separation of powers that was totally incomprehensible.
I will actually go back
Who
to
said
the
that
tool
super chat?
usage. Let me go back to the tool usage real quick, because you guys are saying that we should have a tool to switch the Supreme Court. But there's two others that I would actually think that this is the best advice that I could give to Dims, even through this conversation. I still think you guys deserve the S-tier advice, which is to not advocate for court packing, but you guys can advocate for impeachment all day long. That's a valid
Why?
reasonable response.
No, that
to
would be
this.
unconstitutional to impeach someone over bogus bullshit. I don't think everyone has made
Well, the
case.
thing is,
wait, let me
is that
respond
I
to that.
think-
Wait, let me respond to that.
Go
I
ahead.
don't think that anything that has shown of the conservative justices, at least for my lights, has been impeachable or a high crime or misdemeanor, and so that would be unconstitutional and not effective. It's also like way harder, and it would be way more resistance to do. I mean, why can't we rectify the injury through just adding a couple justices? That's really what it takes.
Okay, 5.
It's more
Maybe-
appropriate and it's easier.
And
to
the
do.
other one is that you can actually, if you have the Senate and the presidency, you can nominate justices without vacancies. That
Gotcha.
was actually from the court backing as an antidote that I thought you used, Pisco.
$5 from Rabid Wombat to say Alberta is not voting to separate. We're voting to vote to separate. If we did, we wouldn't leave Canada to join an even more broken and broke country.
I mean, you guys are pretty crazy in
right,
Alberta.
but at the end of the day, it's not about, again, statehood on its own principle. At the end of the day, they feel entitled to a system which advantages the Republicans. It's just that simple. If they felt that Puerto Rico would be a reliable conservative vote, they would probably feel differently. It's possible
100%.
they wouldn't because the system already advantages them.
Wait, let's just ask it.
But they would certainly
let's
be
ask
more
that.
sympathetic.
So I'll ask Desert. If it were the case that Puerto Rico was reliably red, given what you said about Alberta, that you conditioned Puerto Rico on Alberta, but now in this hypothetical, if it were red, would you be in favor of statehood for Puerto Rico? Assuming they wanted it, right? Puerto Rico.
Oh, then we would need British Columbia, right?
What are you talking about?
You would need something to offset it. You can't
no.
just have-
I'm asking, what do you mean offset it? Why should
Principle still remains if there is a clearly like if it's a purple state, then maybe we can just omit it. Like, I'll be honest with you, maybe if it's a purple state, we can just omit it. But if it's a clearly partisan,
So
if
if
it's
Puerto
clearly
Rico
that
was
there's an
50-50, if it was 50-50, you would be in support of the statehood. So, so you're saying that the rights of the citizens of Puerto Rico are contingent on their partisan.
it's not their
outlook.
right to be part of the union, Pisco.
No. But
Nobody has a right
are-
to be part of the union.
don't you believe?
Don't you believe
in inalienable
they don't
rights?
have a right to
Don't
be
you-
a state.
Don't
you know?
don't you believe in
Voting
inalienable
isn't
rights?
an inalienable right. Like, that's where we very fundamentally disagree and where I'm a principled conservative.
So wait a minute. I'm curious here. Inalienable. So what if we were to eliminate red states?
If you eliminate my vote in Congress and the federal, I still have my ability to vote in my, local areas.
So to be clear, you believe that a Democratic-controlled trifecta would have the right to eliminate red states because you're not entitled to representation in the United States Senate.
No
the
rights
House of
violation.
Representatives.
No rights violation. You just that's your logic.
So what you guys are proposing on this is very similar to what you guys are proposing for the court.
We're not
Technically,
proposing it. It's
is
a hypothetical.
Yeah. You're proposing a hypothetical. That's what.
Okay.
Yes, you're. Yes. So what this proposal is, why it is equivalent, is because and this is why it's very similar to me saying break up Texas and you kind of get the same result, is that yes, it's totally justified legally, but morally and principally, it's not.
So wait a minute. So it's morally acceptable to deny Puerto Rico
They aren't
representation in the Senate
like,
and the
you
House.
do realize they aren't a state
Yes, we
yet,
realize
right?
that. Yeah. So
What is the meaningful distinction from taking statehood away from a state and not granting statehood to a territory?
Yeah, if Puerto Rico
Because
wanted
is
to,
a-
if Puerto Rico voted on it, and by overwhelming majority they said, we want to become an official state, would you be okay with that?
Does Congress approve it?
wait, no. If you're going to vote in Congress, how would you
matter.
vote? How would you vote if you were a senator?
If I was a senator for a clearly partisan issue, I would not vote for that to go through.
Even though they wanted
So
to
if it's
become
just Alberta going in, or if it's just Greenland, that's MAGA going in, I would oppose that.
Gang,
If
it's 11 o'clock, and I know some of you guys got places to be, so we're going to go to closing statements, and then we'll open it up for Collins.
Hell yeah.
Rob Knorr had some questions for you, Josiah, and you told him
Lay
to
it
call
on
in.
me. Lay it on me.
And,
I'm going to listen while I pee
Yeah,
again.
and I don't know where he is, but if he wanted to come in and ask questions, he can. I would allow that. But let's go to closings first. We're going to start with Druid, and then we'll make our way around. Since Josiah's going pee, he'll go last. Druid, go ahead. Give us your closing
Yeah,
thoughts.
I will just close out with some of the initial preamble from court packing as an antidote from Cardozo law. Court packing is considered the nuclear weapon that I mean, I will amend it a little bit. It will unleash total chaos on the American constitutional system. Even in the face of a highly controversial appointment process in the U.S. Supreme Court during the 2020 presidential election, scholars caution against the wisdom and utility of resorting to court packing. Don't do it. Don't vote for it. Don't have it as an idea anymore, because it was bad when FDR proposed it, and it's bad now.
Where can people find you?
I mean, just on Twitter right now, Desert Eon, or the Desert Druid on YouTube.
Okay, check them out, gang. Thank you for spending your time here. We really appreciate you, sir. The Gen Z attorney, please go ahead.
Thank you, Wick. Thank you again for having me. Thank you again to everyone for being here. I think what we're seeing here is an attempt to sane wash what is, as Desert just said, a nuclear option. This is, and even though we can talk about, oh, it's only a 20% chance that Republicans would do it back, it's not likely. And even if it did happen, the oscillation, it's better. It's better than the status quo of permanent Republican power, which is what it is right now. And so I think we're seeing the attempt to sane wash what is an incredibly radical proposal. And yes, it is small, but by their own admissions, it is growing. And so we have to take it, like I said, with the utmost seriousness, because look, you may disagree, but I promise you, Republicans came out tomorrow and in favor, full-throated endorsement party-wide of abolishing the filibuster, packing the court, adding states that would be favorable to Republicans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We would not be getting, well, how can you actually prove that would lock Dems out of power? It would be rightful, ringing the alarm bells. So to focus specifically on some of the conversation tonight, the syllogism, I think, fails on actually two grounds. We got, again, the admission of the cascade of consequences. I think we're trying to dress it up with some, I won't say legalese, but like, well, how are we defining a consequence? And what is a consequence in relation to? I think everyone watching, ask yourself, just as a reasonable person, if the court is oscillating back and forth, pack here, pack there, pack here, we get to a 100-person Supreme Court, just ask yourself, do you think that would be a quote-unquote cascade of consequences? If you feel like the answer is yes, then just go with your feeling there. Also, never define the injurious court packing or distinguish what McConnell did as being different from any of the norm violations we saw the Democrats do. So I think the syllogism fails on that grounds. Beyond that, kind of closing thoughts, extreme proposal is the reason it hasn't happened in 150 years. There's a reason the last time it happened was FDR, and it was almost country breaking at that point. There's a reason that prominent left-wingers like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Stephen Breyer, people, I don't know, Supreme Court justices from the left have openly stated that, yeah, court packing, not a good idea. We like keeping it at 9. Beyond that, admissions that it was partisanship that's driving this, that we don't like specific decisions and we want to put justices that will give us decisions that we like. And in fact, some specific decisions that I think are completely defensible, like, I don't know, a state doesn't get to unilaterally decide who's on a federal ballot. That was 9-0 decision. You can make fun of that, but it was 9-0 for a reason. And you said that was a radicalizing move that pushed you into court packing. Beyond that, open disdain for American institutions just because they naturally might advantage Republicans, even with no evidence of an ill-gotten gain. Like, if you don't like the system, if you don't like the system the founders set up, you can just be open and say so. Just say you don't like the American system. But yeah, just be honest about it. So beyond that, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know we talked about it a lot. And last thing I'll say, this whole time, 2.5 hours, didn't get to the Ro Khanna plan to add 4. I think that's telling. The fact they kept turning it back on us, trying to test us and test our principles, I think completely telling that they don't actually want to get into the weeds on defending the specific proposal. But I guess we'll just have to do that another time, I guess.
Two things. First, where can people find you?
Twitter at the Gen Z Attorney. I think it's I don't know. I don't really do too much. Like I said, I've kind of taken a step back. I've had a lot of other stuff going on, but I guess that's the main thing. And
and I hope it's going well for you. But the second thing, just real quick, is just a yes or no answer. If Republicans did come out tomorrow and propose court packing, breaking the filibuster, would you switch parties or switch your support to the Democrats?
I don't know that I would vote affirmatively for the Democrats to stop it, but I would abstain from voting. And actually, yeah, I live in North Carolina. First time in my life, I didn't vote for Republicans in the state of North Carolina because I thought they didn't live up to the standard. So
fair enough. Pisco, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not our fault that you're a bad debater, Gen Z attorney, and you are a bad debater. So on the issue of the, why you didn't spend time on the Ro Khanna plan, obviously we need to go through justifying the proportionality of even one court expansion before we can get to 4, right? So like we need to get you to buy in, right? And you need to do something to undermine the notion of a one person court pack being justified or expansion before we can get to 4. And the reason we didn't make headway there is because you got stuck in a fucking rut. You're unable to distinguish in any way that would make legislative court packing preferable. Less preferable than rules fuckery. You said something vague about separation of powers, but you were totally caught on that point. And so the reason we didn't make progress there is because you suck at debating and because you were unable to find a good justification and you weren't able to, or alternatively, to give ground on 1 or 2, because then you lose the first prompt. That's why we didn't get to 4. I'm happy to go and talk about 4, but if you're not able to press your advantage there, that's your fucking fault. You're also dishonest. There was no concession on the severe consequence cascade. Obviously, every consequence, if something is considered a consequence, it's in virtue of its context, right? And what the menu of options are available. If you take a vaccine and, you get a prick, but in response you have a great deal of immunity and resistance from a virus, you would say, I guess in isolation, that the harm of the pain that you felt temporarily from the vaccine, that was some amount of pain, but in no sense, right, you would say that is like a consequence in virtue of like what's available between getting the vaccine versus being free to be like killed by a disease or measles or some shit. You just don't see in a menu of options, it's relative, right? So if we view, and if I don't think that you've been properly able to address and justify the more kind of like out there outlandish notions of consequence cascades independent of oscillation in and of itself, right? These are things like breakdown in the rule of law, no historical examples. Things like, for example, justices who are just so insanely willing to ensconce their own party into power. That was never shown what the relation is. And we pressed you multiple times what would be entailed by a court pack plan into Republicans never having ability to win elections and stuff like that. So all the kind of actual consequences that I would actually recognize, things like breakdown in the rule of law, breakdown in legitimacy of the Supreme Court, that those kinds of consequences that I do recognize, I never conceded that those would happen. I'm just saying that the mere oscillation in the partisan interests of the justices themselves, that doesn't count as a consequence if relative to the status quo, it's preferable. That's all we're saying. Zero concession, zero admission. You failed completely to lower the credence of that premise. Just like you failed.
Can I get a Diet Coke?
You're not on mute. Hey, you're not muted, asshole. I'm almost done.
My bad.
Yeah, fuck you. So
Do
zero
not clip that.
Zero admission on that premise. You accepted the notion of self-defense as a general principle, like for like. We gave the very clear response, which is rules fuckery, where only sign off at most with one branch of Congress is less preferable than sign off with on a norm violation by multiple branches of Congress and then ultimately the executive. And you had nothing to say in response. The argument is logically valid. It is also sound. The premises are all true. And I'm happy with the last 20 seconds here to say why I think that the 4-person court pack is proportional. It's so 2 I think is proportional because that's the actual injury by the norm violation, unless you're considering 2 norm violations like what Josiah proposed. And the additional 2 is just the next increment that gets you to another odd number. And I think that is to show the Republicans, they only know power, they only know force, that if you fuck with us, just like on gerrymandering, we will hit back, and we will hit back a little bit harder than before. You would never say in a fight, right? Like you're limited to just punch back in the exact same force that you were punched with. You can go a little bit further.
Got you. Thank you for being here, Pisco.
Thank you.
And Josiah. That could have been very bad depending on what you were asking. And also it's now a meme. Now that you understand that that's going to be a meme from now on, right? We're going to be like, babe, can you get us this or that? Or it's just, that's happening. I just want to let you know. Josiah, go ahead.
Shout out to the superhero here. My better half. Yeah. So, okay. What were we talking about? Okay. Center. All right, look. My position from the very beginning is that conservatives who are anti-core PAC, they don't actually principally oppose it. It is about entrenching and maintaining a partisan advantage. It's all it's ever about with the modern day Republican Party. You see it here in terms of their reluctance to condemn Republican core packing in different states. It's either they hesitate or they say, well, it's different. You know, when it comes to even statehood, which is totally tangential to this conversation, they're perfectly fine denying American citizens the right to full representation in the United States Congress because they're worried it may give an advantage to the Democrats when in fact Puerto Rico would probably be a purple state. It's all conditional. There's no principle here. They believe they're entitled to a system which over time has created a conservative Republican advantage in the Electoral College, so therefore the presidency, the United States Senate, and the House of Representatives now with the gerrymandering war. Republicans will be systemically advantaged in all three branches, or rather the political branches, which leads to systemic advantage for the Supreme Court. Every time we press them on this, they have nothing other than please don't do it. They didn't complain when Mitch McConnell changed the rules unilaterally, not just in terms of the precedent created by denying President Obama a hearing. They didn't just vote Merrick Garland down, which they had every right to do. They said it doesn't matter who you nominate, you will not fill this vacancy. And then in the process, they said in 2020, if Donald Trump wins the presidency and we control the Senate, we will stay true to this. We will deny Trump an election year confirmation. And then they changed their own fucking rule. The Republican Party at the elected and pundit level are unprincipled fucks. It's all about power. That's it. We just see it demonstrated here along the way. Okay. There is an injury in which the Democrats are entitled to respond. This is political self-defense. And if it results in oscillation on the Supreme Court, that is preferable to the alternative. Don't let them fool you. You are not obligated to play the game of politics differently than an unprincipled Republican Party. Let them fall on the sword of principle. Let them give up the power that they've gained along the way. This idea, well, the system automatically advantages us. No, that would make sense if where we are today is where we were in 1776. It wasn't. 50 states collected along the way for partisan ends. The Republican gerrymandering board, they have taken power and used the power at both the state and the federal level to advantage themselves. I'm sorry, Democrats have the power to do it too. And what you don't like is there is an increasing appetite to play the game the way you do. It's your fucking fault. If you don't want us to proceed, then propose to the Republican Party that you cede power. You know what? We don't want Democrats to pack the court. So you know what? We need to let them have the next few justices. You know what? We do need to make Puerto Rico and D.C. a state. You know what? We need to have a nationwide gerrymandering ban because it is about principle for us and not about partisan advantage. And we need to prove that to the Democratic Party. They're not prepared to do that. They're certainly not advocating for it. It's about partisan advantage. Okay. And that's what we showed.
Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. Thank you for the arguments. Thank you for spending your time. And dear audience, most of all, thank you. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you got to go, I understand, but we do have a couple callers who want to call in. And there's a lot of people who are mouthing off on Twitter who I don't see backstage. I don't know. Interesting. But let me bring in the caller and see what they have to say. Hello, you were live.
Hello.
What do you got for the panel?
Is he like not showing up for you guys? Is he like a pixel?
Let me restart my camera, maybe. Did that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's cool, buddy. Go ahead.
Now, what do you got? We don't need to see you. We just need to hear you.
Well, now I just
second
left.
time calling in. Last time was also for the Josiah Pisco clobbering, and it was awesome. This time I want to ask the two anti-packers if, like, what is the principle, like the specific thing about what Mitch McConnell did and what the Senate did to deny Obama's pick for, what was it, 14 months? We had 8 justices. That is not a partisan skew.
So just to be clear, I keep hearing this number thrown around. I just looked it up earlier. Maybe I was wrong, but I think it was March 2016 Scalia dies. So March to November, you could argue that's, what was it, 9 months, yeah.
9 months. Okay.
So just clear on that.
Yeah. I might have just started that
sorry.
somewhere.
What was your question again?
What is the principal distinction between that and any other kind of, partisan skewing of the court? Why is that not
through
up to
other
the level
means. Yeah,
Yeah.
like laws.
Well, okay, because it can sound like a broken record, but when you have the advice and consent power, and you can use it to determine what's going to happen with the seat, that's a difference in kind than it's going to be for adding seats permanently. You understand that, right?
Yeah. You can imagine that there's a difference between adding and subtracting, and in this case, it was a subtraction. But the effect and the purpose, seemingly to me, I have total parity. What's the why? Like, would it be a cascade of horrible things or something if, like, from now on every single nomination was denied and we went to zero, everyone just died out? That's a possibility. I don't personally see that like it's just opposites, right? It's taking one away and adding some seem like opposites in effect.
I still don't think you guys are appreciating the difference I'm drawing here. Of there was no guarantee about what McConnell, which we're back to the unilateral McConnell, by the way, which I thought we settled earlier. We're talking about the Senate, but
wouldn't it also not be a guarantee to add justices that they could, wouldn't they not be guaranteed to be partisan skewed in the same way?
When you guys talk about trying to draw the comparison here, are you just talking about proposing a law that will expand the court? Or are you talking about that law actually being signed by the president? Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, the law being effectuated, enacted. Yeah, all of these measures carry some risk to it. Maybe the Supreme Court overturns it and says that the law itself is not, whatever. Maybe you don't end up having the vote. So is it really just the fact that there's any amount of risk makes what happened with Mitch McConnell preferable?
It makes it different in kind, I think, because if you're drawing a political calculation, which the Senate is a political body, and saying we want to hold this open on the chance because we think we're going to win this election and we think it'll be advantageous to us, yes, by opening yourself up to that risk, that's a difference in kind. And I don't know if you guys are even admitting this, but because you're talking about the actual effectuation, signing of a law that expands the court. You're not talking about proposing it. So that's the difference. If McConnell had a way to guarantee fast forward to the end of the process, if McConnell could guarantee the outcome he desired, that's the comparison to what you're saying about an outcome being a law going into effect.
No. Let me respond to that. Sometimes risky measures are worse than not as risky measures, right?
Sure, but worse.
So why does riskiness inure to the benefit of Mitch McConnell? In other words, why does the factor of riskiness make it preferable for us to consider? In other words, that makes Mitch McConnell's better than a proposed legislative court pack. Do you understand that?
He could have had the same thing happened in kind. You understand that?
Oh my fucking God. We're not just talking about what could occur. We're asking about the nature of the act itself, not about what could happen, right? Unless you think that...
So the nature of the act itself is mean that there can be a reciprocal act of, a Senate Dem having power to
Please
deny
stop.
a Republican
guys,
appointment.
I don't believe you're this stupid, right? I really don't. We're comparing two static things. One thing is a court expansion achieved through legislation, and another is a court manipulating the partisan composition of the court through rules.
Which isn't a court expansion.
I agree it's not a court expansion. I agree it's not a court expansion. We agree with that it's not a court expansion, right? That's not what we're contesting, right? So one is a court expansion through legislation. The other is affecting the partisan balance of the court through rules fuckery. Why is one preferable to the other? That's the question. That's what we're comparing statically. And one thing that you've said is, well, it was risky to do what Mitch McConnell did. Why does that inure to Mitch McConnell's benefit, even if we accepted that there was risk, which we think it was all like a very, if there's risk, it was incredibly low. Hillary Clinton wasn't going to nominate some insane person.
And at the time, you got to remember that the filibuster was still in effect for Supreme Court appointees. So unless Democrats had, 61 senators after the 2016 election, there was no way to get around the Republican. Yeah.
So can you respond to that, please? So we have on the table one potential distinguisher, right? Because you have the virtues that I presented, which are the structural virtues, the procedural virtues, the democratic virtues, bicameralism, presentment, judicial review. And you say, okay, here's the distinguishing factor, riskiness. And I'm just like, who cares? Why does riskiness make this a more virtuous action?
Because in the same way that you're asking, how does this inure to McConnell's benefit? I'm asking to consider the other side of the equation here, which is that McConnell was not the only actor here. This was a game of chicken between two sides.
Oh my God. Granted, the Senate. Okay, shut the fuck. Okay, no one say McConnell anymore. Now just say Republican Senate. Republican Senate.
No,
I don't want to hear this anymore about unilateral. So just Republican Senate.
Two sides. No, when I say it was a game of chicken, I'm not talking about the Senate playing a game of chicken. I'm talking about the Senate / McConnell playing the game of chicken with Obama and with.
Well, no,
Garland.
but that's
And
going to be
Obama Garland
true.
went back to
That's going to
neither.
be true of a proposed court expansion. That the other side can respond in kind. That's what you're saying, right? Like, so the fact that there's a Democrat in charge of the executive who disagrees with Mitch McConnell, why is that a virtuous aspect to what Mitch McConnell did, and Senate Republicans did, versus a legislative court pack? Everything you're saying are differences, but why are there differences with a distinction that we ought to care about that makes what Mitch McConnell did look better, right? That's what you need to show.
Well, if you're going to focus on the specific procedure, which I think is what you're trying to do, so maybe I'm finally understanding that part of it.
I'm going to do this as plainly as I can, right? There's two mechanisms to achieve a partisan skew of the court. There's mechanism number one. Mechanism number one is legislative court pack. Mechanism number two is rules fuckery and then the nuclear option, right? So those are two available methods. We're comparing those methods to say, is one more preferable than the other? And I'm like, well, look at the legislation. There are some guardrails here. There needs to be some consensus. The act, all else equal, seems like it has to have more sign off. And that way it's preferable that we know at very least if there's a norm violation through this process, at least there's more Democratic input than what's going on with Mitch McConnell. So we're trying to see what evens,
more
evens, yes, and what evens the score for Mitch McConnell. What brings Mitch McConnell up to make it parity or even go above, which is your position.
I do want to give other people a chance.
I know, but this is the core question that you need to answer.
No, I think Gen Z attorney should answer this too as well as someone who called in.
Right, so I've just described some virtues for the legislation. It brings it up to here, right? And so we start here. So what brings Mitch McConnell's action in terms of all else equal above, right? And you said riskiness, and then you said, well, it's a game of chicken. I don't understand why those are things that inure to the benefit of what Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans did.
Because if we're focusing in a vacuum on the procedure, then of course I'm going to agree.
I'm not saying in a vacuum. I'm giving you opportunity to say other things.
The same way you could compare a president's executive order to a law passed by Congress. You could say, oh, there's more virtue to the congressional law because there's more checks and balances. There's more bicameralism and presentment. So procedurally speaking, yes, you're going to have more democratic virtue to that. My point is I don't care about the procedure because what matters is the substance. And the substance of what's being proposed by the legislative process of what you're trying to do, which is the court pack, that's the thing that I'm terrified of. And that's the thing I want to avoid.
Is the substance that you're upset about? Is the substance you're upset about? Are you projecting to for Justice PAC? Because we're just starting with just the 1-to-1.
Yeah,
I'm projecting on any path in the federal Supreme Court.
Yeah. So why is expansion?
I think you can use the same tactic that McConnell did, and look, that's another. I think that's another false premise of the syllogism is you're assuming.
Stop! Don't move off! Don't move off! Don't move off! Please don't move off. So
this is part of it.
So you don't have a problem. Sorry, you don't have a problem with expansion in. You don't have a problem with expansion in general, right? You don't care about neutral expansions, right? If this were a bipartisan thing and it was all neutral, you'd be fine with it, wouldn't you? Yeah. So you don't care that we actually do need more justices, right? So if this were a neutral thing and we added 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans to get to 13 or whatever the distillation is to get the exact same composition as we have now, you wouldn't be against it, right? The thing that you yes, the thing that you don't like, right? Right. So the thing that
I don't
sucks.
like the partisan angle. No, correct.
Right. The thing that's bad is the partisan aspect of it, the skew of the partisan composition through means that we think are not right? Through norm violations and immoral means. That's the problem. And that's present in what Mitch McConnell did, and it's presumably present in legislative court packing, right? So the same thing is present in both, right? We don't care about expansion in isolation.
Okay, Gen Z, do you agree that there's the concept that what Mitch McConnell did is a norm violation that caused a partisan skew of the court?
Correct.
Yes, but because it was the gamble, because it was not guaranteed, I'm not going to.
Let's grant it.
I'm not going to resort to the court
answering, please.
Because yes, you can do that. Because is this the first time this has ever happened? No, of course not.
No, but a court packing has happened before in history, and you know that. You know, a court packing has happened in history. Partisan.
All those things are equal.
Those are equal. You need a symmetry breaker. You need something that breaks the symmetry.
Okay.
I'm saying my position this whole entire time.
One more. I'll let you answer.
Yeah, one.
And then
try more.
You got to move on.
Okay.
We have to move on. We have to have other people get in here.
My position the whole time has been turnabout is fair play. I've already said from the very beginning, you can do the McConnell rule back on McConnell. You don't like that because you don't think it's going to get you the power fast enough or reliably enough. And so your alternative is, well, we need a law to guarantee that we can do what we want to do instead of taking the risk like McConnell had to do. That's the problem here. That's why this is not proportional.
What risk? What risk? Remind me again, what risk?
My last thing.
McConnell's risk?
Is there anything you would be okay with that the Democrats do to try to undo what we consider the injury, and you can agree, at least to some degree, is a partisan skew of the court, that other than court packing or doing what Mitch McConnell did? Is there anything else we can do?
Removal of justices.
The U.S. Supreme.
Well, we don't want to do that one.
No, because I don't think anything happened on the Supreme Court that has violated the integrity of the court itself.
That's not what we're asking.
Well, that's not what we're asking. We want to repair the injury.
Is there a part? If there was a partisan skewing of the court,
my standard for taking these proposals like court packing, impeaching justices, if you have violated the integrity of the court and its ability to do its job, then sure.
How about reduction in size, not expansion, but reduction. So now we want to remove. We're not going to impeach them. We're just going to remove the seats of Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch.
You still have to wait for them to pass.
No. The seats are
talking about taking it from 9 to 7.
Yeah, they're federal. They're federal judges. They're federal judges, but they don't have a seat on the Supreme Court and they don't get a vote.
You're saying they're what's the proposal here? To pass a law to
reduce from 9 to 7, and we eliminate Amy Coney Barrett's seat and Neil Gorsuch's seat. Would you be okay with that?
No,
why not?
Removal for SCOTUS has been done before, right?
So there has been an attempt.
SCOTUS seats have been done before,
right?
Wait,
no, there's been an attempt.
I mean, like, no, I mean, like, even pre-Civil War, when I was mentioning how, like, there's that crazy amount of stuff that goes with SCOTUS gaining and losing. To my knowledge, though, they still are on the court, and they can still judge over anything that comes before the court. And the way that if you lower the number, it's just to stop the next person from nominating.
We're proposing something else. We're proposing getting rid of their seats contemporaneously and removing them from having any authority.
Yeah, and that would be
Supreme Court.
probably unconstitutional and novel.
Oh, okay, but how about trying it? Would you condemn it if it were? So the court itself is going to have to review these measures, right? But would you condemn us trying it to remove Amy Coney Barrett's seat?
Because that angle is unconstitutional. If you're just trying to remove seats and like they did before, then that would be.
It's been untested. It's untested whether or not it's constitutional to do this. Congress has authority over. I mean, Congress could get rid of all the inferior courts like tomorrow, right? Congress doesn't have to make inferior federal courts, and by that logic, don't they also have the authority to create how many seats are on the Supreme Court? The only position that's constitutionally mandated is the Chief Justice. So why would you condemn us trying to remove Amy Coney Barrett's seat from the Supreme Court? She can still she still gets paid. She's still a federal judge, but she's just not on the Supreme Court.
Because prior instances of removing seats from SCOTUS had them fill out their term.
Why don't you guys fucking engage?
You're just not engaging with the president, which is what I'm using as a principle.
The other thing I just want to say,
we gotta have the other people have called in. They've been waiting.
So frustrating, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick. The other thing is, again, I want to be very clear. There was no risk for Mitch McConnell here because the alternative was confirming a Democratic justice or getting a Republican justice if Trump won the election. There was nothing but upside for him politically speaking to do what he did. It is really dumb to suggest that there was any real risk there whatsoever other than just the status quo.
Yeah, I want to hear from Eucharist and I want to hear from Stormwolf. Eucharist, you came on. You were asking if there were going to be call-ins. You were begging, pleading, crying, vomiting.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
In the background. Very short question, actually. Y'all, both sides mentioned a couple of times state Supreme Courts, and I wanted to ask both of you, I guess, what on the court packing side, why do you think these things are analogous when, as the anti-packing side mentioned a couple of times, we have not yet seen a party flip in some of these states that would lead to the kind of cascade that we're concerned about? So we're not sure if this will lead to a cascade.
So
second, why do we think this is actually analogous when state courts have, historically speaking, been more partisan than the United States Supreme Court on a federal level? Why would we analogize between these things when they are different, potentially in principle? Like distinguish these for me.
Yeah, why is it
and
relevant?
tell
You're
me-
asking the
or
relevance,
Tell me why they're
right?
the same.
So the reason we bring them up is a couple of reasons in terms of the relevance. Because in order to make a case that there's going to be some escalating sets of consequences, usually people want evidence, right? Evidence of this actually occurring, and people will point to for previous court packs of the Supreme Court, and you look there and you're like, okay, well, we didn't have like an insane breakdown in the rule of law. We still have the Supreme Court. We still have our country, and so when we look to examples of what's like this, what can we look to that's similar to this where we can get an inkling as to what the consequences might be, right? And so and it's not a perfect analogy for reasons that you stated, but it's at least something that we should examine. And I would think that the other side would want to examine it too, to see, well, do we actually have evidence that is going to lead to bad consequence? And so we look to it and we say, hey, here's something that might make it less credible that there's going to be a severe cascade of consequences, because one way in which there won't, because these situations haven't led to tit for tats. They haven't, right? And maybe that's because there hasn't.
Yet, right?
Maybe that's because
maybe
that's because they haven't yet had the opportunity to do so or whatever. But then that could just as easily be true in the federal context, that the ink could dry in the way that it has in Georgia or in Arizona, and people memories fade, and all of a sudden there is no tit for tat. So what does it do? So why is it relevant? It lowers the credence that we're likely to see a severe cascade of consequences. It's not a perfect analogy to the federal Supreme Court, but the best data we have, right? The previous federal Supreme Court packs and the state Supreme Court packs didn't lead to these results. And so the best evidence we have historically suggests that there won't be a severe consequence cascade.
There's another thing here too. I want to answer it on my end, because if you don't oppose or object or condemn partisan court packing at the state level, you do not have a principled objection to court packing. Now, if you want to concede that the only hesitation you have about court packing is the prudential outcome, basically, in other words, if Gen Z and the other guy want to say, look, actually, Josiah, not only do you legally have the right to do it, actually, morally you do, because fuck the Republicans. But the reason I don't support it is because I'm afraid of the oscillation and the tit for tat. Otherwise, if we could guarantee that, then fuck them. You deserve every right to do so. That's the distinction there, number one. Number two, I disagree that state Supreme Courts are so disanalogous as to not apply here. They are the highest courts, the courts of last resort in their polity. We have dual sovereignty in the United States. And so for conservatives to basically go, well, it's actually okay if we do it at the state level, but it's bad for you to do it at the federal level. Nobody has offered a meaningful distinction here, and my instinct is that it is pure partisan outcome. You support Republicans doing it at the state level because it advantages the Republicans, and you oppose it for Democrats at the federal level because it would also advantage the Republicans to keep things the way they are.
I think what I would say to both 1 and 2 is that I can imagine a world in which somebody could, in principle, say, like, state courts have always been more partisan than the Supreme Court of the United States was designed to be. They've always functioned that way, and that's fine in a sense.
Were state Supreme Courts designed to be partisan?
That they have always been more partisan than
in some states, but not in all states.
Yeah.
And the fact that
Let the caller respond to Josiah.
Which is, I don't agree that if you have if you think, oh, it's fine that it happened in this one state, you must be fine with it at the Supreme Court level, or you're a hypocrite. I don't agree with that. I think
it's not necessarily true, but
wait a minute. I didn't say that. I said if what you want to say, if you oppose Supreme Court court packing at the federal level, the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS court packing, because you genuinely fear the tit for tat will destroy the country, but otherwise you recognize that Democrats have the legal right to do it and there is no moral, ethical, or principled opposition to it. In other words, hey, Josiah, if we could snap our fingers and guarantee that Republicans would put their fist down and let you whack them one time in the nose, go ahead and do it. That's one thing. But I'm sorry, Professor, if you are trying to parse meaningful distinction between state courts of last resort, which determine questions of constitutionality at the state level, but not the federal level, I reject it. The only difference is the scale. That's it. And when you say that the federal Supreme Court was not designed to be partisan, wait a minute. Okay.
Scale matters.
Wait a minute. You know what? That's a great point. So I guess then it's wrong for California and Texas to expand their state Supreme Courts because their states are much bigger and much more populous, but it would be okay for Rhode Island and Wyoming. because scale matters, right?
I'm basically saying I think
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's not a meaningful enough. It's
hold
not.
on.
It's not a
understand
meaningful
why-
difference.
Even
but
if we grant that yes, there is a difference in scale because they affect more people. That even California versus the federal Supreme Court is a massive jump in scale. Like it's like water. Okay, glass of water won't hurt me, but if it was a fucking flood, I'm done. Even though it's the same thing, it's water at the end of the day.
Can I use a different?
Right?
Can
Scale
I just,
absolutely matters here.
Can I use a different example?
it is
though?
not a meaningful difference to
No.
avoid to defy the principle. And the other thing I want to say, because you said two things, which is well, one is partisan and the other isn't, or one is more partisan than the other. The Supreme Court of the United States has been a partisan process since the era of the Founding Fathers. I'm sorry, I categorically reject your premise. What President Adams did to screw over President Jefferson was naked partisanship. They played games with the Supreme Court. Now, you might want to say ink on paper, it wasn't meant to be a partisan institution. I suspect if we look at the state constitutions of that describe the various courts of last resort there, it would be awfully similar, right? Given that these constructs
and it depends on the state. Some have
the legislature. It depends. It depends.
Right.
It's not the same.
So,
it's not
elect
the
their
same. Yeah.
So my point is, though, I reject that too. It is a partisan institution. And even if I were to grant you that one is more partisan than the other, you would need to explain to me why that is a meaningful distinction.
And why it's not the best evidence, right? So, like, if you're going to, because people will do this and they'll just say, we reject all of the 19th century court packs because it's a long time ago, whatever. The best evidence we have regarding the credence of the cascade of horribles is the state Supreme Courts, and rule of law hasn't ended there. So you need to,
again,
and wait, let me finish my thoughts. Let me finish. It has been a decade since the Georgia Supreme Court pack. I guess in 100 years, if it doesn't happen, what are you going to say then? We'll all be dead by the time, and you'll still be saying, "Well, we haven't seen the tit for tat." The truth is, and the truth is, right? If you say, "Well, that's not applicable," what evidence is showing you that we're going to have? Wait, let me finish. You fucking idiot. Let me finish. You're stupid. Let me finish. All right. So if it is some evidence that you wholeheartedly reject and that you think that is like just something that we should discount wholly, then okay, we can't count the 19th century Supreme Court packs. We can't count the state Supreme Court packs. What evidence exists whatsoever that it will be the end of civilization consequences now that you've just categorically rejected all of the historical examples, Professor?
I didn't do that, and I just don't feel the need to respond to you after that, so that's fine. No, Josiah, to your point. No, Josiah, what I'm saying is I think we have principles of federalism that say the state Supreme Courts are different from the federal Supreme Court. I think the state constitutions have made those institutions different from the federal Supreme Court from the beginning. There have been disagreements about the level of independence that these judiciaries have had. And so that's why I think the state Supreme Court packs are lower quality evidence of the kind of
it's the best evidence, isn't it?
I'm concerned
what's the best evidence?
Pisco, I don't care about what you said.
It's the best evidence, right?
You're calling me a fucking idiot for saying
you are a fucking
idiot.
The
evidence you're giving me is low quality. Okay, that's fine. All right. It was very nice talking to you guys.
No,
and to be clear, actually expand on Georgia still hasn't switched to Democrat. It's still been a Republican since 2016.
Is it the best evidence or not?
Just to be clear, some of these states elect their Supreme Court justices, like Georgia. They literally elect them. The people elect them. So we're talking about, the differences between the states and the federal. Like, yeah, that's a huge difference. I actually looked it up. 24 states elect their state Supreme Court justices. So that's a huge difference. The U.S. Constitution is a document of enumerated powers. So it actually lists what you're able to rule. Versus states are constitutions of.
So you have zero evidence. So you have zero historical evidence. What historical evidence do you have? Any?
No.
Do you have any historical? Can someone not be a fucking coward? I'm sorry. Can someone not be a fucking coward on this panel? Do you have any historical evidence? Do you have?
Let me say why this argument it falls short, in my opinion. And you can call me an idiot if you like. I won't run away, right? But let's look at the concerns that people have for something like artificial intelligence. We have no historical data that artificial intelligence is going to do big harms. We have very, very little of that. However, that does not mean that the concerns people will have of how these things will be implemented in the future is invalid.
I'm hearing you. Wait.
Hold on, just let me finish. You could say that, sure, it's never happened in the past, right? And it didn't happen in these cases, but that does not mean it will not happen in the future under different circumstances. That's
so can we, everyone here who is against court packing, concede you have no historical evidence for your claim of cascade of consequences? Yes or no?
Gerrymandering.
No, sorry. Do you have any evidence, historical evidence of court packing, leading to this cascade of consequences?
No historical evidence. I don't have any.
Zero, right?
I think
Zero?
it's fair to, wait. Yeah, it's fair to say that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So then what evidence do we have?
Can you concede back that does not necessarily mean it will not happen?
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily it won't lead to the collapse of civilization, but it's your claim. Wait, hang on a second. It's your claim.
No, hold on. My worry isn't just the civilizational collapse. It doesn't have to be the maximalist bad thing. I can have a concern that it will simply erode trust in the institution of the court to such a degree that it will make this country worse. And it doesn't have to destroy this country.
So you have a concern. You have a concern of consequences. I have a concern of consequences if we don't do it. What gives your level of concern more credence than mine?
First of all, I'm prettier. One, and we have historical evidence for that. But second of all, I think that it doesn't. However, if neither of our intuitions here have better evidence, I think that then
we should repair the injury, right? If it's all equal, then we should repair the injury. Wait, no. So I just want to make sure that's clear from Wick what Wick's position is. You agree that your intuition about consequences, you have no reason to think that yours is more likely than mine, correct?
No. I have no evidence, no reason. There's a difference there. And I think that the reason that I would posit that I think that there is a risk, I won't say it's a high risk, but it's high enough that I am against it at this point in time. I see.
You can't do that. You can't. Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. You can't say that, like, okay, I acknowledge I have no evidence that make my calculation of risk, more weighty than yours, but still it's more risky, right? You're doing the thing that you don't have evidence for, right?
Hold on. You have no evidence that there's zero risk.
No. So
wait. To be clear, all I was gonna say is there can be like a level of like magnitude of risk. So it could be the case that both are equally, like, based on our intuitions, we understand they're both equally likely, but then the magnitude of one is higher than the other, right? So Wick might be saying that, like, and I kind of agree that, like, the magnitude of risk of the court packing is higher than the magnitude of it, like, the magnitude
in virtue of what? Yeah, no. We're disagreeing both on the magnitude and the amount of risk.
Yeah,
right?
I do agree. We disagree on the amount of risk. I'm just saying
and
that, like,
magnitude
in the scenario where you're saying, yeah. So that's what I was about to get to. In the scenario where you say that we're holding that, like, both of our intuitions are equally valid, I think what Wake is probably going to say, and I don't know if he was trying to get at this, and I kind of agree, is that, like, the magnitude of risk of there being a cascading effect is much higher than the magnitude of there being
in virtue of what? We have no historical evidence, no data. What is giving you this strong notion that these parade of horribles are likely to occur?
Well, sure. So this is what I was gonna.
All the Republicans said they'll do it.
Okay.
So this is what I kind of want to ask,
Trump
because
and MAGA and the current Republican Party suggests to me that they will behave far differently than the Republican Party of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Would you agree?
Yeah. So they behave differently.
Yeah.
And wait, on the general
in that instance where you agree and you concede that MAGA and the Republican Party, as it exists today, is acting significantly differently than the Republican Party of 50
It's different.
years
It's
ago,
different. It's different.
Then we can look at, say, okay, under these conditions.
And Wick, would you agree the Republican Party of today is different than the Republican Party of 100 years ago? Would you agree they're different?
Of 100 years ago?
Yeah.
100 years ago, there was too many variables. That
So it's so it's different, right?
Let's stick
so
to
it's
the
different.
modern era.
No,
let's stick to after
so
Reagan.
What does it matter? What does it matter that the Republican Party now is different than the Republican Party of 20 years ago? I know it's different. I'm pricing all of that. Stop. Wick.
Social media, such as other technologies, such as the state of the world, such as globalism, such as all these other things.
All of that is priced in.
All the problems I have with you,
all of
want us to look at look at the tree
Oh my
in
God.
order to distract
You guys
us
are
from
so
talking about the
stupid.
forest.
Please,
You
Wick.
say it's stupid, but my arguments are sound.
No, they're not. So comparing the Republican Party of now.
You can't just assert.
Wait, I can assert it. I can assert it because I have
can, but
justification
you-
for
I
it.
mean-
I have justification for it. What you just said makes no sense whatsoever. You're like, the Republican Party is different now.
makes no sense
let me
that
explain,
MAGA
Wick.
would
Let me
be
explain it to you.
differently than
No. I grant that.
Reagan's
I grant that. It's irrelevant.
say that.
Wait,
That's a
Wick.
stance you can have.
Wick, you're being dishonest now. I never said the Republican Party is not different now than it was 20 years ago. What I'm saying is that's irrelevant, okay? Just like it's irrelevant that the Republican Party... Well, let me explain, Wick. Just like it's irrelevant that the Republican Party is different than it was 100 years ago. Just like it's irrelevant that it was 100 years ago. All of my calculations, all of my intuitions, all of my arguments are pricing in the fact that we have the current Republican Party and not the 20 years ago Republican Party. If you thought that my argument is premised on the notion that we had the 20 years ago Republican Party, you must be smoking crack.
I'm not smoking crack, unfortunately, right? But the idea, this is why I think your argument fails, because I think even if you are pricing that in, I think that to price that in and not be fearful of the MAGA response to this and how they would act to this when we open this Pandora's box is foolish.
Yeah, this is
a
cuckoldry.
foolish thing
He
to
isn't.
do.
You're
my
assuming
point,
that
Wick.
Pisco and the Court Pack Pro people have put the risk at zero. No one has ever said the risk is zero.
Didn't
It's
you
just that the-
earlier in this conversation, Pisco, say
No, that was with
no.
stop. That's with Mitch McConnell with respect to Mitch McConnell's risk regarding outcomes for him.
Okay, so
that was with
let's
zero.
ask the risk for this.
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah. So
what is, in your opinion, 0 to 100, what is the percentage of
20.
risk if the Democrats do the court packing as Ro Khanna's plan to
Yeah.
pack it to 13? What is the risk that it will fundamentally erode the rule of law in this country? 0 to 100.
less than 0.5%.
Less than 0.5%. See, I disagree.
Yeah.
I would put it at 20.
Why? In virtue of what?
In virtue of the behaviors of MAGA, of the Republicans under MAGA, and the extremes in which they are willing to go in order to get their way.
What do you mean by
the
rule of
norms
law?
that they have violated in the past and will have said that they were going to
They'll be
do
defeated by
in the
democracy.
future. It's one of the reasons I don't want to end the filibuster, because
Oh my
they
God.
are going to
Can
take
you
it and
can you
run with
clarify
it.
what you mean by a road rule of law for my own edification?
Okay, so when I say a road rule of law, it will decrease the likelihood that executives, states, and individuals will take the Supreme Court seriously, and they will start ignoring some of these orders in a way that I think will create a constitutional crisis. And my evidence for that was on this panel. Gen Z was very, very cagey when we asked that question over and over and over again. And I don't think he's non-representative of MAGA Republicans as a whole. I think that will be the excuse that they use in order to create a constitutional
Wick,
crisis. I don't want
Wick,
that to happen.
I agree that there is a risk on some level, because I've heard it,
Yeah.
of some Republicans proposing non-acquiescence or defying the Supreme Court,
Which they're already
But
doing.
I would argue that the reason that they believe that is because they believe they're entitled to a conservative majority court. In other words, I believe that the very conservatives who have said, you
you're
know
right.
what?
I agree.
Well, wait a
I
minute.
agree.
Wait a minute.
The
Who have
reason
said,
the
you know
Gen
what?
Z, Ryan Mullally and all them, that's super partisan. They're just partisan hacks. Sorry, Gen Z, but it's true. That's true. But my opposition is not that.
No, you're not understanding what
Well,
Josiah
wait,
is saying.
well-
He's saying it doesn't rely on norm breaking for them to do fucked up shit. It relies on what's in their interest at all times.
It makes it easier for them.
No, they
don't
tried
do
to
it.
steal
They
an
don't-
election.
You know what? Wick,
don't
you know
need
what
it.
I'm going to ask? You know what I'm going to ask then? Why don't we just instantiate one party rule here? Every Democrat just resign
Is there
immediately.
other options that we have in order,
What are
like
they?
this idea that we can't govern under the current Supreme Court? I reject that notion.
It's not
Okay.
that we can't
Okay. Well, then
govern.
fine. Then wait a minute. You know what? Okay. Let's try to find some consensus where the line is. Okay. So let's say we don't resign en masse, and the Republicans graciously.
I gave you my line earlier, and
Well, I understand. No, but that's not what I'm. That's not where I'm. I know. I
well,
heard
okay,
you
what
about the
line are
birthright
you talking about
citizenship.
then?
The birthright citizen. Right. Let me finish. Which is okay. Democrats continue to hold office and they continue to try to win elections. But you know what? Because we're afraid of what red states and partisan actors might do if the Supreme Court ever flips from conservative to liberal, we either forfeit every Supreme Court vacancy we have or only nominate conservative justices. No, I'm asking you, why not that?
Because the simple flipping from conservative rule to liberal rule is a fundamentally different thing than court packing. Would you agree to that?
It's different. It's different. No. Yes, they're different.
No,
I think it's different, but I don't think it's fundamentally different. No, I don't think it's fundamentally different.
I do.
They already packed the court unprovoked.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get at, which is Rick, you just
better or worse as a nation that McConnell did that.
Worse.
If we're in a cafeteria, if we get punched by the bully,
my fear is, and I will secede to you that it is not certain. It is not, and the risk is not even 50%. It's like 20 or 30.
But Wick, I know I hear you, but you just conceded just like a minute ago that you don't believe the Gen Z lawyer or Ryan Mullally or the Republican Party in the current era will ever accept a liberal court no matter how it's obtained.
No, that's not what I conceded. I conceded that in the instance of court packing, specifically Ro Khanna's plan, that's when they would do that because it would give them.
And you don't think they would do it if it was done through the ordinary course of nominations and vacancies?
I don't think that they would. I think that Gen Z Ryan Mullally's would honor the court.
Even if they did, even if they did it with Mitch McConnell, something that's worse than legislative court packing.
Well, we don't see it as
you
worse.
You mean like a Democratic version?
No, I'm talking to Wick though.
Right? Like if we did that the same way. No, I think that even then it would be considered more or less fair ball.
So wait a minute. We're talking about changing the composition, changing the balance
that I have of conservatives currently.
So let's say hypothetically, let's see, it's a 6-3 conservative supermajority now. So let's say 2 or 3 of the justices retire or die after Donald Trump in Donald Trump's final 2 years, and let's say we flip the Senate in 2026. So we have the Senate in 2027,
Inshallah,
2028.
Right? Hopefully.
Okay. No. I said 3 of them either die or resign, so I don't know if I can co-sign that. But let's say that there are 3 vacancies in Trump's final 2 years, and let's say the Democrats go, it doesn't matter who you nominate, we're keeping these 3 seats open, and then a Democrat wins in 2028, and then we fill those 3 vacancies back to back to back with liberal justices. How do you think Gen Z, Ryan Mullally, or MAGA Republicans writ large would react to? How do you think that
they wouldn't like it, but it would be less risky than court packing. There would be not zero risk, but it would be less risky. I think it'd be like the 0.5%, right? That
instead of mind reading, I'm already here. I can just answer the question.
Well, that assumes we believe you, but I'm curious what Wick would say, because of course you would say, yeah. Right? So just to be clear,
but it'd be far less risky than court packing.
I think that you will not accept a conservative court no matter how it's obtained, just because of where you have drawn the lines here. Like, again, you've tried to gerrymander
liberal.
I'm sorry, liberal court.
I think the concern over them I feel like the concern over them not following it is less of an issue when it comes to rule of law. I think the bigger concern is, I guess Gen Z attorney can answer if he wants to.
Let me not pull away from this point yet, because actually I was hoping this part would come up. So okay, let's lay a hypothetical clearly, because I want to place a bet on it. Okay.
Get a drink, play nice, be good. Okay, I'll be right back.
Oh, always. All right, you're saying hypothetical world.
Hey, babe. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hypothetical world. Court goes from the current 6-3, flips by 2. Now it's 5-4 for the liberals. I believe you said on the other one of the recent panels that that wholeheartedly you believe Republicans would pack that to get the advantage back. Correct?
Yes.
And that people like me would support it.
Yep. Yes. I don't know if they would. I think that there would be attempts to do it. I don't know if they'd actually succeed.
Okay,
I don't. Yeah.
I bet you $5,000 against that.
If what?
Well, that I wouldn't support it, and so you'll have to, I guess, go off of what I'm saying. But also, I don't think they would attempt to do it.
You don't think they would attempt to reciprocally?
We could potentially take that bet. We just need to lay out the terms.
And it would be a 30-year. It would be like a 30-year bet if there's no core packing.
You and I are going to become. We're going to have to get on our Star Wars takes lined up, because we're going to have a long association.
You guys will be dead.
If that's the case.
We'll be giving it to
because understand.
Hey, we can put it in the rules.
My least favorite part of your takes. Okay.
What if we just look at
takes are your worst takes?
What if we just
we can talk about Star Wars separately, but I'm just saying, I want to be clear. If we take this bet, because it's not, I didn't say they would do it within the first 2 years. I'm saying that they would attempt to do so.
Let's
that
just look at it
that there would
prospectively.
be
I mean,
calls.
I'd have to time limit it by something. I can't do like within the next 100 years this won't happen. But
Don't
I
make the
probably
bet about some. Don't point it at the like this 30-year future thing. Just look at something that already happened that the same principle would apply, and look at what you did. Like what was what like. You
He
don't
just thinks Mitch
currently
McConnell's
agree.
different. I mean, he thinks it's different.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. You think like you would. My thought isn't that you will be against it. Is they'll word it or do something where it will give you an excuse to be in favor of it. They will find a way to make this okay with
you know what
because
they'll
they
say?
already did.
Wait,
you already fell for this.
You know what they'll say? Because this is what Counterpoint said when we presented the state Supreme Courts to him. This was done for nonpartisan reasons, therefore it's not a partisan court pack. This is done for administrative reasons, and that's all it would take for these guys to immediately sign on with a talking point.
Oh, the
Go for it.
administrative reasons point.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be.
So,
Josiah,
well, so wait, what was the other guy who has not gotten a chance to speak? I'm curious.
You know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the blowy microphone guy. I don't see your name.
What's your name?
Yeah. Man, Josiah, you forgot so quickly. We waited like 3 weeks.
Listen, I'm 35 years old.
We're old, dude.
I'm over-caffeinated. I'm boomer as fuck, bro.
I'm
Not old.
joking. I
That's
don't
not old.
You mentioned earlier, like talking about like people who might disagree with like not the fact that like Democrats might even have like some moral justification to do it because I'm a Democrat. I agree the McConnell thing was really fucked. I guess my concern is that kind of off ramp. I do think there is that risk for cascading. I mean, like it sounds like you just said that you do expect that if we court pack, Republicans are probably going to do it in turn. Is there any off ramp to it, or does it just turn to like a constant back and forth court packing?
Yeah, Democrats winning doesn't for even just one branch of Congress, and divided rule has been the predominant feature in the last 15 years, the last 20 years has been divided rule. I mean, it's really just this period in time, and Biden had 2 years, Obama had 2 years, but most of the time it's divided rule. And so that makes it the tit for tat less likely. And you say, for example, that you understand what Mitch McConnell did was fucked up. Let's do this whole exchange with you now, right? So if Republicans did a court pack legislatively, should Democrats respond in kind?
If Republicans did a legislative court pack, I would not fault Democrats for doing it in kind. Yeah,
You would not
be perfectly justified in doing it.
Oh, they would be justified. Okay.
Well, it's not. Would you not fault? Would you support?
Would you support it?
affirmatively
Justified.
support it?
When we
It
say
ought-
legislative court pack through
Yes.
a rule of Congress, they expand the court
by two, and then
fill it with Republican
Democrats do it by two.
By federal statute.
By federal statute.
By federal statute. That's what he means.
By federal statute, I would probably support Democrats. doing
Okay,
it, yeah.
so I'm telling you now, and you tell me if you disagree. What Mitch McConnell did is worse than a legislative court pack. Do you agree?
I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe in principle, but not in a consequential perspective, if that makes sense. I
So
don't know if
explain
makes
that.
sense,
Yeah.
like-
So like that.
So this is where the cascading effect, and maybe I should rethink if I would actually think the Democrats should respond in full to legislative. 'cause
Yeah,
maybe
that's
now
what-
I'm
yeah.
thinking about it. I might not. Yeah, maybe they shouldn't actually, because maybe my analysis will still apply. So I'm gonna walk through it. Maybe I'll revise.
That's why I present it that way, because you either I think if you do think that the legislative court packing will fundamentally lead to like this insane set of consequences, then you should just bite the bullet and say no. If they court pack, we shouldn't do it in response, right? And then
I think you're right.
yeah.
I do think that. I think that I guess my big issue is it feels like a lot of these things when we talk about court packing is. I think there's structural problems with the Supreme Court. I think we talked about whether on pen and paper it was designed to be nonpartisan. The Supreme Court has always been functioned as a partisan environment. And the truth of the matter is I don't think the Founding Fathers expected not just a partisan environment, but the level of partisanship we see today. It is undeniable we are in heightened level of partisanship. And I think that...
Well, hang on. I'm sorry. I want to offer a correction here. Let's be clear. The Founding Fathers may not have anticipated that when they put pen to paper for the structure of the Constitution.
But
the Founding Fathers themselves
I'm
instantly
saying I'm agreeing with
governed
that.
in that way.
I'm agreeing with that. I'm just saying I think the level of partisanship we exist in today
I'm not sure.
is much higher.
I'm not sure that's even true. I mean, these people.
I think I mean, like in my first political science class, so I am not that educated, but like you can look at like the way that Congress has like shifted.
Well,
and,
the proof is in what President Adams did to President Jefferson. I mean, in some ways, like I mean, as partisan as we are now, in some ways it was more partisan and more bitter then because Adams actually exercised his authority to shrink the court to fuck Jefferson over, and then when Jefferson's allies won the next midterms, they were able to undo that legislation. Democrats didn't do that.
Yeah, there's one thing about this whole saga that's untold too. You know what Jefferson did after? Jefferson completely ended the Supreme Court's sitting term for a whole year. the Supreme Court did not sit in session. So Jefferson, by statute, did that. These were people who were insanely politically motivated, and they thought of each other as fundamentally as like a cancer, and that needed to be wiped out, and like needed to be destroyed ideologically, of course. And then later on, you have the tensions of the Civil War aftermath. And so we say now, like, we're in a very highly partisan time. I would agree compared to like the 90s and the early 2000s, but compared to the times in which the court packs occurred at the start of the country after the Civil War, they were much bigger divisions.
I guess my point is, it seems like you guys are acknowledging that if we court pack, that Republicans would respond in turn. And I think I would, now that you pointed out, I actually do agree. I actually don't think that Democrats should respond in turn. I guess my point is, what's the off-ramp, right? It does seem like this entire discussion is built around a larger systemic issue with the court that doesn't get resolved through court packing and only like enables it more. I feel like we're just going to end up in the same situation where the court still isn't fundamentally different.
So I again, because it's late, so I want to make sure that I heard you
we are
correctly.
going to wrap up.
So
Yeah, for sure.
you did say, you said that you bit the bullet and said you wouldn't support Democrats responding with court packing if Republicans did it first by expanding the court.
I mean, the
Right?
scale might change it a little bit, like if it's like a 10 judges, but like I say overall probably not.
Wait, why would the scale change it?
So I fundamentally don't understand, and I've tried this with Wick, and he and I are like Batman and the Joker. We're just destined to do this forever, and I've made my peace with that.
Curious, am I Joker or Batman?
It depends on the day. It depends on the day.
If you want me to explain why I think the scale might matter.
No. I guess I keep coming back to the self-defense principle, and I'm interested in your answer here because you're not a conservative like our two interlocutors here, but you're sympathetic to their view as a liberal or as a Democrat. What are Democrats entitled to do with the power they have, and at what point is risk superseded here? Because I keep coming back to, I feel like if someone were to kick down your door and start punching you in the face, who's bigger and stronger than you, you would still try to swing back, even if it risks not only escalation but permanent damage. And I just don't understand this kind of cucked mentality. Not to be a dick
that's
to
fine.
you,
I get what you're getting at.
but like I don't get it, especially when the Republicans, as you say, have been so viciously, persistent in using the power that they have to create or exacerbate what institutional advantages they have. Like, I was busting Ryan's balls over the past few days about, him bitching about, Pisco wants to lock the Democrats lock the Republicans out of power. Ryan wants to do that. Trump wants to do that. They've openly called for it. We see them take actions to try to do that as we speak. At what point are we permitted to retaliate or defend ourselves? And I'm curious what you would say to that.
Every time I debate you, you give me a really fucking tough question. I agree. It's a weird conversation. I guess you're right. It is kind of weird that we're in this environment where one side, you're saying, is trying to lock it out, and it's kind of hard to analyze how much we want to do because we are trying to strike a balance between responding, but also I feel like there's a big concern with like a race to the bottom, right? And like I don't know how you like that is also a huge fear too, right? That like you don't want to be like in this ever twining race. Well, fuck everything. We just go tit for tat. Eventually, we just lead to like a complete. I understand like it's like it sounds cucked, but also like we don't want to fully like say like okay, fuck everything. We just fully commit to like. Not
me,
like
Stormwolf, and those of us who think like we do aren't advocating for doing nothing. And I think this is a straw man you guys always put on us. Like, oh, you just want to cuck out. You want to cede all things. You don't want to fight back at all. That's not true. There's plenty of things that I think we can do, right? It's late or I
Go
can
ahead.
get into more specific details about that, but it's like past midnight and we could have that conversation another time in a more
I think also
one-on-one format. But real quick, like my what I want isn't to injure back the Republicans and tit for tat or anything. What I would like is to fix the fundamental issue. And so if I have to take a punch to do that, then I will.
Let them steal your bike. Let them steal your fucking bike. They'll enjoy it more.
Hold on. If by stealing my bike, we can fix theft, then yes.
And I'm sure this will fit.
What would that be in this metaphor?
Yeah, what's
what would
the
that
metaphor?
be in this metaphor? I'm curious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things in game theory and things like that that makes it really apply differently to things like elections is there's a third party that is judging your actions and looking at what you do. In order to wield power in America and the system we have, one of the fundamental things we have to do is win. right? We have to win the Senate, we have to win the House, we have to win the presidency, and all these things. I think that by acting the way that I advocate for, that our chances of winning and the margins by which we win go up, right? I think that that's borne out in data, in polling, and other things. Even on the court packing issue, most people agree with me in America, left, right, and center. I am in the majority positions here. I just am, right? You guys are trying to change that, and that's fine. That's why we have these debates and things like that.
We will uncut the Democrats. This will be our job.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, but Wick, we do the gerrymandering example in California. It wasn't a majority position either until it was, and you support it. And this is why I'm saying, like, I have such a deep affection for you, but I really think it's just like you look retrospectively, you're so risk averse that when Democrats defy your risk potential and it works out, then you retroactively go, okay, it worked out there, so that's fine. Gerrymandering involves violations of norms, laws. It is a race to the bottom. We're seeing it now. It is wildly opposed, at least the notion of it. It was wildly opposed in California. But then we invested the political capital. We changed people's minds, and you supported doing that.
Yes.
So, and I will also, the last thing I'll say, I'm sorry, the last thing I'll say is, depending on the poll, if there's a YouGov poll out there, I have it somewhere. I'll try to find my notes and bring it to you. But when the pollsters ask, or when the pollsters proceed the question by talking about how long the Supreme Court has been conservative, then support for expanding the Supreme Court wins
Did they ask Schumer, though?
It's a slight majority. It's 52.
Did they ask Schumer in that
That's
poll?
right. That's right. No, they did not. He's the one that matters.
You forgot who to ask. If Schumer supports it, Wick is going to be on board. That's the Schumer guarantee.
That's not necessarily true either. But
I have a question about the risk calculation.
Yeah, but just real quick, to respond to Josiah's point, right? Like, the reason I am more open to gerrymandering is because, like, this has been going on my entire life. Gerrymandering is a thing. Even mid-district gerrymandering, to certain extents, they've been fucking with each other like this for my entire life.
Wait a minute. No, sir. Mid-decade
No?
redistricting didn't start until 2003 under President Bush, and then it went away again. There was an attempt by Democrats in 2024. Republicans countered with North Carolina.
I look through the
Wait a
Reagan
minute.
years, you won't find a single instance of mid-district.
You are free to fact check me there, but my understanding was the first time we saw mid-decade redistricting, either ever or in decades, was in 2003. I'm pretty sure in Texas. Texas has been ground zero in multiple times.
Off the top of my head, so fair enough. But let's assume that's true. However, that's still over 20 years, and gerrymandering in general, right, is a problem. We even taking the mid-districting out of it, gerrymandering in general is a problem. You would agree? Yeah. So again, this is a norm that I'm more willing, and especially, and the reason why we were able to get people on board with it in California and just generally in the Democratic Party
is because Texas started it.
Yes, the Republicans
just like McConnell started it.
Okay,
Look at the Northeast.
I don't think that's convincing to people.
Well, actually, can we go to Pisco? You have a syllogism, right?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
You have premise 3, which is there's no effective way to reverse without court packing, right?
Yeah.
With the gerrymandering thing, would there be any way to affect with the gerrymandering? I know it sounds. So without counter gerrymandering, is there any way to counter the gerrymandering done by Texas?
Yeah, by law.
Yeah, by federal statute. But it's not right now. It's not effective because we don't. Republicans don't want to do that. Yeah.
I'm saying sure, but I would say that in the practical sense, right now it was just especially given when the midterms were coming up, it was just respond with a counter gerrymandering, right?
Yeah.
To be clear,
that was one option.
There was a California, and also to be clear, there was a California Republican who proposed to do a bipartisan.
He was alone, and he was only worried about his own seat. But yes, there was.
Wait, Josiah, what was the other option?
Wait a minute. Well, hang on. To Desert's point, you're talking about Kevin Kiley, right? Yeah, who found Jesus, by the way. Yeah, after he's like, again, not principled.
Oh no, not my fucking seat.
but yeah. So set that aside, that morally inferior piece of shit. The second thing is this. Why didn't it go anywhere? Because you're right, Kevin Kiley proposed it. Why didn't it go anywhere?
Because there's bipartisan support for gerrymandering on both sides.
No.
Wait, what?
Because
wait a minute. So you don't
look at the Northeast? Yeah.
No.
Wait a minute. Gerrymander. How are you going to gerrymander Rhode Island?
Wait, don't just let.
Yeah,
let
I'm talking about
Well,
like Massachusetts and Maine and like Connecticut.
everyone
that
has
have
Wait a minute,
like
wait a minute,
40%.
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Hang on. So no, listen, I think you're confused here. I totally agree that Democrats have gerrymandered, and I will totally concede that. But we're talking about a representative in the United States House of Representatives, right? We're not talking about a state actor here. Why did his proposal to end bipartisanly end gerrymandering, nationwide gerrymandering ban, why did it not go anywhere when he proposed it?
Because both sides want to continue gerrymandering.
No. So
Enlighten me on
do
your
you
side.
know
but
the last time?
That's what I know.
Do you know that there's been a proposal for a nationwide gerrymandering ban before?
When was that?
First in 2021 under 2020 under Donald Trump, 2018, 2019, I can't remember, it was HR1.
The one in 2024.
And then there was
right?
another attempt. Then there was another attempt under President Biden. Do you know why it didn't go anywhere? Do you know why it failed?
I would assume for the same reason I
The
just
Senate
stated.
filibuster.
No. The Senate filibuster by Republicans. They opposed it.
Every Democrat voted for it, right?
Every Democrat voted for it. Man, listen,
And
I'm not
that's
trying to
not
be a
an
dick, but this
Oh
is
my god!
but this is
that's such a
What do you mean that's not an
political-
argument?
What do you mean it's not
What do
such
you
a
mean that's
number
not an
one, you had
argument?
no fucking
Because the
idea
way-
what we were talking about. Number two, the reason that you sound like a fucking idiot now I'm going to drop even the pretense of being respectful for you. I don't know why I second guess that. You are an idiot. Is because your party's morally inferior. We were willing to bipartisanly end
That's
gerrymandering
not how voting actually
nationwide.
works everywhere.
Nationwide.
Wait, I have a question. If every
Wait a minute,
Democrat
wait a
votes
minute,
to end
wait a minute.
gerrymandering, what do you mean that this is not like? What do you mean this is a bipartisan thing where both parties
so
want to
this
do it?
happens
One party says
all
let's
the-
ban it, and the other party says nah.
And this happens all the
time.
time for so many things that won't pass. People do the vote against it when they know it's not going to pass, or they do the vote for it.
Republicans
No,
What
why
do you
didn't it
mean?
pass? Wait, why didn't it pass?
It could have just
It passed the House. It passed the House. A Democratic president was prepared to sign it. It died in the Senate because Republicans opposed it. Where is that analogous to your boy Kevin Kiley, who you just pitched up as a model, someone who tried to ban nationwide gerrymandering? See, you would have a point.
Yeah, those are
and
also-
you don't because you don't because you're a fucking idiot.
Those
is
are also
if,
noble moments, but I haven't heard of them. Just
if
like what they do.
so wait
He
a
doesn't know
minute.
about it.
So
He
you
doesn't
do
know about it.
concede.
Like,
So
I
you
haven't
do
heard about them.
concede
I
that
would've-
He
I
lacks
would've
the critical
put those up as-
information.
Right.
It's the Mike Johnson defense.
So this is but okay. Then if you agree that was a noble moment, here's my point. Democrats tried to do what you proposed, and they got a
point-
hell of a lot closer. Wait a minute. Kevin Kiley went to the Republicans, went to Mike Johnson, and said, let's ban nationwide gerrymandering. Texas is gerrymandering. Now California
laughed
is
at him.
responding. It's a race to the bottom. And Republicans said no, because your party wants partisan gerrymandering. Our party is willing to give it up. We're better than you. We're willing to set that aside.
And
You
which
know why they
Democrats
say
and,
no?
and which and
Take it up.
who was
You
in
know
the
why they
court?
say no?
Who was in the court arguing that partisan gerrymandering was unconstitutional? Democratic litigation groups, democratically support people who wanted to say that it's unconstitutional. Who were the justices that said that actually partisan gerrymandering was unconstitutional? All the liberal justices. So let's please stop with this whole like both
And which
sides.
are the
It's a
states-
cancer.
And which are the states that ended partisan gerrymandering? Do you know why your state, because you said you live in California, do you know why California had to take it up with a voter referendum? Because California, a predominantly blue state, ended the practice of partisan gerrymandering.
And we
as
broke
did
our
Virginia.
constitution to do it. Yeah, good argument.
No,
buddy.
we didn't break
No,
your
we
constitution.
changed
You
it.
amended it. You amended it. See,
When did it?
Yeah,
Did you vote?
this is-
Prop 60.
Now amending the
you're not
Constitution
gonna
is
make
off
it
the table
past-
for them. So anything. So you
Yeah,
just
that's
saw
what
it,
I'm
right?
saying.
Like
I'm not gonna argue this one with you guys.
100%.
Wait,
And
no,
he's
don't
not
argue
going to
this
make
one.
it.
Don't
He's
run
not
from
going to
it.
graduate law school if
No,
he
he will-
believes that
stop,
amending
stop.
the Constitution is breaking the
Okay,
Constitution.
okay.
I want to say,
Okay.
can I just respond to Desiree real quick on
Not
something
saying
else?
then we gotta.
Yeah, I think you sent me a DM about impeachment. I do condemn when Graham Plattner, this fucking idiot, I endorse him though. When he said that he should impeach justice, I'm against that. And I think that's wrong, and I would stand against it. And I would vote to acquit justice unless I saw that they did a high crime or misdemeanor, and I haven't seen anything.
He's
from
been
the-
consistent on
Well,
that, by
so
the way.
wait,
He is.
Pisco, this
he's
was my
publicly
question.
lived
And the
and
thing
learned
is
When I
since
that
asked if
I'm
there was
actually-
anything else
yeah.
to do, this is why I brought up the premise 3. I guess,
Yeah.
and I guess you just said that you're not for impeachment, but like
No.
impeachment of a justice does seem like another path other than court packing, right?
It's
So why wouldn't it be?
It's an
Because
insane
there's a
bar.
trial,
You
it seems more
need
justiciable.
you need 67 senators, but the more fundamental reason is I haven't seen evidence of a high crime or misdemeanor from Alito, from Clarence Thomas, from these people. Now they are like, they do like stupid things. They go on like fucking Newsmax if you're Neil Gorsuch or whatever. But I don't view that as a high crime or misdemeanor. And there's like some smoke of like some maybe ethics stuff. And yeah, no, there's ethics stuff for sure. But I don't view that by itself as a high crime or misdemeanor.
Okay, gang. It's been a
Yeah.
great show. Okay, it's been a great show, but we gotta end. Shout out to my guests who stayed here for the call-ins. I really appreciate all of you. Go give them all a subscribe, a follow, whatever they need. I got the list of their channels in my YouTube description. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button.